Welcome back to the Gurmukh series, where we go through the lives of many different Guru Sikhs, Gurmukhs, Sants, different titles, different names, but in essence, the same. So if we just look at what Gurmukh means as well, a simple definition we give every single time, Sat Guru Da Mukh, that when you look at that individual, when you look at their jivan, the life that they lived, it's very similar to Guru Sahib Ji. It lives up to the jivan that Guru Sahib Ji wanted us to live as well. And it gives us a lot of inspiration. And we've had many different episodes on different Guru Sikhs, different Gurmukhs. And today we're going to be speaking about Baba Shaam Singh Ji, part 2. So episode 2 of Baba Shaam Singh Ji. And I'm right in believing that this is not going to be the only part, right? There's going to be a part 3 afterwards, right? Right, so there's a lot to go through. Just in summary, what we went through in the first part, so make sure you guys check that out. Part 1 of Baba Shaam Singh Ji, we introduced Baba Shaam Singh Ji. We talked about the Sevapanthis lineages or the Sampradaya, some very famous saints such as Bhai Hema Raam Ji, which we've all probably heard of. If you don't know who they are, the Guru Sikh who gave the water, the aid to the soldiers, to the, you could say, the enemy soldiers in the Battle of Anandpur Sahib. We talked about Baba Shaam Singh Ji's childhood, their birth. We talked about the Seva of Baba Shaam Singh Ji as well, the Kirtan, the Seva, how they learned Kirtan, what inspired them to do Kirtan. And that was really inspiring as well, to go for that in Babaji's early Jivan as well. And there was many things that we covered. It was a long podcast. I think it was one of our longest ones for the Gurmukh series. It was 3 hours and 20 minutes. So let's see what we churn out today. And the nicest thing about that is I remember reading in the comment section somebody saying yes, that people actually look forward to seeing long podcasts on the Jeevanis of such Guru Sikhs as well. So I'll just pass it over to you guys. And maybe Bhai Vir Singh Ji, maybe something to start off with is our recent trip to India. And we actually went to Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Dera as well. So what was that like? What was it like, doing the Gurmukh series last year and then going to Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Dera? I know it's not been the first time, right?
No, the first time I went was in 2018, and so it's been a while. But the feeling is always one of awe, because it's not too dissimilar to that feeling where, you go to Itihaas Asthaan for the first time, and you know the history of that place, and you can connect the dots. Just like, you go to the Darbār Sahib, you see the various different parts of the Darbār Sahib associated with various Itihaas and things, and you can relate it there. Okay, at this point this happened, at this point this happened. I get the same feeling at Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Dera, because having read this history in some detail, you can see, for example, that you can see the level where Babaji would have washed their hair. You can see the Darbar hall. You can see where they would have done prakash of the 10 or 11 swarups that they used to do. Now they do 3. So it just brings that history to life. And you, obviously, being a Maharpur Asthaan, for me, it still echoes with a sense of tranquility. For me, I feel that presence. So when I go there, I feel like I'm doing namaskar to Sant Ji and to all the other Gurmukhs that came to that place and did seva. So no, it was a lovely experience. It just adds. It's nice to be able to collect a place physically to the Sakhis that we've been talking about.
Staji, anything to add to that?
I think in terms of in our last podcast as well, we talked about the daily routine of Baba Shaam Singh Ji, and one thing was clear: their life revolved around Darbār Sahib. So we all know about the Tin Pera, meaning the first chonki in Sri Darbār Sahib, which Baba Shaam Singh Ji used to do the Kirtan, which was also known as Prem Chonki, because they did that out of love for Guru Ramdas Ji Maharaj. But it wasn't only that chonki. Even while researching for this podcast, the amount of times you read that Baba Shaam Singh in the day, like maybe 10, 11 times, they're going to Darbār Sahib again and again. And even where other people couldn't feel, other Raggis or Rababbis couldn't make their chonki or their Kirtan, Baba Shaam Singh will go. Right. So in the day, their life is revolving around Darbār Sahib. And seeing how close their Dera actually was to Darbār Sahib, it puts it in perspective. It's literally just outside. A lot of people don't know about it. It's the gully, Atta Mandi, gali hegi. It's like maybe a few minutes walk from Darbār Sahib. it shows that location as well for Baba Shaam Singh Ji, why that was so important. And the location of their Dera is all to do with Darbar Sahib. So just going down that gully and imagining that Baba Ji used to walk down this, and obviously these gullies haven't really changed from that time. Baba Ji used to walk from here to Darbar Sahib. It gives you that perspective as well.
Definitely, and we'd highly recommend for those that are listening to this podcast, if you've not been to Babaji's Dera, then definitely check it out. We can even put a link in the description to a location, literally just a 1 minute walk, I'd say, if you get past all the traffic. Just in the previous podcast, as I mentioned at the start, we talked about the Sevapanthi Sampradaya. We spoke about that and the different Mahapurush that we have, like Bhai Hema Ji and so on. But what is the Rehat like then of a Sevapanthi?
So in Sri Sant Ratanmala, which is probably one of the other most detailed accounts of lots of different Sevapanthi Mahapurush, written by Bhai Lal Chand. It has actually Santan Rehat, so it has a list of points for Sevapanthi Mahapurush that they would have been told when they joined the different Dera that, as people were initiated. So we'll just go through this quickly because I think it'll be nice for our audience to also see how all of Santji's different virtues come out from this sort of Rehat, and you can see where in their Jivani they actually lived up to these points.
Oh, so what does Rehat mean then for those that don't know?
So it's a deep word. I mean, you literally discipline, but it normally gets used as code of conduct. So a strict regimen by which you live your life. So you can call it like code of conduct for your life. How are you going to go about your daily business? That's how I perceive it. So the first point that they would be told, so again, it's in Sri Sant Ratanmala, that is that one should work honestly. So we can see that's coming directly from one of the three pillars that we get taught, Kirtanis. And this is specific to the Sevapanthis. They should weave ropes as per their need. And if one can't weave a rope, they should make flower garlands. So the Sevapanthis were quite strict on this. You weren't allowed to live in the Dera and not earn a living. So even though they were usually celibate and didn't have families, they felt that they needed to make sure they didn't take from the Sangat unnecessarily. And so they would weave ropes out of hemp. So in that time, people had a lot of use for that. You would use it to lower buckets into wells, to bind things together, to make manjis and cots, weaving the different fabrics together. So the Sevapanthis were quite known for this. Even in Bhagat Prem Prakash, when Baba Shaam Singh talks about previous Mahapurush, this is like a known occupation for them. So they're saying if you should work honestly, and that honest work usually involved making ropes or flower garlands if they could do it. So the second thing was have love and respect for that place, and they used to use the word tikana, so that's again sort of like rest house or place, a specific Sevapanthi word. So have love and respect for that place where you reside, because that tikana has been made by the Satguru and not you. So this is direct translation from Sant Ratanmala, and it's quite specific. You haven't made this place. And we'll see this come out in Babaji's Jivani as well with regards to the Atta Mandi Asthaan. And so that which has been made by the Satguru ought to be respected. So it's quite specific. Number 3 is take part in the tasks of the tikana without saying anything. To perform service without having been asked is the nishani, the sign of love. So they're being told here that you don't want to have any useless conversation, don't waste your breath on pointless matters. Just go about your daily chores, your daily activities, and keep silence where it needs to be kept. And acting out of prem. That's the whole point of the Sevapanthis. Number 4 is those staying at the tikana should perceive everyone like themselves. In fact, they should see them as their master and show them due respect. You should have this belief that I am happy due to these sants and do not revel in your own greatness. So again, we're going to see this come out in Babaji's Jivani, that the Sevapanthis have this complete duty to do seva of anyone that comes in through the door. And what drives them to do that seva is that perception that the person they're serving is their master, is almost the manifestation of the Guru, because they see that Nirankar Jyot pervading everything and everyone. And so in doing seva of everyone, they're doing seva of Satguru, Nirankar's Rup. So you can see how that would have affected their living. Number 5 is having deep love for the Baani of the Guru. So Sevapanthis, whilst drawing on a wide range of different sources, ultimately their allegiance was to the teachings of the Sikh gurus and Gurbani, and we can see that as well in later on in the podcast. Number 6 is a bit more of a how do you keep cleanliness? So at the end of the night, wake up and brush your teeth, perform Ishnan and read Gurbani with a focused mind. Now, to us, it seems a bit simple being told to brush your teeth because it's quite, growing up in the West, that's quite a logical thing to do. In India, not everyone brushes their teeth even now. And not everyone baths either. Even that was true of the Western countries as well. People used to take a bath once a week. So in the Gursikh Rehat, getting up and cleansing yourself, so going to the bathroom, brushing your teeth, making sure you don't have breath that's too strong in its smell is important, because all of these things actually, number one, you should keep clean. A clean outer exterior means that you can have a clean inner exterior usually. And also when you're doing Gurbani part, you don't want to be having breath that doesn't smell very nice. It's distracting for you and actually for other people. So all these things have subtle impacts on other people. So then the number 7 is, at the time for Katha, all should gather. The weavers can weave their ropes and garlands and others can read, but do not waste the time allotted for Katha here and there. Recognize the great benefit of listening to Katha, and at the time one should keep their concentration upon the words spoken. If you do not understand something, then ask afterwards. As one begins to understand more and more, so do they obtain more and more bliss. So you can see here, seva is important, but they're saying whatever seva you're doing, carry on doing it, whatever. But katha, that time is really important. And you'll see later on from the Sakhi, Swere Sham, in the morning and evening, there used to be katha in these deras. Usually in the morning it would be Gurbani, and in the evening it might be Itihaas or some other related spiritual text. Like we've mentioned in the past, Sevapanthis used to draw on Sufi texts and other yoga vasist, things like that, other shastra, to help supplement their katha. So you can see how important it was in the daily life of the Dera. Number 8 is, gather together in the evening and perform kirtan. All the sangats should sit together and recognize this as one sitting close to the Pura Satguru. And to sit apart from this is to close one's mind. So the Sevapanthis are I like the way they write these sakhis because it's really direct. And Baba Shaam Singh was like this as well, that, if you try and monopolize one thing over the other, they would chastise you for that. So it's all about balance. So we can already see out of this Rehat that we can see there's working, there's doing some form of kirat, there's doing Naam Simran, there's listening to Katha, and then there's listening to Kirtan. So you've got all the different prongs of Gursikhi being reinforced within the Rehat. And then number 9 is, all the saints, all the sants should see one another as their most dear friend in this world and the next. Again, it seems really obvious, but I think any one of us who's read a little bit about any samprada, you'll see that at some points there's politics. That people get into competition we do it with each other, leave the sants to one side. We often go into competition with one another in the sangat. Oh, this person can do this much part, or this person is doing this, and I want to be better than them. And you can see sometimes that actually leads to actual enmity, where people start to hate one another and fight and launch attacks on one another. So you can see you're going to have all these people living in a dera. They're all trying to get further in their Sikhi. But one thing they're being told is, you're going to make sure that you see the person next to you as your pra, as your friend, as somebody who's going to help you. And that's how you should act. And then number 10 is, one should keep a written copy of characteristics of the Devi Sampada and the Asuri Sampada. They should adopt the Devi and forsake the Asuri. So I know you've covered this in other podcasts, but just briefly. So in a nutshell, Devi Sampada, they are the good qualities, the good virtues that one should adopt. And the Asuri ones are the ones of like the sakats, the demonic ones that we should forsake. As Maharaji tells us, you can either become a devata or you can become a sakat. You can take good qualities or you can take bad qualities. This one was interesting for me because we often just listen to something, we try to retain it. Here they're being told, take a written copy. And so they would have had to write that out. Writing something out, when you're doing your studying, you kind of remember that when you write something, you remember more of it rather than just reading, when you're making notes in school or university. So the idea that you would write it down, that these are the qualities that I want to try and instill in my life, and these are the ones I need to get out. So Jade Devi Sampada, what are they? They're Satta Santok, Daya Dharam, Jat Sata Virag. So quickly, speaking truth, being content, having compassion, walking the path of righteousness, keeping control of your mind and your consciousness, keeping control of your senses, your bodily senses, having a state of emotional detachment, keeping detached from the world and not being overly invested, and then also being in a state of contemplation, vichar, being able to contemplate these spiritual teachings and imbibe them in your life. And then what are the asri ones? Kam, krodh, lobh, moh, ahankar, these banjajod that we hear about time and time again. And then what they're saying is, understand that I will obtain peace of being a sant when I leave the asuri and grab a hold of the devi. So they're being told quite simply, that this is what you need to do and this is what you need to leave behind. Number 11 was, think that the company of women will destroy my dharam, my karam, and my tan and man. I never allow a woman to sit too close to you. Now, again, sometimes when people hear these comments off the cuff, they start to take a slightly belligerent tone, that why they're saying this about women. You have to understand this is being written from a male perspective for male initiates into a male dera. These dere were for men only. Women didn't used to leave their households to become celibates, to remain in dera and do seva. That's just the the historic nature of things. Things might have changed now, but at that time, that's not what happened. Women would remain within their households and would do seva, would do work, bring up the families. So that's the time period we're talking about. So if you're a celibate and you've decided, I'm not going to get married, then in your mind you're thinking, I really should have no dealings with the opposite sex, because it provides a temptation for you. You actually have no reason to be close to them in proximity. So this isn't to say that Sevapanthis wouldn't give upadesh or give spiritual teaching or wouldn't allow women into the dere during katha kirtan. They would. But this is very specific for those celibate men, that if I get too close, it prevents a temptation. And that temptation then could lead to me falling off my path. And we don't have to look too far in modern times now to see that has affected members of Sangat across the world. It affects Sikhs today. It's a constant battle even for Gristi people. That once you've taken your grist with your partner, then everybody else becomes also like that. That poison that could also cause you to fall off your path. So just think here that they haven't even adopted grist. They're saying, I need to stay away from being too close in Istri Sangat, for fear of becoming tempted and falling down into a path of disregard. So in no way is this statement saying that women are bad or the cause of this and that we can't do anything for them and we should shun them. And because the extreme of this is to say that, and that's what some of the higher castes in Indic Dharam had started to do. They shunned women, didn't they? In traditional Brahmin culture, women weren't even allowed to listen to the Veds. So that's where the extreme of this thought goes. But being moderate is just saying that, understanding, treating women as Baana, Matama, and being careful that as this Kaljug Sama is going, because we get told, Kaljug is going to get worse, keeping a para, keeping a stand, keeping a watch is important. So the last 2 points now. If a sant comes from one tikana to another and he is asked, why have you come from there? If the answer is that they've got, is due to anger or manmat, then those at the new tikana shouldn't welcome him. So it's more on that same point. Sometimes you would find some sant or some devotee would have had an argument or a fight at another tikana. Maybe they wanted the Mahanti, they wanted to take over, they didn't get it, they got into a fight and they've left that tikana and they come to another one. So they're just instructing here. If somebody comes from another tikana to you, you need to ask them why. And if it's because they've had some sort of argument between themselves or there's been a disagreement, then you should think twice before admitting them into your tikana. Because ultimately, these places are meant for them to gain Brahm Gyan. They're there to do seva, nothing else. You don't want disruptions. So, and then the last point, if someone comes to the tikana in order to become a sadhu, so to become a sant, gain that Brahm Vidya, do not give the Seli Topi immediately. Out of haste, the Maryada has fallen. So this is a really interesting point. It's what we were saying in previous podcasts as well, that Gurmat, Sikhi, is a Sahaj Marg, meaning it's one of sort of natural slow progression. And the Seli Topi is that sort of woven cap that used to be used by sadhus, was used by some of the earlier gurus before the Dastar, and is a sign of being a saint, a sant. Some faqirs wear it, Sufis, some of them wear it, and you still find some Udasis who wear it now. The Sevapanthis less so, but at this time they used to. And what they're saying is this topi, this nishani, of being a Sevapanthi or a sadhu, you don't just give it out immediately. It has to be earned. And what they're saying is the Maryada of the Sevapanthis has come into disrepute or been weakened, or the standard of the Sevapanthi has been weakened by giving people this topi so quickly. So where else can we find tradition of, somebody being given something for seva for many years? You find it in the Nihang Singhs when they become fardatari. So they get a fardla, which is that piece of kapra at the top of the damalla, which is given to those very special individuals who have done quite an extreme level of seva in the Nihang Dals and gained vidya and demonstrated worthiness. And that takes a very long period of time. So we find this across different sampradas as well, that you don't just get initiated, you have to do some seva, you have to earn the ability to call yourself these words and actually live up to them. So I just thought it'd be interesting to look at that. How did the Sevapanthis define themselves? How did they keep their own Rehat? What instructions did they live by?
Thank you for sharing the Rehat of the Sevapanthis. And a lot of them, generally, we can follow in their own lives as well, especially number 10, which I thought was very interesting about the idea of writing everything down, as in the Devi Gun and those types of qualities we shouldn't be following in our lives. And if we just focus on the good qualities, then we talk about one gun being Nimrata. How can we see it in the life of Baba Shaam Singh Ji?
Baba Shaam Singh Ji's life, to start off with the Pankti, Sant ki mehma kavan bakhano, agad bodh kich mit nahi jano. So in reality, the greatness of the Sants, of the saints, how can we even describe that? And this podcast is about the virtues of Sant Baba Shaam Singh. So in the last podcast, we went through their early life, about the Kirtan and so on. But there's so many facets of Babaji's life. And as I've said before, the life of a Mahapurush is Gurbani in action. So we can read a tika of Gurbani, we can read a translation of Gurbani, but the Mahapurush is actually living Gurbani. They're the form of Gurbani. And the virtues of Baba Shaam Singh, they can never end. Like we can never even touch the surface of it. But what the Gursikhs saw of Babaji's life, those small snippets, we're going to try and share them. The first thing is the humility. So Brahmgyani uchte ucha man apne hai sabte nicha. That's the sign of a Brahmgyani, isn't it? They're the highest of the high, but their nimrata is something else. And it's not the fake nimrata that we have. It's real nimrata. And we see that humility in their life. Without that humility, there's not a Brahmgyani, according to Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj. As one gains the highest position, which is becoming one with Vaheguru, in that avastha, there's no ego. So, few examples from Babaji's life. We'll start off with their seva. When Babaji was in Majid Mandi Wala Dharmsala. So in their life, Babaji was not always at Atta Mandi Asthaan. That Asthaan was more towards the end of their life. In Amritsar, various Dere or various Asthans of Sevapanthis, Babaji stayed there. And ਜਿਵੇਂ ਹੁਣ ਵੀ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, the fuel which is used for langar is cow dung, ਗੋਹਾ. ਤੇ ਪਾਥੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਵਰਤਦੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਨ. ਤੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਡੇਰੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਪੰਥੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਅਸਥਾਨ ਸੀ, all of them, they would use ਪਾਥੀਆਂ. That was the fuel used to use when they were making langar. ਤੇ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਮਰਿਆਦਾ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਡੇਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ, whoever stayed in the dera, then ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਥੀਆਂ ਸੀ for the langar, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਥੀਆਂ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੱਥਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਸੀ. Right, so they had to pat them, cow dung, sort of whatever their shape is, it's like a sort of circle, and then those were used as fuel under the fire, to keep the fire going. They would think that someone of the status of Baba Shaam Singh, like in today's day, we can't even imagine someone who has that sort of status, like such a great sant in the Sevapanthi tradition or any sort of tradition. We see them on stages doing prachar, or we see them traveling around the country doing prachar, which is one facet of the life of a sant. In Baba Shaam Singh Ji's life, they never shied away from these sort of sevas, and they will be the first one in this seva. So the maryada of staying at the Asthaan is whoever stays here has to pat these cow dung, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਥੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ, ਗੋਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਤੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਆਪ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ not only did they do it for themselves, ਬਾਕੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੰਗਤ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਡੇਰੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵੀ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਆਪ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਵੀ ਆਪ ਤਿਆਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਵੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਨੂੰ ਛਕਾਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਤੇ as we just mentioned, whenever you stay at some sort of place, there's always some sort of or someone with irqa or some sort of jealousy. And seeing the sobha, the greatness of Baba Shaam Singh Ji spreading everywhere, there were certain individuals who started to have vendetta against Baba Ji, or they couldn't handle the glory of Baba Shaam Singh Ji. And at one point, the managers of that Dera, so the Asthaan where Baba Ji was staying at, the Sevadar or the head Sevadars, they stopped Baba Ji from using the cow dung which is coming for that Asthaan, and they said like, this cow dung is only for the langar, you can't use it for yourself. You can't use it for the fuel that you make your langar or whatever. Baba Ji we they weren't going to do a confrontation there or something. ਉਹ ਬਸ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਰਕੇ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਇੱਕ ਭਾਈ ਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀ ਸੀ ਦੇ ਲਵ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਫॉर ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਤੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਤਾ ਕਿ there's many people who come to ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੁਣ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਡੰਗਰ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਆ those who keep animals and so on, they bring all the dung from various animals and they bring it to the city, because in the city you're not going to have farms and so on where they keep these animals. ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਲਿਆਉਂਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਟ ਦਿਆ ਕਰੋ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤੇ from that day Baba Shaam Singh Ji, they would get the pathya themselves, they would pay for it themselves. As we heard, a Sevapanthis is not someone who would beg for anything, and they wouldn't rely on others. Sevapanthis did kirat. You know? So Baba Shaam Singh Ji, from the money that they used to do kirat, they used to buy that goha themselves. They fir aap look at their nimrata, that same Dera who had irqa with them, or certain members had irqa with them, they stopped Baba Ji using the cow dung of that Dera, right? But Baba Shaam Singh Ji, when they were buying it themselves, they would still pat the pathiyan, and that ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਥੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਤਿਆਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ, they would give that to the Dera as well. So they didn't keep any sort of irqa or any sort of, okay, these people didn't let me use theirs, I'm not going to give them mine now. ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪ ਉਹ ਖਰੀਦਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਡੇਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਨਿਮਰਤਾ ਸੀ ਤੇ it shows you the contrast of what we nowadays we might think what a Sant is or what a Baba is or something like that. And now someone might think that they don't do these sort of sevas. Baba Shaam Singh's life was this sort of seva. So this is one example. And then another example is of Baba Shaam Singh Ji. Various times in their life, they were actually offered mahanti of various asthaans. So to explain what mahanti is a mahant, now the word has become very negative in a sense because of the actions of some mahants. Mahant just comes from mahan, right? Someone who's great. Mahant is actually someone who was the caretaker of an asthaan. So anyone who is a caretaker of the asthaan, like nowadays we'll say head granthi, or we'll say mukh sevadar, right? The word has changed now, mukh sevadar, right? In that time, anyone who was a mukh sevadar was a mahant. So it wasn't a bad name, but because of the actions of some bad mahants, right, the whole word got maligned. It's just like masand, right? Masand in Guru Sahib Ji's Sama, before Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj's Sama, the masand was a very respected word, right? Anyone who had the title of masand, it was equal to like Sant or Mahapurush. That's how respected it was. But then due to the actions of some masands in Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj's time where they became corrupt, like even now, like when someone's corrupt, we'll call them a masand. When you look at the actual arth of masand, it's not a negative arth, right? So in the same way, the Janevi Dere, if you imagine you've got a Dera, you've got a Asthaan, how many various facets are there of one Asthaan, right? You've got so many Gursikhs staying there, you've got travelers coming there, you're doing seva of langar, you've got Maharaj's seva going on, you've got Katha, Kirtan, all these facets, they're controlled, or they're the dekh-rekh, so the overall organization and responsibilities with the Mahant. So it's a lot of seva, right? And various places where Babaji stayed in Amritsar, they used to travel to or stay in various dere. There's so many instances of the Mahants of that dera trying to give Babaji the Mahanti. You know? There's one story about Mahant Kalyan Singh, and Resham Singh will tell that story.
So Mahant Kalyan Singh, who
Kalyan Das,
Mahant Kalyan Das was in charge of one of the big dharamsala. It used to be called the Vaddi Addan Shahi Dharamsala, and this used to be in Amritsar. It's not there now. He was sort of the Mahant there in 1892, and when it was his sort of final days coming, he sort of towards the tail end of his life, he asked Sant Baba Shaam Singh Ji to manage the Dharamsala. So just as Bhai Jeevan Pal Singh was saying, these offers were coming from many of the different Dera for Baba Ji to take over. And Sant Baba Shaam Singh Ji's reply was, Hey Maharaj, so just as a term of endearment to Mahant Kalyan Singh Das, sorry. I have sort of little time remaining and white hairs that have appeared in my hair. These are the signals that death is forever looking above. So please excuse me and give this responsibility to someone else. Otherwise, Ghulam will go and stay somewhere else. So as we've mentioned previously, Baba Shaam Singh Ji used to call themselves Ghulam, meaning sort of slave, because they perceived themselves as being the servant of everyone. And so they had this level of nimrata that, number one, normally as we get older, we want more radiyai. We see it in our own families and wider society that the older someone gets, we expect more respect as we get older, regardless of whether we've actually wised up or not. And then we get older and we want to be told, how good we are. We get higher in our careers, we get higher on the pedestals, and we want to be sort of given more respect and be able to command other people, which is, in some respects, the Mahant of a Dera has that. They have full control. They can tell people to leave or go. They can change the structure. You basically have full autonomy. But Baba Ji wasn't enticed by any of that. They literally just said, okay, I've come into old age. You can imagine that they were probably thinking, Sir Kampyo Pag Dagmaga, Nan Jyotehin, as Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji talks about how the Sarid starts to fall apart. And they're basically saying, don't give it to me. And actually, if you do try to give it to me, I'm just going to leave. So they were willing to uproot themselves. And so in 1892, we think, bearing in mind that Sant Ji was born in somewhere around 1805, at this point, they're in their mid-80s. And it's funny because I like to remind the audience here that Baba Ji lived to 123. So they're in their mid-80s, which for us is like the end of our lives.
Yeah.
They're gonna live for another 40 years.
Wow.
Beyond this point. But still, they're in their old age. And they've refused it. So hearing these words then, the Mahant Kalyan Das, he said to all the other sadhu baithe si utte, at the same, all the other sants, this is called detachment. Anurag and Itihaas, Sant Ji is a complete tyagi. So Baba Shaam Singh Ji, if they wanted, they could have had many buildings in their name. They could have taken a lot of wealth. There was plenty of offerings coming in. There were plenty of wealthy people in Amritsar as well, being a main trading city in colonial Punjab. And they never did. You can see from the photo even there that Sant Ji is wearing a sort of a kafni and how simple their dress was. So this is just another example. We can move on to another story now of
just one pankti that links to that. And again, we talked about how Babaji's life was Gurbani in action. So you've got Guru Sahib Ji says, Jan sarda Ram naam lagi, tin duje chetana laya Ram, je dharti sab kanchan kar dije bin nave avar na paya Ram. This is the avastha of Baba Shaam Singh Ji, right? So those whose shraddha, those whose love, those whose faith is in Vaheguru's naam, they do not attach their chet to anything else. For them, Vaheguru is everything. For them, Naam is everything. And Guru Sahib says, Jettarti sab kanchan kar dije. That all of the earth, if you were to make this whole earth into gold, right, this whole planet into gold, and offer this whole planet to that Gurmukh, to that Mahapurush, bin nave avar na paya Ram. For them, other than Naam, nothing is pleasing to them. So another Sakhi, very beautiful Sakhi, is of the Atta Mandi Asthaan. That when Babaji acquired the Atta Mandi Asthaan around the end of their life, I think you were saying the last 10 years?
Last 10 years, about 1911, around that time.
So around that time, Babaji, this is now their Pakka Asthaan. Before that, they were going to different Asthans, saying there and so on, different Sevapanthis Asthans in Amritsar. And one day, when Babaji was coming back from Darbar Sahib Darshan, they come back to the Dharamsala, they come back to the Asthaan, and what did they see? On the front of the Asthaan, there's a massive board, right? And some Gurmukh has, while Babaji was away, they've set up this board, and on the board is written Dharamsala Sant Baba Shaam Singh Ji. When Baba Ji saw this, they read it, and usi waqt kya कि किस सज्जन ने board लगाने विच भुल कीती है. Who's done this grave mistake in putting this board here and writing my name on it? ਇਹ ਧਰਮਸ਼ਾਲਾ Sri Guru Nanak Sahib Ji ਦੀ ਹੈ. This ਧਰਮਸ਼ਾਲਾ is not mine, it's Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. ਗੁਲਾਮ ਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਇਹ board ਹਟਾ ਦਿਓ. So straight away, Baba Ji got rid of that board, which had their name on it. And what did they write? They made a new board. And that's not there now, but in Baba Ji's time it was there. And that board read, Jai, 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 Sri Amritsar Ji Ki. That's the first lines. That praise be to, glory be to Sri Amritsar Sahib Ji. That's the love they had for Sri Amritsar Sahib. Then underneath that, they wrote, Dharamsala Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Di. This Dharamsala is Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. The Bhai Shaam Singh. So, thalle ki likhya si? That Das, the slave of slaves, is Shaam Singh. Baba Ji bhi apna naam na nahi si rakhde, Shaam Singh hi rakhde sige. So that board was removed, and it just shows that Baba Shaam Singh Ji pure apni jeevan de vich kadi bhi ਉਹ ਸਥਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਸਮਝਿਆ. ਨਾ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਨਾਮ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰਸਿੱਧੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ. They never wanted anyone to even know their name. They had that avastha again, ਕੋਈ ਨਾਮ ਨਾ ਜਾਣੇ ਮੇਰਾ. Now we all read the ਪੰਕਤੀਆਂ, but we want everyone to know our names. ਆਪਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਲੋਕ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਨ, ਹੈਨਾ. ਆਪਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਸਿੱਧੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ. In this world, everyone's going after glory, right? No one ever wants their India, or no one ever wants their name not to be known. Even if we have a very small part in something, we want our name in bold letters. ਆਪਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕੋਈ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦਾ, they want their name on the read in the Ardaas, or they want their name on the board or on the marble or whatever. Yeah. But Baba Shaam Singh Ji, ਇੰਨੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਕੇ, their whole life, they've done all this seva, and even towards the end of their life, ਉਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਕਿਤੇ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ. Right? So that's ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਮਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਿਮਰਤਾ. Right? It's a different level of ਨਿਮਰਤਾ.
I just want to take it a little bit now to where does this nimrata come from? So we've talked about in the previous podcast some of the predecessor sants to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. So their immediate sant before them who instructed them was Sant Baba Raam Singh, and before Sant Baba Raam Singh Ji it was Sant Bhai Singh Ji. And there are a number of sakhis in Baba Ji's handwritten Granth Bhagat Prem Prakash. And there's one particular sakhi which finds mention in quite a bit of detail regarding a sadhu called Bhai Hema Raam. And he was a disciple of Bhai Ram. So these are all Sevapanthis. So this gives us a bit of insight into where does this idea of nimrata, where does this updesh of nimrata come from, and how were they instructed in it? So Bhai Hema Raam, he used to stay at the Dera of Bhai Ram in Mithiane, Mithatewana. So this was in Pakistan now, current day Pakistan, but in that west side of Punjab. And this now is direct translation from Sant Ji's Granth. So I'll just read it as it was written. So it's written in the present tense because Sant Ji's describing Bhai Hema. So it says he stays at the Dharamsala of Bhai Ram in Mithatewana, and presently is complete in upholding his Rehat. So for Sant Ji to write that, they hold Bhai Hema Raam in quite high regard. And they give a quote here as Sri Rajab Ji has done in a button. So Rajab was a poet, Punjabi poet, and he quotes here, Rajab rati rahat di moh pa kahi na jaye, iha log khidmat kare, aage khusi khudaye, which translates to, oh Rajab, so Rajab's the name of the poet, I cannot speak of this love for Rehat. So we talked about Rehat at the beginning. This idea of staying within a righteous way of living, and living by it all time, every second, and imbibing it in every facet of your being. And then he goes on to say, Iha log khidmat kare, aage khusi khudaye. Here in this world performing seva, then in the next Khuda is pleased. So if you do seva here, then when you leave here, when you do chalana, then Khuda, which is the Islamic term for Vaheguru, will be pleased with you. So they've given this description of Bhai Hema, that this was how he was living. This was the discipline by which he was living. So Sant Ji continues, this was his spiritual state. The world would give him great respect, and recognizing, so they're talking about Bhai Hema here, recognizing that the respect of the world brings one pain. He reflected on this in his mind. So just as Bhai Jeevan Pal Singh Ji was saying, that Bhai Hema had this reflection here that actually the more people start to, do my usta, to give me praise, build me up, look how virtuous he is, look, you start to get this, people start to chuck you out a little bit. That's as much as people do that, that's as much pain as you're going to get. Actually, this is a source of dukh for me. This is the reflection. And he thinks to himself in his mind, I hope this isn't the cause of suffering at the end of my life. There was this much vichar. We were talking about those Devi Sampada. There was this much insight. If I hope this doesn't at the end come back and bite me, that I have some kinka of hankar in me and I don't get free of this mortal frame. They say reverence from the people is equal to fire which burns down the forest of Japatap, Naam Simran. So they're using quite visual imagery. If your Naam Simran is like a forest, that this reverence that people give you will burn that forest because it starts to sow the seeds of hankar in you. And then they carry on to say the joys of life become the sorrows. Having worldly wealth is actually the greatest poverty. So deep reflections that Bhai Hema has. Friends and spouses are all bound to perish. I shall ask a complete being who has risen above Sato, Rajo, Tamo to remove this doubt. So this is Bhai Hema reflecting in his mind that I am going to go and find a Satpurush, a Mahapurush who has risen above the three gun, Rajo, Tamo, Sato, so the three guns that bind us to material plane and to karma. I need to find somebody who's been able to rise above those, who's been able to reach that Jalta pad that we talk about, and who can answer this question for me. So he continued to reflect on these thoughts, and it occurred to him to go to the feet of Sri Bhai Singh Ji, so the two sons before Baba Shaam Singh. With these thoughts in mind, he arrived at the Dharamsala at Kot Isa. So this is where Bhai Singh Ji used to stay, and again, this was over in West Punjab. Paying respects to Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji and all the Sants there, he arrives outside the door of Sant Bhai Singh Ji, and with his hands together, he pays his respects. But when he arrived there, he didn't go inside. He stayed outside, and he didn't want to sort of interrupt the discussion that was going on already. So when he arrived there was an individual called Sant Ram there, who was already having a discussion with Sri Bhai Singh Ji. And so again, there's another reflection here that Baba Shaam Singh Ji writes, that if two people are already talking and a third enters the conversation without invitation, according to the Shastra, that person is a fool and worthy of admonishment and punishment. So I just found that an interesting comment that Baba Shaam Singh Ji had, that, Bhai Hema actually reflected this, that if somebody else is already talking, I shouldn't go in there and interrupt it. It's a good instruction in patience, that we should be careful with our words. We should be careful with the placement of our words and the timing of our words. These words are actually very precious, and what we say with them, we have to account for them. So when we use them, we should use them knowingly and with some wisdom, because then they always say you can't take back what you say. So this is an instruction here. Pratan Shastra, the old sort of scriptures of wisdom that people would listen to, would have this admonishment, and they give Santji writes this pankti, that as Guruji has said, Anita Dasa nahe pave jiyo, that essentially they're just saying that one who follows a karam or a tradition that isn't worthy of being done, it's not pleasing to the servants of the Satguru. So jada anitaya, that which shouldn't be done, those traditions that which shouldn't be followed, is displeasing to those Santjan, those Gunijan, who do follow the right ways and customs. So if you're going to seek the wisdom of a Sant, you know how when we go, I'm reminded of our India trip when we went to see Rakabe Wale Sant. If you go with the right intentions and the right mannerisms, you might get something. If you go there with hangtha, or you don't, show the right way of behaving, you probably will leave with either nothing or actually get told off, which is probably worse. So seeing this, so obviously Sri Bhai Singh Ji is a very Uchkoti Mahapurush, so they're aware of what's going on, and they're very pleased by this behavior from Bhai Hema. And Sri Bhai Singh Ji says, come in, Bhai Hema Raam, ask that which you wish to ask. Don't have any doubts on anything. So basically don't quibble on anything. Ask what it is that you've come to ask for. So from their words, we can see that Sri Bhai Singh Ji had this antarjamta, this ability to know people's inner feeling, because he had read what Bhai Hema had actually come to ask. This obviously, Bhai Hema was overjoyed, because when you go with an intention and for it to be sort of fulfilled will obviously make things, you'd make you happy. So entering inside, he bowed his forehead to Sri Bhai Singh Ji and he offered prasad. So this is that tradition that when you go and see someone, it's almost, I wouldn't think of it as transactional, but if you're going to go and take something from someone, you should also offer something in return. So we don't often see it that way. When we go and see even the Gurdwara Granthis, we ask them to do part for us. We're taking something from them. They're providing something for us. So when you take something from someone, so in Western tradition, you just say thank you, right? Sometimes in Punjab, we don't even really say that. Culturally, we don't. But you give something. So you're recognizing that somebody has given you something, or satkar vajo, out of respect, you then give something first as well, because you're going to take something. If you just take it, then that's a bit of it's almost an egotistical action, even if you didn't perceive it that way. So he offers the prasad and he says, "O Garib Nawaz, uplifter of the poor, I'm frightened that the honor given to me by the world is so great. What should I do? I should do exactly what you say, but just tell me, how do I mitigate this problem?" The Sri Bhai Singh Ji says, "Oh, hey, Sant Jano, the solution for this is to not think of anything as yours." Gurbani Pankti comes to mind, "Main nahi Prabh, sab kuch tera." That I'm nothing, hey Prabhu, Vaheguru, everything is yours. So it's a paraphrase of this, okay, that there's nothing that is yours. If you do think of something as yours, then you'll suffer greatly. Consider this body and all worldly things as the very grip of death. So these are it's very much Gurmukh philosophy, you know? If you get entangled in thinking, "Eh mera karya, eh meri gaddiya, this is all my stuff," then you're very much putting yourself in more maya di jal, which eventually will lead you to, to suffer. You should remain indifferent whether you receive respect or disrespect. So this is that samdrishti, being able to sort of like see everybody as equal, but take it as well. Ostataninda do tyaga. So you forsake slander, you forsake praise, and you're not affected by either or. Earning the fruits of reciting the Naam of Sri Vaheguru, remain level-headed. This idea of just staying on a equipoise, on a balance where your life is running in a straight line. You don't get perturbed up and down by anything. It's this idea. First, you should think about respect, the respect shown of the people of this world. The respect shown by the people of this world or the Dev of the next world should be considered as the praises or virtues of Vaheguru. So this is an important instruction. So Bhai Hema obviously has come from an Indic Hindu background. They're saying that if people are showing you respect, or even the respect they're showing to other figures like Dev, we should actually perceive that as the respect of Vaheguru. And this comes back to the many points that you've raised in previous podcasts that Bhai Hema Singh has raised, that when we praise Sant Sadhu Jan, what we're actually doing is praising Vaheguru, because those Sants have met with Vaheguru, they've taken instruction from the Satguru, who's Vaheguru's form on earth, and become one with them. So if we're praising them because of the virtues and the jivani that they have achieved through Vaheguru. So it's our own fallacy, it's our own mistake that we start praising people, and we think we're praising an individual. The Sants don't perceive themselves as individuals. Asli Sant hunde, they've removed this sense of self, removed this self of I, and they don't perceive themselves as anything more than that Jyotsrup. So it's very subtle distinction, but this is the marg that we're talking about. So then they're saying, first you should have love for reciting Naam, then righteousness, dharam, then tiraj, patience, then vichar, contemplation, then santokh, contentment, then vivek, gyan, vairag, controlling the senses, dam, and the mind, sam, forgiveness, kima, and keeping the mind in check. So it's those Davi Sampada being reiterated again. Recite the Naam, give in charity, keep hygiene, sort of bathing, speak sweetly and without deception, so speaking truthfully. Remain humble, serve the Sants, and perform seva with great love by sweeping the Asthaan. So he's been given all these different sadhana, these different solutions and methods in which to mitigate this sense of self, this sense of I, perceiving things as mine. And then they say, perform katha on the virtues of Vaheguru and sing compositions of Kirtan in Rag. Listen to these with love sitting in the congregation of Sants, and recognize that the root, the mool of everything is Naam Simran. Hence, worship and seva are the most auspicious virtues. As Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, or the Guru has said, कि निर्गुण राम गुण है वस सोए. So jira Ram hai, jiro Vaheguru who is nirgun, who is without physical attribute, guna hai vas hoye. So they come within the control of those who are virtuous. So jira vas hunda means to be within the sort of control, within the power of. So it comes back to that idea of that tu bhagtan ka bas bhagtan tan tera, that Vaheguru isn't bound by anyone, isn't duty bound to anyone other than the bhagats. That where the bhagats have need, where the bhagats please Vaheguru, then Vaheguru does their bidding. Jidda we see with the Sakhi of Harnakush and Prahlad, we get taught this idea. So what Baba Shaam Singh Ji is reiterating here is that jo Vaheguru hai na, they are bound by the virtuous. And actually, what's being reiterated here is Vinaguna Kite Bhagat na hoye. So Maharaj Ji says in Japji Sahib that without gun, without virtue, it doesn't happen. So you've got to imbibe these virtuous qualities. There's no point being a selfish person, rude, lying, cheating, being angry, and then trying to do bhajan on top of that. It's not going to work. You have to create a very clean panda hacha hoye. Then you have to clean the panda properly, and then you'll get somewhere. So then the discourse continues, and Bhai Sahai Singh Ji explains that ye jada nirgun Vaheguru, the nirankar swarup, that Vaheguru is beyond description, given in Jap Sahib, where it has no roop or rekh, becomes sargun form. So it takes on physical virtue. But that physical sargun Vaheguru is also bound by the sants. And so to have ultimate love for nirgun is to have love for the sargun. So what they're saying is, we talk about nirgun Vaheguru, but the route to nirgun is through sargun as well. And then when we perceive that this sargun is manifestation of nirgun, when we do seva of the sargun, so what they're saying is, ye jehde sare jeev jant, us people, humans, we are technically a physical manifestation of that form because we have Jyot Swarup within us. There is nothing in this physical universe that doesn't have that essence of Vaheguru in it. So if you perceive that essence and you serve it, eventually you'll break the shackles to the material plane and you'll find that non-physical, non-describable, beyond comprehension form of Vaheguru within yourself. And then they give an instruction of, and it's really nice, I know it's along the Sakhi, but I think it's important to stress that Bhai Sevaram, so this is one Sant below Bhai Uddin Shah, so we covered this in the previous podcast, but he gives a button in his works. He says, Je koi kise ki maan kareda, so maan prabh ka bal ki. If one shows respect to another, then that respect is due to the strength of Vaheguru. It's the power of Vaheguru. So it's that same idea being reiterated. If you give someone maan, then you should perceive it that maan is due to Vaheguru giving you that maan, essentially. Murkh man maan apni ko mane samjhe na baat asl ki. Jehda murkh banda, that fool, he thinks that the foolish mind thinks that respect is for himself. So jehde sant hunde hai, what's the difference between us and the sant? The sant perceives that if anyone gives any vidiyai to them, it's the vidiyai of Guruji, of Satguruji, of Nirankar Swarup. If it's us, if someone starts to praise us, oh, Vir Singh Ji done very good job here, we say, hey, meri vidiyai. And they don't say the foolish mind thinks the respect is for himself and does not understand the baat asal ki, the true God, the true matter, which is what was described before. Gun agun ki sakat jo pai, so sakat hai Ram atal ki. That the virtues or demerits that one has is by the influence of Vaheguru, who is permanent. So again, this comes back to the idea of hukum. Actually, we're all going in this hukum, but we're also bound by our karma. And so our merits and demerits, they're also given to us as well. So they're saying, karma ki maar apni jau mane, tis hoye sajaye asl ki. So this is a really important. They say, one who has pride that they've killed their own karam. So they're talking about, if you get to such a stage, right? You've done bhajan, you've done seva, you've done everything that Guruji instructs us to do. You've got to that point where you've basically leveled your bank account of karma and you've basically erased it. Yeah, you've balanced it, you're ready to go. If you start to take pride that you've done that, that person then gains into punishment. So the two panktis together are saying here, firstly, virtue, unvirtue, demerits, they're preordained to a certain extent. If you, by some good fortune, then manage to balance your account, then don't fall into pride thinking that you've done it. because actually this is all preordained by Vaheguru, it's Vaheguru's hukam. And so you will then actually earn the fruit of narak or whatever punishment that Dharmaraj gives you. So I just thought it's a very nice couple of couplets from Bhai Hema Raam that was given by Sahai Singh to Hema Raam. And then the other thing they say is never use the word I did this, or I will do that, or I am like this. They say, Bhai Sahai Singh Ji says, if you need to speak or to perform some task, then say Hema. So use third person or Das. So you see this in Baba Shaam Singh Ji's works, right? Wherever I've read in Bhagat Prem Prakash, or wherever you read a Sakhi and Sant Gatha, Baba Shaam Singh Ji never says I. They say Gulam. So they're using some other pejorative term for them. Or they say Das and Das, or they just say Shaam Singh. So this instruction you can clearly see filtered down not to only Bhai Hema, but also to Baba Shaam Singh Ji through Bhai Ram Singh Ji. So remove this dwelling of the word I from the heart, as per Gurbani, ha ha mama vichon khova duja mita eko hova. So take this ha ha mama out of yourself and remove this duality that there's I and you. This is what this duality is referring to, isn't it? That I'm a person and then there's you as a person, or there's you as Vaheguru. Then we're talking about duality, we're removing this sense of me and you into just you, tuhi, that we find in Baani, Hana. That we're just understanding that Vaheguru is everything, there is no me. So the Pankti explains that. So hearing these words, Bhai Hema Ji fell to the floor and he placed his forehead at the charan of Bhai Sahai Singh Ji, saying, Hey Swami Ji, you are very great and this doubt in my mind has been removed. Just as darkness gets dispelled as the sun rises, and ignorance and its relatives have been destroyed, O Master, and so you are the very form of Vaheguru, who has taken birth for the good of people. My salutations to you. So you can see Bhai Hema, he has received such gyan, such understanding, such reflection on how to live his life, that he's sort of beholden now. He's fallen at the charan of the Santajan. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji writes here that until Bhai Hema lived, so up until his very last breath, he never said, I have done this, or I am this, or this is mine. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji says he easily crossed this ocean of ego and sin, crossing to the other side. Okay, man is a great snake which eats up everything, as Sri Kabir Ji says. Just moving on from that, they go on to sort of describe about how to be a tyagi. So they say one who forsakes wealth and desire is a ikachant tyagi. So one who has detached themselves from the world just a little bit. One who forsakes honor is a dirag tyagi. So one who has sort of deeply detached themselves. But Baba Shaam Singh Ji says, what big deal is it to forsake honor? They're actually saying in essence, even forsaking honor isn't a big deal. One who does not have even a tiny bit of hankar on this body is a param tyagi, supremely detached, even amongst those dirag tyagi. So they're saying there's three levels here. The param tyagi are the most supreme tyagi. They even leap some bounds beyond the dirag tyagi because they don't even have even a tinka, they don't have even a tiny morsel of hankar. And so by this grace, Bhai Hema was able to sort of rise above this idea of pride. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji says, Sant Shaam Singh Ji heard this story, Das, many times from the mouth of Bhai Hema Raam Ji, and this is why I've written it. So you can see Baba Shaam Singh Ji met Bhai Hema many times, and this Sakhi would have rubbed off on them because it was the teachings of their predecessors Sant, and it just gives that true instruction about what they would have received from Sants on humility.
Thank you for sharing that story and showing the importance of the Sangha that Baba Shaam Singh Ji kept to give him that nimrta, as we discussed before we went to this vichar. And just another thing that definitely comes up a lot when it comes to Mahapurush is that a lot of the Sangat were matha take to them, they were bowed to them. And we've seen in the life of Baba Tara Singh Ji as well, for example. So what was it like? Did Baba Shaam Singh Ji allow people to matha take to them, or was it stuff not allowed?
Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Jeevani, which there's a very nice Sakhi, is one of my favourite Sakhis. So Baba Shaam Singh Ji di jo mehma si sare paase phail gayi. Everywhere, jithe vi Gursikh Sangta si, everyone knew who Baba Shaam Singh was. If you look at their lifespan, we already talked about, they lived from the time of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. They were born in the Sikh Raj. So Inna Lamma Sama, they did Seva. They were known in the city of Amritsar Sahib. From all over India, Gursikh Sangata would come to have darshan of Baba Shaam Singh Ji. And ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਭਾਵਨਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ that we want to touch Baba Ji's charan, we want to do matha tek to Baba Ji. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji, being such a Sant of such a high avastha, such a Gurmukh, but they would never let anyone touch their charan, right? And there's a sakhi or a story that the writer of Sant Gatha, Bhai Prem Singh Ji, who's written the second volume. So the first volume is written by Bhai Vir Singh Ji, the second volume is written by Bhai Prem Singh Ji. Bhai Prem Singh Ji spent all their life with Baba Shaam Singh Ji. Bhai Prem Singh Ji writes that this is an eyewitness story I'm telling you, that one day in the evening, along with other Gursikhs, Bhai Prem Singh Ji went with Baba Shaam Singh Ji to do darshan of Sri Darbar Sahib. And Bhai Prem Singh Ji at that time was 18 years old, and with them was another Gursikh Sevadar who was 16 years old. And as when we go to do darshan of Sri Darbar Sahib, when we get to the Darshni Deori, you'll see there's like a raised platform, you could say, at the bottom of the door, right? So it's not like the doors we have here, where it's just flat. It's a bit raised, no? And Guru Sikhs usually do matha tek there, or they will touch that raised platform and place their hand on their forehead. You know? The reason for that is that, in a very short summary, is that when Harnakash was destroyed by Narsingh, so Vaheguru took this avatar as Narsingh, Harnakash dust har marya prahlad taraya. So when Maharaj comes as the avatar, when Akalpur comes as the avatar, one of the conditions that Harnakash had put when he gained all his powers or the boons was that he cannot be killed inside or outside. That was one of the conditions he put. And that's why he had many conditions. I can't be killed in the morning or the evening. I can't be killed by a human or animal. I can't be killed by a shastar. All these different things, right? And Maharaj took such a form of Narsingh where they were half human, half animal, right? When did Maharaj kill or destroy the Dusht Harnakash? Was at Sandhya. So it wasn't morning and it wasn't evening, you know? So Sandhya means the meeting of two times. So sunset, that's why we read that Pauri. In the morning, sunrise, you'll hear Har Jug Jug Bhagt Paya. And in the evening, you'll hear Har Jug Jug Bhagt Paya. And in the Maryada of Darbar Sahib, it's at sunset and sunrise. So that's signifying that. And the same thing that Jirid Dahleej Hundaya, that raised platform of the doorway of a Gurdwara Sahib, you'll always see in India, all the Puratana Asthans, they're raised, right? That's representing the Asthaan where Akal Purukh sat. So you'll see sometimes people put their foot on it. And there'll always be some sevadar or someone there and they'll tell you off. Now, if you don't know, if you put your foot on it, you always, you skip over it, you don't put your foot on it. You know, because that's Satkar of the Asthaan where Akal Purukh sat as Narsingh Roop. You know? So Baba Shaam Singh, when they approached Darshni Deori, they bowed down at that Dahleej. Now you'll even see, like, there's a famous video of Sant Janel Singh Ji coming outside of Darbar Sahib. When they go over that threshold, they stop, they turn around, they do matha tek there. Same way Baba Shaam Singh Ji did that. And obviously when you're going to do that, Baba Shaam Singh Ji never let their charan really be exposed to anyone. So no one could even touch their charan. But that's a point where their charan was exposed. So when they've bent down to do matha tek, the back of their charan, of their foot, is there, right? And that 16-year-old jada Singh Siga Sevadar, one man socha that I've never had the chance to touch Babaji charan. He never lets us touch their charan. Now I've got a chance. Babaji charan is right in front of me. What he did is very quickly, he touched Mahapurusha charan, right? He touched Babaji's feet. And then, pichle passe daud gaya. Right? He sprinted, right? Towards Dukbanjani Sahib. So we're talking about the Darshni Deori, and imagine Dukbanjani Sahib is quite far, right? Baba Shaam Singh Ji realized straight away. And the words they said is that Jis ladke ne gulam de pera nu hath lagaya, unu pakad ke le aao. That person who has touched the feet of this slave, bring him right now. And Bhai Prem Singh Ji writes that it took them half an hour to catch that Singh. So they're running around the Parikarma trying to catch this Singh, this 16-year-old Sevadar. Baba Shaam Singh Ji aap utthe jaake baith gaye Darshni Deori de samne. This photo here is probably maybe where Baba Shaam Singh Ji sat. This seems to be like their favorite spot or something. It's right in the alcove of Darshni Deori. So Baba Shaam Singh Ji utthe baith ke adha ghanta to baad us Singh nu pakad liya. They caught him, right? They're holding him. They brought him to Baba Shaam Singh Ji like a guilty person, you know. Baba Shaam Singh de charna te o dig pya te. Baba Shaam Singh Ji, a famous gal hai Baba Shaam Singh Ji bare. ਆਪ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੈਰੀ ਹੱਥ ਲਾਉਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਦਿੰਦੇ। That's a given in Itihaas, right? Another good Sikh Bhai Basheshwar Singh Ji, they say, and they give witness to this, they said that all my life I never saw Baba Ji let anyone touch their charan, but ਜੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, right, ਕਿ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਅਨਭੋਲ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਥ ਲਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਸੰਤ ਜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਜਦ ਤੱਕ ਮੱਥਾ ਨਾ ਟੇਕ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਚਰਨਾ ਛੋੜਦੇ। So if someone touched Baba Ji charan, until Baba Ji didn't matha take on their charan, they wouldn't let them go. So what did Baba Ji do? ਦੇਖੋ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੀ ਸੀ, ਇੱਥੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਵੀ ਆ 119 years old at this time. ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੋਚਾਂਗੇ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਉਹ the 16-year-old ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਨੇ ਗਲਤੀ, he might get told off, ਨਹੀਂ, ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦਾ ਕੰਪੇਅਰ ਟੂ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ, ਉਹਦੇ ਚਰਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੀਸ ਤੇ ਰੱਖਦੇ। ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਥ ਲਾਇਆ ਤੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਦੋਵੇਂ ਚਰਨ ਆਪਣੇ ਮੱਥੇ ਤੇ ਰੱਖ ਲਏ। Right, so they forced the charan of that child or that teenager on their matha. Na? When Baba Ji did this, then they said, "Ke fir tu gulam de pairan nu hath laega, that will you touch the feet of this slave again?" And that ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਸਿੰਘ ਸੀਗਾ, ਭੁਜੰਗੀ ਸੀਗਾ, ਉਹਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੰਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਥ ਲਾਇਆ ਏਦਾਂ ਕੰਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਥ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਮਾਫੀ ਮੰਗੀ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਮਿਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਮੈਂ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰੂੰਗਾ। Right, so ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, the year was recorded in 1922 ਸੰਮਤ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਸੋ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ is 119 ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ। ਇਹ ਨਿਮਰਤਾ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਕੀ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਨਿਮਰਤਾ ਬਾਰੇ, ਆਪੇ ਹੀ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਆ, ਸੋ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, ਭਾਈ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ writes that when they used to go to Bhai Vir Singh Ji's house, so we went there as well, we went to India recently, 60 Lawrence Road, amazing place. You can still feel the bhakti that happened there. Na? Bhai Prem Singh Ji often would go there and converse with Bhai Vir Singh Ji about Baba Shaam Singh Ji. Because Bhai Vir Singh Ji, as we mentioned before, they were very close to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. ਤੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ in a very ਛੋਟੀ ਉਮਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ they stayed for 2 years with ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ। So a lot of people don't know that, ਕਿ ਛੋਟੀ ਉਮਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਵੀ ਸੀਗੇ। ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਿਆ, so when they were blessed with ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਦੀ ਦਾਤ, ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ was in the ਪੰਜ ਪਿਆਰੇ। So ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ said to ਭਾਈ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਤ ਜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਸਨ, ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਸਨ, ਪਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਥ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਗਾਉਣ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸਨ। ਆਪਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਨਾਨਕ ਦਾਸ ਇਹ ਸੁਖ ਮਾਗਿਆ ਮੋਕੋ ਕਰ ਸੰਤਨ ਕੀ ਧੂਰੇ, ਆਪਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਧੂਰੀ ਮਿਲੇ। ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ in their whole lifetime never let me touch their charan. So that just shows the contrast of Baba Shaam Singh Ji. So ਇੱਕ ਭਾਈ ਆਇਆ ਰਾਮ ਜੀ ਸੀਗੇ, just quickly, I can't remember the full story, I haven't written it out either, I'll just give you a snippet and you can read it in Sant Gatha. Bhai Aya Ram Ji was a Pratan Sevapanthi Sant, and it just Baba Shaam Singh has written this in Bhagat Prem Prakash, ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੰਤ ਸੀਗੇ ਨਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ, ਬਹੁਤ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਿਆ। ਐਂਡ ਵਨ ਡੇ ਉਹ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਰਵਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ, they were listening to Gurbani, and again a lot of sangat used to come, as is expected. Sangat are going to do satkar of someone who does satkar of Guru Sahib, right? It comes in Gurbani that in reality Vaheguru creates that satkar for them, because Jan Nanak Satguru Puja Tin Har Puj Krava. Those who worship the Satguru, then the world worships them. So people will come to Bhai Aya Ram Ji, do their satkar. The ek din Bhai Aya Ram Ji was listening to Gurbani, and as we hear the bachans of Gurbani, in their mind they contemplated that I'm nothing near to these bachans. We listen to Gurbani all the time, but we never apply it to ourselves. They listen to it that Gurbani is talking about such a high avastha, I'm nowhere near that. All these people are coming and bowing to me. I'm a fraud. And in reality they weren't, right? They had that high jivan, but it shows their mindset, right? They had that nimrata inside them, that they didn't think I've made it, even though they had made it. And this is the sign that they made it, because in reality their mind was, again, it comes to that same pankti, man apne hai sab te neecha. Unhone socha main ta I don't even fit to the words of Gurbani. Unhone socha what's the point of keeping this sareer, ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨੂੰ ਫੋਲੋ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ, that all these people are coming and bowing to me and seeing me as the mahant of this Dera, or they give me respect. And just listen to a few pankti of Gurbani made such an effect on Bhai Aya Ram Ji's mind, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਸਰੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਰੱਖਣਾ, ਕਿ ਇੰਨੇ ਸਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ I haven't lived up to what Gurbani saying, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਸਰੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਲ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਹ ਕਰ ਦੇਣਾ, I'm going to go into the river, ਇਹਦਾ ਜਲ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਹ ਕਰ ਦੇਣਾ। ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਸ਼ ਸੀਗੇ, ਨਾਦ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੇ ਹੁਣ ਯਾਦ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸੇਵਾਪੰਥੀ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਸ਼ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਹਟਾਇਆ ਸੀ ਫਿਰ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰੋ। ਅਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਆਇਆ ਰਾਮ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਮਿਸ ਮੰਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਤੋਂ, ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰੂੰਗਾ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕੇ। ਮੈਂ ਫਿਰ ਕਥਾ ਵਾਰਤਾ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕਥਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, this do sermons every day, so I'm only going to stay at this dera if no one ever matha takes me again. ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, or never ever calls me a Sant or anything like that. So this is the avastha of these Mahapurush, you know. ਇੱਕ ਸਾਖੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ about the ਕੜਾਹ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦ, ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਾਈ ਸੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਸਾਖੀ, ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣਾ ਦਿਓ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ, so when Sant Ji was staying at that same ਵੱਡੀ ਧਰਮਸ਼ਾਲਾ in Katra Hari Singh, Sant Ji actually felt the need to prepare Kada Prasad and do an Ardaas. And so they made the Kada Prasad and came into the Hazuri of Gurdwara Sahib Ji and did this Ardaas ke, may no one call me a Sant, Baba, or use any words or praise for me. Ghulam is not worthy of these positions of respect. If a need arises, then the devotees should call me Shaam Singh. So they really felt that they didn't want this. You know, we do Kada Prasad Deg for Dasam, for houses and other things. I don't think the idea to do an Ardaas such that no one honors us or respects us or gives us titles, I don't think that would ever cross my mind or many people's minds to do. And they use that nizam that we have, that when you want something, Guru Sahib agge Kada Prasad, again, the offering that's made to Guru Sahib, and you do that Ardaas. And they actually made this specific Ardaas, so no one should call me Sant or Baba. And just in the same vein, ek vari Baba Shaam Singh Ji was going from Sri Kartarpur to Sri Amritsar, and there was another Singh, Bhai Sahaj Singh, who was one of Babaji's close Sevadars. And on the way, Bhai Sahaj Singh Ji sent another Singh back to Kartarpur saying, I've forgotten Sant Ji's sheet in the Dera, please go and get it. So that's all he said. He said to another Singh, go back and get Sant Ji's sheet, I've forgotten it there. And so that Singh went, but Sant Ji said to Bhai Sahaj Singh, do you not know my name? You should have said, go and get Shaam Singh's sheet. In the future, do not call me Sant again. So they were very strict on this. Kisi nu mainu Sant na kahe. If somebody did this, they would, you know, ikadam thok ke kar lende si jawab. They would do that. They would chastise them immediately and correct it. They didn't want these honorifics. The truth of it is clearly that everything they were doing is out of pyar, out of prem for Vaheguru Maharaj. They didn't have any need for the world's respect or the world's sort of ustat, as it were. They were just here to do their seva and to forge that union with Maharaj, and that's what they did. There's probably one more sakhi that I want to share quickly on the Nimrata aspect. So this has been a long segment, so you can see how much there is even on just one virtue.
I think just one quick thing I'll add in before we go on. If you just compare it to nowadays, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਹੁਣ stage secretary ਹੁੰਦੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, they call out the names of Kathavachiks or Kirtanis and so on. And imagine they say your name wrong, or they don't give you the title that you're bestowed, right? And usually you'll see the Kirtani will shout from the stage, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਾਮ ਆ, ਜਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਾ ਗਲਤ ਲਿਆ ਮੇਰਾ, ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੰਤ ਨਾ ਆਖੀਏ, or we don't call someone by Gyani or Bhai Sahib or something, we just say their name. Usually they get hurt by it. But look at Baba Shaam Singh, it's the total opposite. ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕੋਈ ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ, ਕੋਈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸੱਦੇ ਨਾ ਇੱਦਾਂ. It just shows ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨਾ difference ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ.
I think in their vichar as well, again, it's so easy to say, but the truth of it was that they felt Guru Granth Sahib everywhere, and in the face of Guru Granth Sahib and the Satguru, they just felt there is nobody else worthy of honorifics. I think we forget that. We sort of put Guru Sahib to one side. We come on the stages, and the stage secretary starts talking about Ati Satkar Yog, Sri Bhai Sahib, Bhai. It goes on forever, doesn't it?
I think ਉਹ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਗਲਤ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਕਰਨਾ, ਸਾਡੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ. Like it's our duty to do that as well. From our part it's our duty, but from their part it's their duty. ਕਿ ਉਹ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਹਟਣ ਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਡਿਊਟੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਕਰੀਏ, ਹੈ ਨਾ.
So then just one more sakhi. So when Babaji reached these great ages, towards the end of their life, their body was very weak. We know that even at the Kar Seva, as Babaji got towards the end, they would need to be carried everywhere. So their sarir obviously became very, very weak, as you would expect. And they needed support when they were sitting down. So when Sant Ji would sit in the dharamsal, there wasn't any back support. And we know what India's like, there's marble everywhere, quite hard surfaces. Even we find it hard now with our youthful bodies. And so one of the Sangatan there sort of did a benti and they said, hey Babaji, if you give permission, then we'll put a cushion against the wall. So, that the hardness is sort of a bit less, it's a bit softer for you to sit. And it doesn't really cause you too much of an issue. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji sort of responded that and they said, if you're going to sort of place a cushion against the wall, then place them across all the walls. In the Guru's Darbar, the place of each and every Sikh is equal. If one person is granted some sort of special treatment in the presence of the Guru, then he'll become Hankari. So this will be the cause of that person's downfall. So as per Babaji's words, the walls were then lined with cushions. So this Sakhi is interesting because Babaji just felt, you can see from their words, they never wanted something to happen for them that meant that they received special treatment over and above anybody else. Now, obviously, they had need of that cushion. So sometimes we all get a bit hung up on certain other things, but a person of that age would need that cushion. So they didn't say, no, don't give me the cushion. They said, if you're going to give me the cushion, then put it everywhere. Because it shouldn't be that I'm sitting there with the cushion and everyone else is sitting there without it. And remember, in some of this time period and slightly earlier, there were descendants of the Guru's families who used to sit on cushions in Guru Darbar underneath. So they would sit on slightly separate gaddiyan. It was a cause of a big issue, and the Singh Sabha Lair sort of addressed it a little bit, but it caused a bit of tension. So there's a bit of history behind it as well, about sitting on top of a cushion rather than sitting it behind your back. So they never wanted to be in that position. I'm above everybody else. My padavi is higher than everybody else's. So I'm in between the Guru and everyone else. So you can see from all these Sakhis that have been shared just now, Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Nimrata was across every aspect of their life.
And it's very clear they didn't like anybody calling them a Sant.
Yeah.
Right? And just moving on, quite similar as well when it comes to examples of Babaji and their detached nature from Maya. So any examples of that?
So there's loads of examples. Baba Shaam Singh Ji, we mentioned it before, Sevapanthis Mahapurush, because they were known that they have no attachment to Maya, then people would bring Maya to them. Because they knew that this Maya is going to go in the right place. They're not going to keep it for themselves, they're going to use it to do pala of others. So Baba Shaam Singh Ji ko Maya ta sangat bahut aake bheta kardi si, par Baba Shaam Singh Ji kadi rakhte nahi sige. Ek hath vich aunda si, dusre hath vich dende sige. There's various Sakhis. One Sakhi is about a Gursikh, Bhai Hema Raam Ji. So Bhai Hema Raam Ji comes to the Dera, and some Mata had basically offered her gane to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. Baba Shaam Singh nu peta karte seva vich hai na. Te ek Bhagat Narayan Singh Ji Bhagat, ਉਹ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਸੀਗੇ. They were known for selling gold or bartering with gold and so on. They were a trader, and Bhai Hema Raam Singh Ji was given that duty, Baba Shaam Singh Ji, that take this gold and exchange it for money, so we can use that money for seva. So Bhai Hema Raam Ji goes there, and he takes the gold, and when he comes back to Baba Shaam Singh Ji with the money, he goes, "Itho da tola 3 rattiyan vadda hunda hai, is karke vajan kuch ghat gaya hai." So someone who is a bit more mayatari, they're going to start thinking about the conversion rates and is it lower or is it better, or where I live is better. Start doing these maya waliya galla. Baba Shaam Singh Ji, the Baba Shaam Singh ne bachan kite, "Bhai chup kar ja." And the gulam ne ta kuda, ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੂੜਾ ਹੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਸੇਵਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਫਲਾ ਕਰ ਦੇਣਾ ਹੈ, ਬਹੁਤੇ ਹਿਸਾਬਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਨਾ. ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ say, don't give me loads of calculations about Maya, all these sort of ਗੱਲਾਂ. This is kuda, this is rubbish. This rubbish is now going to be used to do seva of the Sangat. I've got nothing to do with it. Don't be sitting here telling me about the conversion rates or the worth of this Maya and so on. A few more sakhiyan. Ataram di kamai. So someone may think that, oh, if someone's giving me money, even if it's from ataram, meaning it's been earned in an unrighteous way, ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਠੀਕ ਆ, because I'm going to use it for seva. Right? ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਇਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗੇ. Again, ਵੱਡੀ ਧਰਮਸ਼ਾਲਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਸੀਗੇ, and Baba Shaam Singh Ji at that time, their sharir was a bit more healthy, and they used to live in one of the higher rooms. So it was like you could say flats or apartments or something like that. Chote kamre sige. In one of them kamre, Baba Shaam Singh Ji uthe rehnde sige. And one day, paudiyaan hundiyan si to get up, and Babu Deva Singh Ji, Baba Shaam Singh Ji de ek sevadar sige. They were a sevadar Baba Shaam Singh Ji. Baba Shaam Singh Ji andar baithe a. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਪਤਾ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ? How did they know who's coming? Straight away, Baba Shaam Singh Ji suddenly gets up and they say to Babu Deva Singh Ji, go outside and there's a couple or a man coming upstairs, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕ ਦਿਓ. Tell them to go. They're not allowed to come in. Right? Baba Deva Singh Ji goes outside. What does he see? There's a man walking up with a portali, which is like a bundle. Right? He's walking up and he's going to offer it to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji de hukum siga ke he's not allowed to come upstairs. It's showing the antarjami nature of Mahapurushes, or their dib drishti. They know all these things, or they can see all these things. And Babu Deva Singh Ji stopped the Sikh, and he goes, "You do not have agya to come upstairs. Go downstairs." I've bought all these rupiye, I've bought all this money for Baba Shaam Singh Ji. I'm going to offer it to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. That they didn't even know was coming, and they're sitting in the room. Right? How did they? He thought that, sometimes we go to see Mahapurush and there's other sevadars who stop you and they don't let you come closer to the Mahapurush. They don't let you meet the Gurmukh. He thought it was one of these cases. And he goes, Baba Shaam Singh doesn't even know I'm coming. And why are you stopping me? He goes, okay, let me go and ask Baba Ji. Baba Ji ਕੋਲ ਗਏ ਹੀ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਸੀਗਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਚਨ ਹੋਣਾ, it must be for someone else. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜਾਣ ਦਿਓ. He goes, let me check with Baba Ji. He goes back to Baba Shaam Singh Ji, and Baba Shaam Singh Ji says that he's not allowed to come upstairs because ਇਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੈਸਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਇਹਦਾ ਪੈਸਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ. It's not even his earnings, right? ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਵਾਲਸ਼ਾਲ ਕਰਕੇ, meaning trickery, fraud, looting other people. He's collected that and he's come here to absolve his pap. Right? He thinks he's going to give this money to me and then my pap will go, right? And he goes, this money, we're not going to use this money. Tell him not to come. So when Babu Deva Singh Ji told this to that Sikh, he realized that Baba Ji the antarjamiya, they know everything. And that bachan has such an effect that he left all his fraudulent activities. Sara kuch chhad dita, jehda vi walshal karda siga, te Baba Ji de dera ke ਉਹਨੇ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕ ਲਿਆ, ਸਿੰਘ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ. ਸੋ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਆ. ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਸਟੋਰੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਆ. ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ about a Gursikh coming to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. ਜਿਵੇਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, we go to a Gursikh or Mahapurush, we want to offer them something of great quality. And a Gursikh came with a very thick woolen blanket, and you'll see in like you can see here, it's like almost like Baba Ji's wearing like a quilt sort of thing, right? And it was a Kashmiri blanket. Baba Ji vaste oh le aaya, and the worth of that was 100 rupee. In that time, that's a lot of money. Baba Ji asked that Gursikh, how much was this? How much was this blanket? They didn't just accept it, and they said 100 rupiye da si. Baba Ji kende ke ek gulam, this slave will use a blanket worth 100 rupiye. So expensive. Kende edda jehda hun premi si odi vi sharda ya, right? So they've got a sharda, or they have this devotion that we want to serve the Gursikhs of the Guru. And they said, Baba Ji, hun appa le aaya thwade vaste, we bought it for you, hun tusi kirpa karo. If you don't accept it, our sharda, our wish is not going to be fulfilled. We're going to be disappointed. Baba Ji, if you want to do my seva, then do this. Take this back to the shopkeeper and then buy 10 kambals, 10 rupiye each. So in that time, a very good kambal, a very good blanket. So remember, this is like a Kashmiri thick blanket, which is 100 rupiye, just one of them. And a very good quality blanket in that time, like a standard one, that was 10 rupiye. Very good quality. They can do 10 liya ke aa. So they return to the shopkeeper, they exchange it, then in replace of that, they get 10 kambals. And when they brought it to Baba Ji ne ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੰਬਲ ਸੀਗੇ ਨਾ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਗਰੀਬ ਸੀਗੇ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, those were homeless, those were sitting on the streets, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਵੰਡ ਦਿੱਤਾ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਖੁਸ਼ ਆ. ਠੀਕ ਹੈ? ਦੂਸਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਭਲਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਸ਼ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬ੍ਰਹਮ ਗਿਆਨੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਇਹ ਪਰਉਪਕਾਰ ਨਿਤ ਚਿਤ ਵਿਦੇ ਨਾਹੀ ਕਛ ਪੋਚ. Their whole life is about parupakar.
Same in that same Vaddi Dharamsal, and this Sakhi concerns Mahant Kalyan Das again, the one we mentioned previously. When Babaji was living there, in the Vaddi Dharamsal of Mahant Sobaram, the Mahant at that time, so Kalyan Das, would send 1 rupee and some flour for the Guru's langar. And Bhai Kishan Chand came from Multan and lodged a petition that the Mahanti of the Dera was rightfully his. So there was a contest for the head of the Dera. So somebody was challenging Kalyan Das for the Dera, and Mahant Kalyan Das did a benti to Baba Shaam Singh Ji saying, "Can you do an Ardaas for me?" And Sant Ji gave a bachan basically saying, "Hey Bhai, why do you want to do an Ardaas for false Maya?" But the Mahant kept asking daily, and so Sant Ji gave in, and they went to Sri Harmandir Sahib and stood in front of the Darshni Diodi and did Ardaas. And they said, "Hey Sodi Patshah, this Mahant offers an Ardaas of 1 rupee and atta for the langar daily. He is asking for the false Maya of the Mahanti to be the head of the Dera. Whatever happens next, you are the master who decides." So the wording is very interesting on this, because so this Mahant is pestering Babaji to do the Ardaas, and Babaji does the Ardaas but doesn't word it in the way that please give the Mahanti to him. They've just stated what's going on, that the Mahant wants to be Mahant of this Dera, but Baki jo aapji da hukum wahi hona. That's it. So they leave it in Guruji's hands. They can't understand this Ichha from the Mahant. Because in Baba Shaam Singh Ji's mind, if Kalyan Das is going to lose the Mahanti, so what? It's hukum, to be a true Mahant, you have to be a person who doesn't desire it. Otherwise, you're not. Otherwise, you have Ichha for it. And then that day, then when Bhai Kishan Chand, the guy who was contesting, he received a message from Multan to return immediately. So the guy who was contesting the Mahanti, he basically disappeared. He went back. The challenge got quashed, and so he left and went back there. And so the Mahanti remained with Mahant Kalyan Das. So he remained Mahant of the Dera. But from that day, Sant Ji stopped taking any peta for the langar from him. So in Sant Ji's mind now, this Mahant, who is the same Mahant who wanted to offer this Dera to Baba Shaam Singh Ji when he was about to die, so that was a Sakhi we told earlier, Babaji stopped taking money from him because Babaji realized that he, for whatever reason, had fallen prey to Maya. He wanted to stay a Mahant. He obviously enjoyed the status. And Babaji perceived this as basically being attached to false Maya. And so they didn't feel that his offering, so similar to the last Sakhi, that his offering was actually from Dharam di Kamai. That the money the offering he was going to receive for the langar would be tainted. There's one more Sakhi where Sant Baba Shaam Singh Ji was doing Katha in this Vadi Dharamsal. And they were doing Katha of the Pankti Brahm Lok or Rudra Lok, Ay Indra Lok Te Tai. When they were reciting this Shabad, suddenly a Gristi came in, a householder, and he came in with his wife who was wearing very nice, very rich kapade, clothing, and she was wearing a lot of jewelry as well. So they're obviously very rich. And they started to go up the stairs to a room with a plate of prasad. So they had offering and they had some money as well. So Sant Ji was observing this. And they were going to see another Sant in the Dera. So they weren't coming to see Baba Shaam Singh, they were coming to see somebody else who was standing upstairs. And seeing this, so Babaji is doing kathas, they say to the Sangat, "Hey Bhai, let us see if this Sant is victorious or if Maya is victorious." So they're going to see what happens here now. So the meaning of this really is that Sant was coming down the stairs, the one from the upstairs, to come into the Sangat. And he was going to come to that Katha Diwan. And they wanted to see whether he would go back into his room and receive the offering or whether he would come down the stairs. So if he goes back into his room, then we can perceive that as Maya's one, because he wants the peta and so he's forsaken the Diwan. If he comes down the stairs, then he's forsaken Maya and not given it any value and come down the stairs because it's time for Katha. So the Sant actually, he passes the test. He comes down the stairs and he says to the Gristi, "Hey Bhai, hun Katha da samaya. Satguru Ji's bachan sab te utam har ki katha naam sunat dard dukh latha." So he gives that pankti from Sukhmani Sahib, and he took the prasad and then he said, "Give this to Guru Granth Sahib Ji and listen to the katha." So this Sant passed. So it's an interesting one because Baba Shaam Singh Ji is watching these tests as well, and as per their own understanding, what happens now? And there's another small Sakhi as well. Basically, a devotee or an associate of one of the Maharaji of Punjab at this time, so one of the smaller states. I can't remember which one, but it might have been Nabha, one of the states that still had one at the time. and basically came with beta saying the Maharaja would like to do, your sangat and have darshan of you, and they came with quite a lot of rupees and things. And Babaji basically says back to them, basically, get out. You would take me from the true king, Guru Granth Sahib Ji's Hazuri, to a false king. So you can see that Baba Shaam Singh Ji in these Sakhis has no real, they don't attach any importance to Maya. The only time they use Maya is for the sake of the Karajan or the affairs of the Guru Kar. But otherwise they have no use of it. And actually they keep a detached state from it and only take Maya from places where it's been earned appropriately, and then they use it in appropriate places. So there's a lot of vichar about their actions before they do something.
ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸਾਖੀ ਵੀ ਹੈ this can go on forever,
Yeah.
right? ਦੇ ਸੰਤ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕੋਲ ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਅਮੀਰ ਲੋਕ ਸੀ, so those people really rich, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਪੈਸਾ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਗੱਫੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਦਈਏ, ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਚਲਾਓਗੇ। ਹੁਣ ਸੇਵਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆਊਗੀ ਨਾ, so sometimes ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ would then deposit that money with certain like ਦੁਕਾਨਦਾਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, like ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਬੈਂਕ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਬੈਂਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸਮੈਨ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਯੂ ਡਿਪੋਜ਼ਿਟ ਮਨੀ ਵਿਦ ਦੈਮ, they would keep it safe। ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ very randomly ਭਾਈ ਕਲਿਆਣ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ, Baba Ji just turns around to him and says, go to this, Baba Ji just turns around and says, go to this dukaan, go to this dukandar, and he's holding money and bring 600 rupee, which is a lot of money. So they go, they get the money and they put it in front of Baba Ji. And Baba Ji's on their Asthaan at this time, they're on their manja, and under the gadilla, so gadilla is like the cushion which they're sitting on, they just put that money underneath. Then Baba Ji goes out to do darshan of Darbar Sahib, and Bhai Kalyan Singh, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸੱਦ ਲਿਆ। So that room is empty now. And after some time, they come back. And when they look underneath the gadilla, what's happened? The money's disappeared. Yeah, the money's gone. And Baba Ji says, ਕਿੱਥੇ ਚਲ ਗਿਆ 600 ਰੁਪਏ, the 600 ਰੁਪਏ, Bhai Kalyan Singh Ji had to think, and he's saying, at that time, there's only one person in the Gurdwara. ਇੱਕ ਬੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ। ਤੇ ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ, Baba Shaam Singh Ji smiled. ਉਹ ਲੋੜਵੰਦ ਸੀਗਾ, ਠੀਕ ਆ, ਉਹਦਾ ਐਸਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਸੀ ਕਿ he only had 10 days left for his daughter's wedding, ਠੀਕ ਆ। And every single day he would come to this Dera, he wouldn't speak because he felt like to speak would go outside of his honor, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਇੱਕ ਬੇਇੱਜ਼ਤੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੀ ਆ that he's asking for money, He would just come to the Dera and he would stand in front of Guru Granth Sahib Ji for ages doing Ardaas ਕਿ Maharaj, how am I supposed to do my daughter's wedding? 10 days are left, I have no money, I'm ਗਰੀਬ। ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਦੇਖੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਫਿਰ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਅੰਦਰ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਵਰਤਾ, via the Gursikhs, Maharaj fulfills the wishes, ਤੇ Baba Ji out of nowhere, they didn't just ask for that money for no reason, they asked it for this Gursikh. And they said to Bhai Kalyan Singh that don't think that money which I asked was for some other carriage. ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਦਿਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਅੱਗੇ, ਮੰਗ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਮੇਰੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰੋ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਚੁੱਪ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ। He was too scared to say anything. And he goes ਹੁਣ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰੁਪਏ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, he's saying to Bhai Kalyan Singh ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਹਿ ਜਾ, because he wanted to make a roll about it. He wanted to catch him and let's punish him and so on. Baba Ji says, ਮੈਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਮੰਗਾਇਆ, I brought that money for him, and ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਛੇੜਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣੀ, you're not allowed to say this to anyone, So Baba Shaam Singh Ji did these bachan at that time. Maya ਦਾ ਮਾਲਕ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ, no one owns Maya. ਮਾਇਆ ਵਰਤੇ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੈ ਹੈ, ਗੁਲਾਮ ਦੀ ਇਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਗੁਲਾਮ ਦੀ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਚੋਰ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਸਾਧ ਹੈ, ਸਰਬ ਜੀਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕੋ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਦੀ ਜੋਤ ਦਿਸਦੀ ਹੈ। Baba Shaam Singh Ji says, I see no sadhu, I see no chor, I see no thief, I see no saint. All I can see is ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ। So ਕੀ ਪਕੜ ਸੀ ਮਾਇਆ ਤੇ? No ਪਕੜ, no interest. So much Maya is coming, but they had no interest over it. They had no attachment to it. But the Maya was used for the purposes that it was there for the seva of the Sangat.
So what I can see in these Sakhis that you just shared is Babaji's Daya as well, the compassion. So we've spoken about how they renounced Maya, but then they still had compassion upon the poor, and they'd put that Maya towards them. Is there any more stories of Babaji's Daya towards the poor, even towards animals as well?
So, Sab mein hai jot, jot hai soye. We say the words, but Mahapurush put into action. and not just in human beings, fellow human beings, even the animals, right? ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਜੋਤ ਆ. There's one sakhi about a bull after doing Kirtan at Darbar Sahib. Baba Shaam Singh Ji is on their way back to the Dera, and they pass by the Shabil of Bhai Swaya Singh Ji. And hopefully in another podcast we'll cover more about Bhai Swaya Singh Ji, very close to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. The Shabil Seva we see in Darbar Sahib now. So when we go to Darbar Sahib, on, I think all four corners actually, there's water being given there. That was started by Bhai Swaya Singh Ji, who was another Sevapanthis Mahapurush. And when they're passing that Shabil, they see that we see in India all the time. We go to Punjab, you'll see like many animals are just outcasted. You know, when they have no use for that animal, they'll leave it on the streets. You know, and Iksan see like a bull, and othe paya siga and he is writhing in pain. So awaja kadda siga. It's obviously in a lot of pain. And Apata will just walk past. Baba Shaam Singh Ji, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਜੋਤ ਦਿਸੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji ਇੰਨੇ ਦਿਆਲੂ ਸੀ ਨਾ, they couldn't see any ਜੀਵ ਜੰਤ in any sort of state of pain. ਜਦੋਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ that this bull is in a lot of pain, by Sant Singh Ji, who was their sevadar, they said to him, go to Dukh Panjani Sahib and bring jal. While he goes to Dukh Panjani Sahib to bring the jal, Baba Shaam Singh Ji sits next to that bull and he starts reading Sri Japji Sahib. Sara Sri Japji Sahib Sampuran Path karke, once the jal came, thoda ja jal ਉਹਦੇ ਮੁਖ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਇਆ, and the rest all ਸਰੀਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ they did chitte, you know, they sprinkled it over the body. And as Baba Ji is doing that, the breathing of that bull went very slow. It was crying out in pain. The breathing went very slow and ਉਹ ਸ਼ਾਂਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ. ਸ਼ਾਂਤ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਸਰੀਰ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤਾ. ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਪਰਉਪਕਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ, ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ? ਹੁਣ we would just leave it there, even if we did that. ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਡੇਰੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਨਾ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਾ ਕੇ ਸਹਿਜ ਪਾਠ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ for the bull. ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਸਾਰਾ ਪਾਠ ਕੀਤਾ, ਫਿਰ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ. ਇਹ ਜੀਵ ਜਨਤਾ ਤੇ ਦਇਆ ਸੀ. In that time, during that time, there's no gaddiyan, so they used to travel by horses. There's a few sakhiyan with horses as well.
So this daya, compassion to all creatures, you can see throughout Babaji's life. So Ikawari Babaji was going from Sri Gurdwara Sahib, and they were coming back to Amritsar, and they'd stopped at Sri Tarn Sahib, and here they got on a sort of horse-drawn carriage. So some of the sort of old type. You still see these in Punjab.
Tanga kande,
yeah. And they were now coming towards Sri Amritsar Sahib. I think it was Gurmukh Singh's Tanga actually, but the driver who was sort of steering the horse was using, whipping the horse with a lot of force, hurting the animal quite a lot. And seeing this, Babaji was very affected by it, and they got ready to get off the carriage, saying, "I'm not going to travel with you any further." Because of this, they chastised the driver for hitting the horse with such force. And then the Jade Shraddhalu see that the Sangat, they changed the driver. And Babaji got back on the horse and said, do not, they said to the new driver, don't hit this horse anymore. The horse will drive and itself, just show it compassion, show it pyar. And in the journey, whenever they would stop, Babaji would give the horse food and drink as well as everybody else. And they'd provide food and water for everyone. And I think it's recorded as well that Babaji would often take that same danga and that same horse, and that horse would always just go itself. It didn't need any steering. It didn't need any sort of force with the whip to go forward in any direction. Or apne marji naal it would go the right way. So I think it just goes to show jehde Brahm Gyani hunde a, they have a connection. They see that sab mein jyot jyot hai soe. They see that jyot in everyone and they can connect with it as well. And the compassion then binds us. And so there's many sakhis like this.
Ek sakhi, coming back to their compassion on other, so we talked about animals, or other humans. Baba Shaam Singh Ji, you have the Shoti Parikrama and you have Vaddi Parikrama when you get to Darbar Sahib. Shoti Parikrama is just around the actual Asthaan of Darbar Sahib. Then you have Vaddi Parikrama around the Sarovar. The Vaddi Parikrama kar rahe sige, and in that time, many sadhus used to be sitting around Darbar Sahib. Ek Bihangam sadhu si, he was Surma siga, so he was blind. The Baba Shaam Singh Ji ne takkya on Brahm Gyani ki ga to Brahm Gyani jana. Well, Brahmgyani see, they knew the avastha of this Mahapurush and they just bowed down to that Mahapurush. They did matha take to that Mahapurush. And they had Kada Prasad with them and they offered it to that Mahapurush as well. And then they saw that this sadhu, this Vihangam, their whole kurta, it was all ripped. Sare passe, it was all ripped. Baba Shaam Singh Ji, jo us samay fatui pai si, jive apa chaggi paunde, they're just wearing a chaggi at that time. They took off their own chaggi, their kurti, and they placed it on that sadhu. And their own body, which is now they were only in a kashara, they just wrapped it with a chadar. They, even in Sant Gyani Guru Arjan Singh Ji's podcast, we heard a few sakhis like that. Baba Sant Guru Arjan Singh just took their chola off and gave it to another Singh because their chola patya hoya si. The ek Baba Shaam Singh Ji used to recite this, the words of this kavi, कि मांगो नहीं मर जाओ अपने जिए के वास्ते पर उपकार के कारणे मुझ न आवत लाज. They used to recite this all the time. What does it mean? कि मांगो नहीं मर जाओ. I'll die but I'll never beg from anyone. अपने जी के वास्ते, for myself. For myself, I'll never beg for anyone. I'd rather die rather than beg for myself. But parupakar ke karne, for the sake of others, mujh na avat laaj, mainu koi sharm nahi hai. Right? I'm not ashamed at all to ask for others. Right? Parupakar ke karne. Or for the sake of others, I'm not ashamed of doing anything. One will be ashamed, isn't it, to take off our chola and give it to someone who needs it. Or take off our clothes for someone else. Or give something of our possessions to someone else. Anu ta appa socha ke meri cheez hai. Baba Shaam usi waqt laata, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੇਤਾ. ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸਾਖੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ about a halwai. The thing is, these sakhis, they're so interlinked. You can take it to nimarta, you can take it to compassion. Kinne cheeja? They're daya, there's samdrishti, how they saw everyone in one roop, no one higher, no one lower. So once they're coming back from Darbar Sahib, a lot of these sakhis are when they're coming back from Darbar Sahib. Just again, when we were talking about, we went to India, we're walking through these galiyan, just imagine like Baba Shaam Singh Ji walking down them. Kidda da sama hoga si. As we know, there's many halwais, many cooks and many shops to eat and so on. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji walks past this one halwai and the halwai is just lying there asleep. Yeah, he's asleep and he's got no knocker, he's got no one else serving him or any employees or anything. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji saw that because he's got no one, he must be really greeb. If anyone's earning a bit of money, they're going to hire some other people to work for them. And next to his hatti, next to his little garage, you could say, or shed, there was just a whole pit, basically, full of jute bartan. So all the bartan that people were eating from that shop, they chucked the bartan, the plates or the koliya into that pit. Without asking anyone or being asked, Baba Shaam Singh Ji goes there and they just start doing seva of all the jute bartan. Because they thought he's got no one else to help him, I'll help him. And when that halwai woke up, he saw everyone who Baba Shaam Singh was in Amritsar. That Baba Shaam Singh, the great Brahmgyani, sitting there, jute pande manjada of my customers. And usi waqt utھ ke na, he got really scared. He started doing maafi, Baba ji tusi ki karde ho? The Baba ji kehte कि Guru ke pyare Vaheguru bol. Bas. Aur kuch nahi kya, Vaheguru bol te to ruke. So kinne sakhiyan?
Yeah, there's one more. Recovery in the Parkarma, so it's all Darbar Sahib related. There was, so in the big Parkarma next to Shabil again, there was a very weak and ill person who was lying down and was clearly in a lot of visible pain. And Babaji then said to Bhai Sant Singh Bird, who was one of Babaji's sevaks, they said to him, can you sit down next to him and recite Sri Japji Sahib? And Babaji fed him Kada Prasad. So it's quite common, in India, even now, it's very busy. There's a lot of people. There are a lot of destitute people as well. It's easy to walk by. And people in India do as well. It's quite easy for us to ignore the common man's suffering. So Babaji didn't do that. They gave Kada Prasad and they've recited Baani. But then after some time, this person passed away. And Babaji then decided to start a search part of Guru Granth Sahib. And on completion, then did Ardaas for this man's well-being. So you just think to yourself, it wasn't enough to sit down and do Japji Sahib and give Kada Prasad that when he's passed away. A search part is not a small endeavor. We barely do it for ourselves. Babaji's done a search part for somebody they didn't know and Ardaas for their well-being. You must, to have that much pyar for someone you don't know, it speaks to a higher vasta than what most people stay at. Okay, a complete stranger, again, it's just start seeing that Nirankar Jyot everywhere. If you see that, if you see your Vaheguru in that person, then there's nothing that you wouldn't do. And so Babaji saw that in suffering and destitution, they always offered aid and help and whatever means they had at their hands. And there are many Sakis. I think there's even one more. Again, as Bhai Hema Singh was saying, they're all interlinked. Kavari Babaji was sitting down to have langar, and the langari, the cook, gave Babaji an extra portion of some very nice tasting food. It had come specially, and he had made it specially, but he hadn't made it for the whole Sangat. And Babaji felt, again, obviously, as we said before, that they never wanted to be differentiated. So, like in India, when you sit down and you get your thal and it's sat down in front of you, Babaji just pushed it to the side to the next person. So they pushed the thal onwards. So they never wanted to be singled out as someone special. They never wanted any special treatment, special food, special kapde. And if anybody did that, they would always push it onto somebody else, onto some Lordwan, somebody who needed it. It was a sign of somebody who's param tyagi and param dayalu.
Just like you were saying, when a lot of these topics, they interlink, just any examples of seva that Babaji do for humanity?
I think one of the biggest seva you can do is stopping people from vikar. And Baba Shaam Singh's story about chori to shidonde sige. As you know, a Dera of a Sevapanthi is a place where anyone can come and stay. Right? It was for the Sangat. And especially Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Dera, it was known, if you go to Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Dera, like we went now, it was empty. In the time of Baba Shaam Singh, it was like it's like a center of the city, right? It was like a hustling, bustling place. Anyone who went there, they would get lassi, they'd get prashada, they'd get rajaiya, they'll get new clothes, they'll get a place to stay, everything. Imagine you're provided with everything for free. And due to that, many travelers would stay there as well. A traveler comes there one day, it's the winter time. Both of the seva hundiya is given rajaiya, giving hot milk, everything, right? Badi seva hui. But how does he repay it? In the morning when he's about to leave, he goes into the Darbar of Guru Granth Sahib Ji and he sees there a silver Chaur Sahib, Chandi da. Gareeb siga, he was poor. What does he do? He picks up the Chaur Sahib, hides it under his shawl and walks out. Sevadara nu pata lag gaya that someone stole Maharaj's Chaur Sahib, made out of silver. They go after this guy. Eventually, they catch him in the Parkarma. They catch him and they seat him there. They come back to Baba Shaam Singh Ji and say, Baba Ji, appa far liya. We've got him. What do you want? Give us the hukam, we'll do anything. And we'll punish him. Baba Ji says, all right, do this. Go into Maharaj's kamra and the best Ramalle Sahib, pick them all out. The best of the best. Bring them here. And when they bring them, he goes, all right, go and take it to that guy now. Ramalle Sahib bhi de do. And they're confused, what's going on? He goes, oh, Lordwant hona, he must have taken the Chaur Sahib for his village, Gurdwara Sahib. That there must not be a Chaur Sahib there. Give him the Ramalle as well. For Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Guru Granth Sahib Ji, utte bhi wahi Maharaj Swarup ya. So he goes, maybe his village or his Nagar Gurdwara doesn't have the items for Guru Sahib. So take it from here. We'll get more. So when they told the thief this, his guilt went straight, like he was full of guilt. He comes running to Baba Ji and charna titta pya te maafi mangi. Te fir wo bhi Baba Ji da sevak ban gaya. So oh ਢੰਗ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਸੀ, look at the ਤਰੀਕਾ ਹੈਨਾ, ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡੰਡੇ ਮਾਰ ਦੋ ਹੁਣ, ਤਰੀਕਾ ਸੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜੋੜਤਾ ਵਾਪਸ, ਤੋੜਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ. Like they could have done more, given punishment, and maybe he was deserving of that punishment. But instead of giving that, they did it in such a way that they joined them to the Guru, joined them back to Maharaj.
There's many Sakhis, in particular one stands out. There was quite a bad famine in 1899 in India as a whole, and it was on a proportion that hadn't been seen in quite some time. It affected the region of Bikaner more than sort of anywhere else, and due to that, there were a lot of people who were suffering, and it was to the extent where even mothers were unable to feed their children, and out of desperation, they were either just abandoning them because they couldn't feed them and they couldn't sort of sustain their suffering, or even killing them. This is how bad the famine was. So these people of Bikaner, they came to Sri Amritsar Sahib in quite large numbers. So as we know, Punjab is a very fertile state. So these people came, and seeing these people scattered across the doorways in Sri Amritsar Sahib and sort of just looking destitute and starving, Babaji's heart was sort of melted, and they decided that they would provide langar for these people twice a day at the Asthaan. And so Babaji basically would go out, round up all these people, and they would come with their big chadars in their sort of cultural dress, cover their heads and come and sit down. And it's interesting then Sant Ji would sit them down and they would get them to do Naam Simran Vaheguru Jap for about 2 hours first. And they would do Naam Simran and then they would feed them. And in this way, Sant Ji was able to alleviate the suffering of thousands. And they continued that langar seva for quite a few months. And through the effect, seeing Babaji's efforts, the wealthy people of Amritsar actually would start to bring the rations and stuff. So they bought ghee and dal and roti, atta to help fuel this langar. And due to that, they managed to help so many people. And actually, the asar on the people was such that these people who were obviously non-Punjabi, non-Sikh, quite a number of them actually took Amrit in the Dera or at Akal Takht. So this was Babaji doing seva on a very high, sort of large scale. But for me, you can see in Babaji's Jivan, they never missed an opportunity to do seva on a big scale or a small scale. It could be a small animal, it could be one person, it could be swarms of people in need. Babaji would find a way to do seva. So one of the big things, and we've already heard about it from Bhai Jeevan Pal Singh, was washing dishes. We can look at firstly a more Puratan Sakhi here, and then come to see how Babaji viewed washing dishes as an important seva. So this is recorded in a Bhagat Prem Prakash as well. That was at one time Bhai Balak Ram, Sri Bhai Sahai Singh Ji, and Bhai Hema Raam. So we've heard about two of those today already. They were sitting on a chadar eating langar, and once they'd finished eating, they got up, and there was another Singh there by another person, Bhai Kantan Ram, who then suddenly came into clear place. You know, like how when Sangat is sitting, somebody will come out of nowhere and pick up the bandi to wash them. The Bhai Sahai Singh Ji, however, stopped him immediately and said, it's the nature of the mind to have others do seva, and it is the nature of the mind to be lazy. This is true, right? We get a little bit of status, and then we're like, pick up my bandi, jaklo, do this for me, do that for me. And we start to feel a little bit, we feel a bit big. So Sant Ji is saying it's the mind, that the mind likes this when other people do our seva. It gets attached to it. And this is the killer. If one can't even wash their own dishes now, then how will they perform any other sadhana, any other method or path for mukti? They say, if you can't even wash your own dishes, then how are you going to do bhakti? So they say, hence the Sants keep jagana, they keep awake they keep a para over their minds. So you can see, jade asli Sant hunde a, in every action, in every thought, in every moment, where there's a moment to act, they act. And they don't perceive it as, it's just a small, or they can take my pandil ja sakde hai. And so you can see this Sakhi would have been shared through the time, from Bhai Sahai Singh Ji's time, through Bhai Ram Singh. And there's another Sakhi here about washing dishes. Baba Shaam Singh Ji says, once, it's about Baba Shaam Singh Ji. Once they were sitting having langar with Bhai Sangat Singh, who was sitting nearby. And this feeling came over Babaji, and they sort of said, looked towards the sky, and they said, the seva of cleaning jade jhute bartan hunde, the used dishes of the Sangat, is only obtained here on earth. They looked at the sky and said this, it can't be obtained in Parlok, in the next world. So this benefit can only be reaped here. As much as one can do, onna thodiya. It's quite the, again, the way they phrase it, the way they do the bachan, it's quite something you can get to Parlok, but utte seva nahi honi.
ਉੱਥੇ ਪਰਲੋਕ ਦਾ ਭਾਵ ਸਵਰਗ ਆ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਸਵਰਗ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਦੇਵੀ ਦੇਵਤਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਸੇਵਾ ਨੂੰ ਤਰਸਦੇ ਆ. ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਸੇਵਾ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ, ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ.
ਭਈ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਮਾਨਕ ਦੇ ਹੋਰੀ ਆ. That's why this Manas Janam is so important. And Sant Ji was just reflecting, ਇਹ ਧਰਤੀ ਆ ਕਿ in this Manas Janam we have the ability to do seva. No other plane can it be done. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੇਵਤੇ ਲੋਕ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਤਰਸਦੇ. So Babaji did this bachan. And Babaji, they would wash the dirty dishes in the Dharamsal at both times of the day. They would go to Sri Darbar Sahib, and at the Shabil, Sant Savaya Singh Ji's Shabil, they would go and wash the Pandey there. And they would always wash their own dishes. So from that same Sakhi, from Sant Bhai Sahai Singh Ji, so you can see that sort of bachan would have had an effect. They never let anybody wash their bartan, ever. So Aab Shakake, they would wash them themselves. They had such prem for washing dishes that even when they got to that really old age where their sarir wouldn't walk properly, when they were sitting on the mandi, on those cots that you have in Punjab on the first or second floor of Atta Mandi Asthaan, before they would eat, they would get the Sevadas to bring like a bigger vessel to wash things in. So they couldn't get to the sinks or the pipes. So they would keep a other patila, and then when they were finished eating...
Swanal.
Mm.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਡੇਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਵਾਹ ਵਰਤਦੇ ਆ ਸਵਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ
ash. So they would use ash water and they would manj it themselves at the bedside. So even getting to that age, it got to a point where fine, wherever their sarir couldn't walk without assistance, they would take it. But even still, they would hold on to that seva of washing bande. And then one more saki on this, because it's interesting updesh. As we've seen already at the Dharamsale, they always used to be very large langar. They're yagak and they are like big feast. There used to be a sevadar called Bhai Thakur Singh. Bhai Thakur Singh actually was one of Babaji's main sevadars. We'll talk more about them probably next time. But they actually went on to they went on to become head Granthi of Darbar Sahib after Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Akal Chalana. So it tells you how much vidya they had received at Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Dera. But this is before that point. So Babaji said to Bhai Thakur Singh, during these langars, you should distribute water, gather the jute bartan, they use dishes and wash them. And then, so they had given this hukum to them. And once after a Akhand Path Bhog, there was a really big langar. And Sant Ji said to Bhai Thakur Singh, have all the Sangat eaten? And Bhai Sahib responded, yes, Babaji, everybody's eaten, everyone's in Anand, Rajke Khadde Sare, and everyone's fine. Hearing this, Sant Ji said, Chalo, Pari Yag ho gaya, there's been a big feast, but did you wash the dishes? And Bhai Sahib said, no, I didn't. And so Sant Ji says, Yagta ho gaya, but what have you gained out of it? What did you gain? So he said, go now, and if there's any remaining pande left over, go and wash them. And they gave this updesh, this mind which is soiled with the dirt of paap, of sin, it's like grease. So just like a greasy dish doesn't get clean with Baani alone. So if you take a greasy utensil and you just run water over it, it doesn't actually get clean. It cleans with scrubbing. So in this way, the dirt of the mind is cleansed through the dust of the feet of the Sangat and the Sants and washing the dishes of the Sangat. So Babaji is explaining here that just as you scrub the dishes away of the Sangat, it imbibes a sense of nimrata and it scrubs away the sins. As Maharaj just said in Japji Sa, Bariya Mat Papa Ke Sang, Ohoto Pa Nava Ke Rang. So if you've got mal on your man, to scrub it away, then through Naam, through Simran, through Seva, you can achieve that.
ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ just to end this sort of topic of the seva, the importance of seva and sangat. So Bhai Kalyan Singh Ji's name has come quite a few times now, and in the Dera you had the timetable every single day. In the morning there was katha, in the evening there was katha, there was kirtan and so on. And Bhai Kalyan Singh Ji used to do seva in Guru ke langar in the Dera of Baba Shaam Singh Ji in Atta Mandi, and they got so busy in that seva of the langar that Swer da Diwan and Sham da Diwan, they missed it both. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji, Harek Singh, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਡੇਰੇ 'ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਪੂਰਾ ਪੈਰਾ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ does he come to katha, does he sit in the sangat and so on, is he doing a seva? No one was allowed to just be free, or there was no till, there was no relaxment in the Rehat of the Dera. And Babaji called Bhai Kalyan Singh Ji and they asked him that for 2 days or 3 days you haven't attended the katha. Tu katha ch nahi baithya, ki hoya hai, ki gal hai? And he folded his hand and goes, Mahapurusho, Maharaj Ji, there's so much seva in the langar, you've given me the seva of the langar, I'm in the langar all the time. There's no time for me to come and listen to katha. Right? He goes, inna ek ta kaam bahut hunda langar vich, fir thakavat aundi hai, sarir da, the body is such as all that I get so tired from doing the langar seva. Te ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਿਆ. ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ heard that and they said ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 3 ਵਾਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਕਿਹਾ, ਬੜੇ ਸੀਰੀਅਸ ਹੋ ਕੇ. and then ਇਹ ਬਚਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਕਿ ਭਾਈ ਸੱਜਣਾ, ਸੇਵਾ ਤਾਂ ਇਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਰੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮਨ ਨੀਵਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਚਿਤ ਆਵੇ. ਜਿਸ ਸੇਵਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੱਗ ਕੇ ਸਤਸੰਗ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਨਾਮ ਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਨ ਨਾ ਲਾਇਆ, ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਸੇਵਾ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਲਾਭ ਹੋਇਆ? Baba Ji said the whole point of doing this seva is to make your mind niva, right, to come to that point of humility that we remember Vaheguru's name and we sit in Sad Sangat. And they said that what is the use of that seva that gets takes us away from Sadh Sangat, from doing Sadh Sangat? So ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਸੇਵਾ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਈ, ਉਹ ਸੇਵਾ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ. If that seva is stopping us from doing Sadh Sangat, from listening to katha or sitting in the Sadh Sangat, ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸੇਵਾ, ਇਹ ਦੋਵੇਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ. ਸੇਵਾ ਵੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ, ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਬੈਠਣਾ ਆ. And the whole point of that seva is to get rid of that male from our mind. So when we sit in Sadh Sangat, we abide them teachings. You know? Like Bhai Vir Singh said about ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਨਰੂਪੀ ਭਾਂਡਾ ਹੈ, cleaning that ਭਾਂਡਾ so it can hold that amrit of the naam that we're going to hear, the upadesh of the Guru that we're going to hear. So Baba Shaam Singh Ji ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਐਸੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਦੇ ਦਰ ਪਰਵਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ, ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਭਾਵਦੀ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੂੰ ਖੁਸ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ. So we see this many times. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੈਠਦੇ, ਕਈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ 'ਚ ਬੈਠਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਲੰਗਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ, ਸੇਵਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ, ਹੈ ਨਾ. ਸੋ ਕਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਭਾਵ ਇਹ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਦੋਵੇਂ ਚੀਜ਼ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਕਿ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ, ਕਈਆਂ ਦੀ ਰੁਚੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਬਸ ਸੇਵਾ ਹੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ, ਆਪਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਥਾ ਸੁਣਨੀ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਹਿਣਾ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਵੀ ਸੀ ਆਲ ਦ ਟਾਈਮ ਨਾ. ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਜੇ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਬੈਠਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ 'ਚ ਬੈਠਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ. ਦੋਵੇਂ ਚੀਜ਼ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ. That's the whole point, they work together, isn't it?
It's reciprocal. And I think it just draws back to that Sant we talked about at the beginning, you know, where we were talking about balance, where that strict rule was katha de samay, katha vich karna, you know, vich hajri launi hai. So the idea that it's all reciprocal, isn't it? The nimrata that you get from the seva then prepares you to receive the gyan in the sangat, but then from receiving the gyan in the sangat, you need to get the nimrata back from the seva. Otherwise you get hung over both. So it's very interesting. And just coming to the conclusion on this topic, Baba Shaam Singh Ji was such a personality that if somebody was doing some Gurmat related activity, they would do their utmost to support it. So aam lokan nu vi support karde sige, but jehde pracharak vi hunde kirtani, if anybody was doing anything to promote Sikhi, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਾਥ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਦੇਣਾ. And there's one particular example that there was a Kirtaniya called Sant Ardaas Sindhi from Sindh province, and he later became a Singh. So that will be another aspect we talk about in the next podcast, about Baba Shaam Singh Ji's connection with Sindh and the people of there. ਜਿਹੜੇ Sindhi ਲੋਕ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, they are Hindu background generally, but tend to have a lot of Shraddha in Sikhi and a lot of praying for Guru Arjan Dev Ji in particular. So Sant Ardaas, later to become Sant Singh, was from that community. He was very knowledgeable in Rag Vidya and Sur and Tal, so he had very good knowledge of beat perception and was very in tune in his singing. And they write that Guruji had given him a very sweet voice as well, so his kirtan was very pleasant to listen to. And when they would do kirtan, the sangat would sort of be in a state of vismad, so they'd go into a state of bliss and awe. And even Sant Ji themselves would, Baba Shaam Singh Ji would be immersed in complete prem, listening to their kirtan. So both vadde kirtani sige, in the sense that they had kamai. Sant Ardaas was such a sant that they didn't have any ichha for anything. They were nir ichha, they didn't have any desires. And this relates back to the previous podcast. It says in the biography, he would perform kirtan mainly for himself and less for others. So how we talked about last time, ਜਿਹੜੇ Sant, even the Sakhi with the Sant Jawan Singh Ji, Raja Sansi, that Kirtan is a form of bhakti, and doing it, we shouldn't just perceive it as we're going into Sangat and we're doing a performance. You're actually doing Kirtan for Guru Sahib and for yourself. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸੁਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵਾਸਤੇ. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਕੀਰਤਨੀ ਹੋਏ ਆ, obviously we haven't got any recordings of Baba Shaam Singh Ji, but another Kirtani that comes to mind that imbibes this sense for me is Sant Sujan Singh Ji, Nanak Sarwale, who was Baba Nand Singh Ji's Kirtaniya. If you listen to their Kirtan, for me, I get this perception that they are doing Kirtan for Guru Sahib. They're not doing it for their own Vidiyai or for the, from Ustad, from the Sangat, which is a big pitfall. But they say here, so they did the Kirtan for themselves and less for others. But Baba Shaam Singh Ji came to know that they were struggling financially and didn't really have any income and was sort of a bit destitute. And they called Bhai Singh, who was also from Sindh province, and said, Bhai Ardaas, at this time he was Ardaas, he does Kirtan for 3 to 4 hours every day. And they give this bachan, this is also very interesting, they say, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਕਰਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕਰਦਾ 3-4 ਘੰਟਿਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ, it's equivalent. In fact, it's more effort compared to that person who is digging or carrying a load for 6 hours. So there's this perception in our community that ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਭਗਤੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, or people who don't do traditional jobs, or even you, Sukhdeep Singh, people who are full-time pracharaks or full-time kirtaniya, they're just time wasters. They've got easy life. God, they're not doing anything. There's no stress on them. It doesn't take any effort. Baba Shaam Singh Ji is saying the opposite. That actually the amount of effort on the Sari to do bhakti, the amount of effort on the Sari to do kirtan, to do prachar is actually more, if not equivalent, if not more, compared to all this physical labor that people get very have a lot of pride over. And actually you see this even if you look at current day Sant Baba Darshan Singh Ji Takki Wale, they did bhakti for solid for a year and didn't come out. And if you look at the pictures, their sarir, their body is completely wasted away. And so they go on to say, those who recite Kirtan loudly, their minds and their bodies need strong nourishment. They too perform bhajan bandagi. Such a Gurmukh ought to have his seva done with, and they say this specifically, with dud, dahi, lassi and makhan. I thought this was really interesting because I had the privilege of meeting Bhai Vir Singh yesterday, and I was talking to other Singhs as well. Even Bhai Baljit Singh, these Kirtaniya, they talk about Kirtaniya requiring quite strong diet to keep their voices and their energy up. Because if you're going to sit and do Asa Diwar for 3-4 hours, you need energy. And so energy-rich foods. So ghee, milk, yogurt, lassi, butter. In fact, some of these Raggis and Sants even rub it into the top of their heads, into their case, because they get so dried out from the effort of bhakti. It's just an interesting side note, because I think this knowledge is not well known in our wider community. People perceive it as just villa time wasters compared to the Gristi lok who are putting in all the effort. But actually, we've seen, even in our trips in India, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਡੇਰੇ ਰਹਿਣ ਵਾਲੇ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਸਲੀ ਕੀਰਤਨੀਏ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, their time schedule is even more time pressured than ours, and they have no free time, and they sleep very little. So they're saying, ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੀਰਤਨੀਆ ought to have this level of seva done for him. And so Sant Ji, Baba Ji got these things together and said to Bhai Sahaj Singh, take it, all this dodi lassi to Bhai Ishwar Singh Ji. So in this way, Baba Ji would always support Jire Kirtaniya, Gurmukh Pracharaks. And they used to give this bachan as well, that Jira Sevaya, it should be done with love. So there's a quick sakhi here that Sardar Basheshwar Singh would recount, that when he was a Sanghi of Baba Ji, and when he became a deputy commissioner in a government post in Nabha, he came to Atta Mandi to the Asthaan for darshan of Baba Shaam Singh. And Baba Ji at that time, again, it's back to the patiyan, the cowpat cakes as they call them. Baba Ji had obtained some for the langar. And he said to Bashesh, and this is Basheshwar Singh's own account now, he said to me, take them to the langar. And I accepted this hukum, but I left the small broken bits of the patiyan there. So if you imagine, what they do is they take the dung and they pat it into cakes, like round cakes. It's a bit dry and it crumbles when you pick it up. So obviously when you've picked it up, you're going to get fragments of the patiyan left over, or if there's small broken off bits. So Basheshwar Singh says, I left the broken bits there. And when Santaji saw that he's left these things, he said, Acha, you are performing the work of your own household with a lot of prem. So you're deputy commissioner now. You'd have done a lot of work to get to that point. So bahut prem naal, bahut uddam naal, you've done your work for your household. But why have you not done the household work of the Guru with such prem? So Basheshwar Singh reflects in his account. He sort of thinks to myself, this is a huge lesson, because he hadn't picked up those remnants. So it's quite interesting. If you do work in your own house, or you're working for yourself, or you're decorating, or you're doing some college, you'll always do it properly. You'll never waste any money. You'll never waste any ration or anything in the fridge. Maharaja kuch kharab hove, you'll lament. You'll be like, oh, I've wasted this. But jadon assi Guru Ghar jaida, we get a bit lazy, So itthe patiyan chhad dittiyan. If that was at home, if you need to use the patiyan for your own seva, for your own fuel, for your own langar. I mean, we've got cost of living crisis. We're all turning off the light switches and turning off the gas. Maharata chhad ditta, you're going to be like, oh, what are you doing? But in the Gurdwara, we don't have that dhyan. And my Baba Ji saying, hey, this is the patiyan of the Guru's langar. Tusi dhyan nahi ditta, fir tusi prem naal nahi kita. So you've done seva, but you haven't done it with prem. If asli prem hunda, then you would have done it properly. So again, AV siksha milta, that whatever seva you do, you have to do it with full faith, full love, and you need to do it properly. Sort of half-baked seva. Oh, parwah nahi hunda.
So thank you for sharing all that vichar on when it comes to Babaji's qualities. Something that Ustad was saying earlier, when it comes to this idea of that Sant is basically Gurbani in action. Everything that they do is Gurbani in action. We could definitely see that. But if you talk more specifically now about Gurbani, when it comes to the satkar that Babaji was showed to Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, to Gurbani itself, do we have any examples of that as well?
So Bhai Prem Singh Ji in Sant Gatha, they say these words about the satkar that Baba Shaam Singh Ji had for Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And they say in reality, ਕਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਅਦਬ ਅਤੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਹਿਰਦੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਸੀ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਵਰਣਨ ਕਠਿਨ ਹੈ meaning that it's very difficult to in any words express the satkar Baba Shaam Singh Ji had for Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. They not only accepted, they saw Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji as the jot of Das Pashahiya. And as Sikh are ish to Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, so we accept that. We say that Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Dasam Pashahiya the jot hai, but do we put that into practice? That's another gal, isn't it? So Baba Shaam Singh Ji ne Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji nu partak Satguru Sahib Ji da hirda manniya. And why did they accept Guru Granth Sahib Ji as the heart of the Guru? In Surj Prakash, Kavi Santokh Singh Ji, when Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj does the first Prakash from Baba Buddha Ji inside Sri Darbar Sahib of Sri Ad Guru Granth Sahib Ji, ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ the satkar that should be kept for Guru Granth Sahib Ji. In words they said it and practically they showed it. And secondly, the Maryada of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj is all explained, the Maryada of Darbar Sahib. And what's the Mahatma of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji? So in that prasang in Surj Prakash, these are the words of Guru Arjan Dev Ji as Bhai Santokh Singh Ji has written it. ਕਿ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਜਹਾਜ ਸੁ ਭੌਜਲ ਕੋ ਤਰ ਜਾਤ ਸੁਖੇਨ ਜਿਨੀ ਚਿਤ ਲਾਇਓ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰ ਕੇਰ ਸਰੀਰ ਜੋ ਸਭ ਥਾਨ ਸਮੈ ਸਭ ਨਾ ਦਰਸੈ ਹੈ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਰਿਦਾ ਗੁਰ ਕੋ ਇਹ ਜਾਨਹੁ ਉੱਤਮ ਹੈ ਸਭ ਕਾਲ ਰਹਾ ਹੈ So Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj said that Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is the ship, is that ship that in this ocean of Kaljug that it will very easily take us across. And in this time, the body or the physical sargun surup of the body of the Guru, the physical body of the Guru, sabthan samay sabna darsa hai. That body cannot be seen everywhere at one time. So Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj is in Amritsar Sahib, then it's at other places, other Sangat have to come to Amritsar for Maharaj's darshan. ਇਹ ਜੋ Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj ਹੈ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਸਰੀਰ ਦਾ ਰਿਦਾ, meaning it's the very heart of the Guru. And ਉੱਤਮ ਹੈ ਸਭ ਕਾਲ ਰਹਾ ਹੈ. ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਬਾਡੀ ਹੈ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਅਲੋਪ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਜੋਤੀ ਜੋਤ ਸਮਾਏ. But this heart of the Guru will always be here. That's the bachan of Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj. And in fact, they actually say that the body of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji or the Surup of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is even greater than my body. That's how much prem they had. Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj had for Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Mere Surup te yaate hain dirag sahib jaan adaib keh. Okay, from my own body or the way that you treat my body or people do puja of my body, recognize that the Surup of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is even greater than my own body. Recognize them as Parmeshwar, as Vaheguru, and hold that respect for Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. And then they tell many practices that a Sikh should do. Pujo ho chandan kesar ko kas dhoop tukhaye ka phool chada hai. Bade sara kuch dasde aa ke Guru Granth Sahib Ji di puja karo. Sargun Swaroop tha ke Akal Purkh de Sargun Swaroop hai Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. In terms of the adab, the respect of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, so just to go over that line quickly before we move on, ke they're saying pujo ho chandan kesar ko kas, ke chandan nu kasa ke, chandan is sandalwood, make sandalwood paste, kesar is
Saffron, isn't it?
saffron. ਧੂਪ ਤਕਾਇਕ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਧੂਪ ਤਕਾਇਕ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਧੂਫ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਸਮੱਗਰੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਮੇਡ ਫਰਮ ਵੇਰੀਅਸ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਇੰਗਰੀਡੀਐਂਟਸ ਉਹ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਤਖਾਓ ਅਤੇ ਫੂਲ ਚੜ੍ਹਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫੁੱਲ ਆ ਉਹ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਚੜ੍ਹਾਓ. These are all signs of devotion. So firstly, these are signs of devotion of a Bhagat for their Isht. Secondly, in terms of conservation and preservation of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, all these things apply as well. So chandan, kesar, all these sort of things, especially chandan, that's a natural insecticide. So we'll see many swarups of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, they would have chandan after a complete part bhog. On the last angs, you'll see like ik oankar written with chandan, with the paste. And that would keep insects away. And a toof as well would keep these insects away and so on. So the practical side and the bhakti side. And then Guru Sahib Ji said, Je tak granth adaye barakha hai, te tak hi phal pavehego. That as much satkar you keep for Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, or the adab, respect and fear you keep for Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, that's how much phal you're going to get. ਜਿੰਨਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਰੱਖੋਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਲ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਧੂਪ ਤਖਾਏ ਕਸਾਏ ਕੇ ਚੰਦਨ ਕੇਸਰ ਕੋ ਅਰਚਾਵਹਿ ਗੋ ਭਾਵਨੀ ਤਾਰ ਕੇ ਚਾਹੇ ਉਮਾਹਤ ਦਿਓਸ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਦਰਸਾਵਹਿ ਗੋ ਪਾਠ ਕਰੇ ਕੇ ਸੁਨੈ ਮਨ ਏਕ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਬਸਾਵਹਿ ਗੋ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਬਚਨ ਆ ਭਾਵਨੀ ਤਾਰ ਕੇ ਵਿਦ ਡਿਵੋਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਉਮਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਮਾ ਦਾ ਭਾਵ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਉਤਸ਼ਾਹ with enthusiasm every single day should have darshan of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Shouldn't be a chore, it should be prem ke Guru de darshan karne a paath kara ke suna je tusi santhya ਲਈ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਾਠ ਕਰੋ ਜੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣੋ ਮਨ ਏਕ ਹੋਇਆ ਇੱਕ ਚਿਤ ਹੋ ਕੇ with full concentration and then ਹੀ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਬਸਾਵ ਹੈਗੋ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਆ the teaching of the Guru recite that enshrine that in your heart and your hirda. So ਇਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਬਚਨ ਆ and we see Baba Shaam Singh Ji in the practical form they follow these bachans. ਤੇ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਹਰ ਵਕਤ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਹਜ਼ੂਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਖੜ ਕੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਖਿਮਾ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ they would just keep asking for forgiveness from Guru Sahib Ji. ਤੇ any action in the Dera, in the Asthaan of Baba Shaam Singh Ji, it would never go without Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj's agya or anything any sangat would even bring for Baba Ji. Let's say someone brings a vastar for Baba Ji, someone brings fruit for Baba Ji. Baba Shaam Singh Ji ਉਸੇ ਵਕਤ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਚੜਾਓ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਭੇਟਾ ਕਰੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨਾਲ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਕੋਲ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕੋਲ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਹ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਆਹ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਆ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਹ ਇੱਛਾ ਆ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰੋ ਹੋਰ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰੋ So there's a few sakhya which show the prem or the satkar that Baba Ji had for Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and we'll go through them.
So again, this sakhi now comes from Sant Bhai Raam Singh Ji, the predecessor Sant. So ekvari there was a Shardalu of Sant Ram Singh who was reading Gurbani from the Sarup of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and whilst he was reading, he saw Bhai Ram Singh Ji coming towards him, and he got up out of respect. Seeing Bhai Sahib. So Sant Ram Singh Ji said with some anger seeing this, ke hey Bhai, ke ye kade na karna
aisa kar to fir nahi karna.
Aisa kar to fir nahi karna. Do not ever do this again. If some person arrives in front whilst you are reciting Gurbani part from Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, do not forsake the seva of the Guru and get up. Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji's great jira vadi hai aur sab to vadi. Their glory is the greatest.
So just the words that Bhai Ram Singh Ji actually said was that Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji ਦੀ ਮਹੱਤਤਾ ਵੱਡਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੀ ਹੈ 14 ਲੋਕਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਭੁਗਤ ਮੁਕਤ ਕੇ ਦਾਤਾ Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji ਦੇ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ shows the prem or the satkar or how they held Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj that in all the 14 worlds meaning all of existence there is no one higher than Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji who is ਭੁਗਤ ਮੁਕਤ ਦਾ ਦਾਤਾ the giver of everything mukti worldly desires everything that even Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj ਦੇ ਸਨਮੁਖ ਆਸਣ ਤੇ ਬੈਠਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਨ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੌਣ ਆ ਤੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੋਚ ਲਈਏ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਰਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਸਾਖੀ ਆ various other instances in Itihaas you get the story of ਸੰਤ ਗਿਆਨੀ ਕਰਤਾਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀ ਪੁਰਬ ਸੀਗਾ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ and I think Indira Gandhi came inside and everyone got up and ਸੰਤ ਕਰਤਾਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ remained seated at the tabya and ਫਿਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਚਨ ਵੀ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਵੱਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ the greatest leader or the king comes into the darbar of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, no one should get up for them. Because Maharaja de Maharaja, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. And
there's another sakhi of Sant Ram Singh in the same vein. ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਉਹ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ, they were walking Sant Ram Singh and they were going to the Asthaan, when all the Sangat got up seeing them, and they put their hands together and they said to one another, ke Thakur Ji aaye, meaning the master has come. And seeing this Sant Ji oh haath dho ke baith gaye, they washed their hands and sat down, and they put their hands together and said, ke hey Guru ke pyare, oh beloved of the Guru, you are not to get up, or when I arrive, or call me by the name of Thakur. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸਲੀ ਠਾਕੁਰ ਸਭ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਠਾਕੁਰ ਆ, the Thakur of all, ਉਹ Guru Nanak Dev Ji and Guru Gobind Singh Ji ਆ. So again, the same Sakhi, that ਜਿਹੜਾ Thakur, that word, it really denotes the master of all, and for them these Sants did not like being referred to with these terms, because for them the master of all was Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and you can see that here. In fact, they said the following pankti, Sajjan Sach Parkh Mukh Alavan Thothara Man Majahu Lakh Todoho Duran Na So Piri, ke listen my friend, realize the true Lord. Just to talk about him is useless. So coming back to what Bhai Hema Singh Ji was saying, ke these sons actually realized, saw Guru Granth Sahib Ji as the master. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟੀ ਏਦਾਂ ਸੀ, that when they saw Guru Sahib Saroop, for them it's the king of all kings. ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, but for us I think it's very quick. We don't have that same drishti a lot of the time, and we get sidetracked by other personalities. But for these, they're saying okay, just to say they're the king of kings is useless. To believe it, to act upon it, to understand it, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸਲੀ ਤੱਤ ਆ. Quite a profound bachan, really.
ਜਿਵੇਂ ਉਹ story ਆਈ ਸੀ about Sant Bhai Ram Singh Ji, where they scolded the Singh who got up while he was doing part. So imagine you're doing a role of a Khand Path Sahib or Sahaj Path and just get up because a Mahapurush has walked in and you got told off. And now how did Baba Shaam Singh Ji carry that on, right? So in Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Jeevani as well, we went to the Dera, we had darshan of the Asthaan, and we saw the Asthaan where Guru Granth Sahib Ji is Prakash, right? And now I think there's like 3 Sarups Prakash. When Baba Ji Samad, there used to be 10 Sarups, so 10 Sarups of Guru Granth Sahib Ji would be Prakash in that room every day. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji, after they would come back from Darbar Sahib, then they would do Matha Take in the Darbar at the Dera, and then they would do continuous parkarmas around the 10 Sarups that were Prakash. And Bhai Prem Singh Ji has written this book about Baba Shaam Singh Ji's life. They tell this story that just as Sant Bhai Ram Singh Ji scolded the Patti singer, it also happened with me. Mere naal bhi ohi gal hui. So what happened was, ek din Baba Shaam Singh Ji comes to do darshan of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and the writer of this book, Bhai Prem Singh Ji, was doing part from one of the Sarups, which are Prakash. And when Baba Shaam Singh Ji is about to pass, so imagine you're doing part and a Mahapurush is about to pass you. And even in our mind, we might have this sort of thought that a great being is passing. Maybe I should just fold my hand that they're passing by me, or I should bow my head a little bit. And when Baba Shaam Singh Ji is about to pass, Bhai Prem Singh Ji looked towards Baba Shaam Singh Ji and bowed his head and folded his hands. Carried on doing the part. He didn't get up like the other thing. When Baba Shaam Singh Ji saw that, Ovi Biras Jage. And they pointed towards Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji and they said, Nikkya, jad tu Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj da paat kar reha hai, ਭਾਵ ਸਤਿਗੁਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਤਾਂ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਮੁੱਖ ਮੋੜ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਜੋ ਸਤਿਗੁਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਹਾਂ, ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲ ਕਿਉਂ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜਦਾ ਹੈ? They said that when you're talking with the true Satguru, the King of Kings, why are you looking towards a slave? So it just shows that Baba Shaam Singh Ji, what their pavana was for Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. It reminds me, in my life, as I remember once, there was a Gyani Singh, one of our Asthaans, and they were walking inside the Darbar Sahib, and when they were coming out, one of these things came, because they were Buzurg Sige, and they came to touch their feet. And I've never seen them get that angry, because it was inside Darbar. Outside Darbar, because they were Bujurg, they would accept it. Jive aapa kise Bujurg de aapa charni lagde ho, we do their satkar, isn't it? Someone is elder than us, and we're younger. There are Ustads, there are teachers. When the Huzuri of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, kadi vi nahi eda karna chahiਦਾ. ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਣੀ ਜਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਇਸੀ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ. ਸੋ ਇਹ ਦੋ ਸਾਖੀਆਂ ਸੀ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਦ ਸਤਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਕੈਪਟ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਫੋਰ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ. ਇਹ ਵੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਅੰਤ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਇਨ ਦ ਲਾਸਟ ਫਿਊ ਈਅਰਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਰੀਰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਤੁਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ. ਈਵਨ ਵੈਨ ਦੇ ਵੁੱਡ ਗੋ ਟੂ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਦੇ ਵਰ ਪਿਕਡ ਅਪ ਬਾਈ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਸ ਐਂਡ ਟੇਕਨ. ਪਰ ਜੇ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਸੁਣ ਲਿਆ ਜਿਵੇਂ we can hear when Guru Granth Sahib Ji is coming. ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਸਮੇਂ 'ਚ they'd have like a ਖੜਤਾਲ, they'd have like this bell which you'd know Maharaj is coming with his Satnam Vaheguru Jap. Even though Baba Shaam Singh Ji's body wasn't able to get up, they still tried to get up. ਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਾਵਨਾ ਸੀ, ਦੂਸਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਉਠਾਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਫਿਰ। Meaning they never used their body as an excuse to not do the ਸਤਿਕਾਰ of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੱਕ ਬੁਖਾਰ ਚੜ੍ਹ ਗਿਆ। ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਚੜ੍ਹ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ, ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਣਾ, ਆਪਾਂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੇ। ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਬਚਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨੇ। ਸੋ ਡਿਸਪਾਈਟ ਦ ਫੀਵਰ, ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਹਜ਼ੂਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਏ। ਐਂਡ as soon as they sat in ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਹਜ਼ੂਰੀ, ਜਿੰਨਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਤੇਜ਼ ਤਾਪ, ਵੈਰੀ ਹਾਈ ਟੈਂਪਰੇਚਰ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਸ਼ਾਂਤ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਉਸੇ ਸਮੇਂ। ਜਦੋਂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਹਜ਼ੂਰੀ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਆਏ, went back to the room, ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਸੀਗਾ। ਭਗਤ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਸਾਖੀ ਆ which I like to share, and it's written about ਭਾਈ ਰਤਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ। ਇਹ ਸੇਵਾਪੰਥੀ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ। This ਸਾਖੀ is about the siddiq or the love a Gursikh has for Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. And Baba Shaam Singh Ji writes in Bhagavad Prem Prakash, okay, what happened is ek din Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj was Prakash in a kamara in that Dera. So Baba Ratan Singh Ji's house, you could say, or the Dera they lived in. And the room which Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj's Darbar Sahib was, after the evening, Maharaj Sukhasan was done. And Maharaj was placed in the Sukhasan Asthaan. Te oh raat, that night, inni bhari varkha hui. Such a great rainfall, है ना, like storm ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਜੋ ਫਲੱਡ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਤੇ ਇੰਨੀ ਭਾਰੀ ਵਰਖਾ ਹੋਈ ਕਿ ਸਾਰਾ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਅਸਥਾਨ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਨਾਲ ਭਰ ਗਿਆ। ਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ the room which Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj was in, ਇੰਨਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਭਰ ਗਿਆ, ਕਹਿ ਲਓ like you'd have to swim inside it to get to any part of that room. ਇੰਨਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਭਰ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਸੀ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜਲ ਇਕੱਠਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਣ ਕਾਰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਕਮਰੇ ਦੀ ਛੱਤ ਗਲ ਕੇ ਡਿੱਗ ਪਈ। ਸੋ that shut, the roof of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj's kamara, it basically broke down. ਤੇ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦਾ ਐਸਾ ਭਾਣਾ ਵਰਤਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਸੁਖਾਸਨ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੁਖਾਸਨ ਸਥਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਆ ਕੇ ਜਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਚਲ ਗਏ। ਸੋ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਇਸ ਰੂਪ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ went into that water. ਤੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਸਾਧੂ, ਅੰਧੇਰੀ ਰਾਤ ਸੀ, ਕਿਸੇ ਸਾਧੂ ਨੇ ਭਾਣਾ ਵਰਤਿਆ ਵੇਖ ਕੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ, ਜੀ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮੰਦਰ ਕੇ ਗਿਰਨੇ ਕਾਰ ਜਲ ਖਾਤੇ बीच ਡੁੱਬ ਗਏ ਹੈ। ਸੋ some sadhu comes and tells ਭਾਈ ਰਤਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮੰਦਰ ਕੇ ਗਿਰਨੇ ਕਾਰ, due to the ਮੰਦਰ or the house or the roof collapsing, ਜਲ ਖਾਤੇ बीच ਡੁੱਬ ਗਏ ਹੈ। ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ is drowned in the water. ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਸ੍ਰੀਮਾਨ ਸੰਤ ਰਤਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ, ਹੇ ਮੂਰਖ, ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਗਤ ਕੋ ਤਾਰਨਹਾਰੇ ਹਨ, ਇਸ ਲੋਕ और परलोक वैतरनी आदिक से, सो आप कैसे डूबते हैं, ताते ऐसे फिर नहीं कहना। So the sadhu says, Maharaj, Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj is drowned in the water. And Bhai Ratan Singh says, oh Murak, Sri Guru Granth Sahib is the one who carries us across. They save us from drowning. ਉਹ ਕਿਵੇਂ drown ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ? ਕਿ ਉਹ ਲੋਕ ਪਰਲੋਕ ਸਾਰੇ ਨਦੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ, all the oceans and the rivers of ਲੋਕ of this world and the next world, Guru Granth Sahib Ji is the one who takes us across. So never say this again that Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj is drowned. ਤਾਂ ਜਲਦੀ ਹੀ ਉੱਠ ਕੇ ਸੰਤ ਜੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਕਮਰੇ ਦੇ ਪਾਸ ਆਏ। Again, it's very beautiful how they write this, Guru Baba Ji. That's how the Puratan Gursikhs used to call Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. Even ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਦ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦਾ ਸਰੂਪ ਆ, ਕਰਤਾਰਪੁਰ ਬੀਰ, which we call now, which Bhai Gurdas Ji wrote, if you look at the Tatkara, ਉੱਥੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈ। That's how Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj referred to Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Tatkara means the contents page. ਉੱਥੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈ। So jaldi they went to Maharaj's kamara and they saw that, yes, in fact, Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj has gone into the water. ਆਪਨੇ ਰੋਸ਼ਨੀ ਕੀਤੀ, they did light, ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਲ ਇਤਨਾ ਤਾਰੂ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਮਨੁੱਖ ਵੀ ਤਾਰੂ ਜਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ। That the water has risen so high that we can't just walk into this room and find Maharaj. And it's andheri raat and it's still raining as well. It's like a storm going on. The roof has gone as well. Imagine that situation. ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਫਿਰ ਕੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਰਦਾ, ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦਾ। ਸੰਤ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਹੱਥ ਵਿੱਚ ਟਕਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ₹1.25 ਦਾ ਕੜਾਹ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦ ਮੰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕੀਤੀ। ਭਾਈ ਰਤਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ they picked up a ਟੱਕਾ, a coin, and ਅਰਦਾਸ ਮੰਨ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਮੈਂ ਕੜਾਹ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੇ ਕਰ ਆਊਗਾ। They didn't have a chance to make ਕੜਾਹ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦ at that time. So this is an old tradition of Gursikhs as well. ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਕੜਾਹ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰੋ। Imagine you in a situation when you can't do that. ਫਿਰ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਮੈਂ ਕੜਾਹ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੇ ਕਰਾਊਗਾ। I will do that afterwards, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਸੋ ਇਵੇਂ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਕੜਾਹ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦ ਮੰਨ ਕੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕੀਤੀ, ਹੇ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਗਤ ਦੇ ਤਾਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਹੋ, ਤਾਤੇ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਤੱਖ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਦੀਜੀਏ, ਦਾਸਾਂ ਦੀ ਭੁੱਲ ਖਿਮਾ ਕਰੋ ਹੇ ਸਵਾਮੀ ਜੀ। ਕਿ ਉਹ ਮਾਸਟਰ, ਉਹ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ, you are the ਤਾਰਨ ਵਾਲਾ, the one who carries across the whole world. ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਤੱਖ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਦੀਜੀਏ, give us ਪ੍ਰਤੱਖ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ, come out from these waters and give us darshan and forgive our mistakes. ਅਰਦਾਸ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਜਦ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਨੇਤਰ ਖੋਲ੍ਹੇ, when they open their eyes, ਕੀ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਉੱਪਰ ਝਟਪਟ ਤਰ ਆਏ ਹਨ। So Maharaj has come out from the water and they see Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj's Swarup floating on the water. ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਦਿਸਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ, ਅਲੋਪ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਸੀ in the water. And straight after the ਅਰਦਾਸ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਬੂਲ ਕਰਤੀ and Maharaj came out from the water. ਜਲ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਏ, ਜੈਸੇ ਉੱਤਮ ਜਗਿਆਸੂ ਨੂੰ ਸਰੂਪ ਪ੍ਰਤੱਖ ਹੋਏ ਆਵੇ, ਅਗਿਆਨ ਕਾ ਪਰਦਾ ਹਟ ਜਾਵੇ। ਕਿਵੇਂ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਉੱਤਮ ਜਗਿਆਸੂ, the great seeker has come to that point where the ਅਗਿਆਨ ਦਾ ਪਰਦਾ, that curtain of ignorance gets destroyed and they see Vaheguru Pratak. When they open their eyes, they saw Guru Granth Sahib Ji Pratak right in front of them, floating on the water. Sant Ratan Singh Ji ਦੇ ਦ੍ਰਿੜ ਅਭਿਆਸ ਦੇ ਸਦਕੇ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਜਲ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਸਾਖਿਆਤ ਪ੍ਰਗਟ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਆ ਗਏ। ਤਦ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੋਈ। So they got very happy. And what's the first thing they did? ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਰਮਾਲੇ ਬਦਲਨੇ ਆ, because they were all wet. And what would you think? That this is just cloth. The water is going to go through the cloth. Okay, Maharaj, this Swarup, they're all going to be submerged in water. But look at the siddiq and the color of Satguru Ji, that when they took off the ramalle, only the ramalle were wet, but Guru Maharaj's Swarup is fully dry. ਤਦ ਹੋਰ ਰਮਾਲ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਚੜ੍ਹਾਏ ਗਏ। ਸ੍ਰੀਮਾਨ ਸੰਤ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਸਾਖੀ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਭਗਤ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਰਮੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਭਗਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਐਸਾ ਸਹਾਇਕ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਤਨਾ ਅਸਰ ਹੈ। So these are the type of sakhis that Baba Shaam Singh Ji has written. ਕਿੰਨਾ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਸਾਖੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਆਪ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੇਵਕ ਨੂੰ।
Such was Baba Ji's devotion to the Swarup of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. ਇਹ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। So they would give this spiritual instruction ਕਿ ਭਾਈ, have darshan and perform worship of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ 9 ਨਿਧੀਆਂ, 18 ਸਿੱਧੀਆਂ, the 9 ਨਿਧੀਆਂ and the 18 ਸਿੱਧੀਆਂ, these occult powers, as well as liberation, all these things you will receive. Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is the granter of the ਚਾਰ ਪਦਾਰਥ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚਾਰ ਪਦਾਰਥ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਧਰਮ, ਅਰਥ, ਕਾਮ, ਮੋਖ. It was Sant Ji's strict rule to remain attached to the loving service of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. They would never tell anyone to do any other seva, and nor would they allow anyone to do seva for them. Sant Ji would say, telling someone to do any other seva is firstly a mistake on our part, and secondly, that person then has to fall from a high stage. ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ, Bhai Kalyan Singh, so that same thing, they said this to them: one should read Gurbani from Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji with great care, thought and contemplation. These Amrit-filled words and instructions are meant to be enshrined in the heart. Read each line and then contemplate on it, and then read it again, and then contemplate it again. Continue reading it over and over until you understand it and then live by it. As you are reading part very quickly, the part is read incorrectly, and secondly, you do not understand what Satguru Ji is instructing. This is a very important point. Ajkal people say you only need to read Baani once and you'll get the understanding. Sant Ji is saying here, read, understand, read again, understand again. Baani is agar the board. Its understanding can't be gained through one reading. So what they're saying here, and it's really something for us to learn, that sometimes we're just rushing through part, ticking boxes, that we need to have a full awareness of what we're reading. And if we don't understand, we have to make some effort. We have to do Ardaas, Maharasanu, Soji Bakshan. But our role is to make the effort. But it's a constant cycle. It can't be that ik vari tika par liya, manu soji aayi, that's it. It's a constant cycle of reading, reflecting, imbibing, enacting, start again.
ਇਹ ਪਾਠ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਪਾਠ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ। ਵਿਚਾਰ ਪਾਠ ਜਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਪਾਠ, ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਸੀਗਾ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪੇ ਸੋਚ ਲਓ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸਹਿਜ ਪਾਠ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਪਾਠ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, how do we do it? Read one pankti, we go to the next pankti, then we go to the next pankti. ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਸੀ, ਇੱਕ ਪੰਕਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ ਤੇ ਸੋਚੋ. So you read one line of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Now think about what that line is saying. ਫਿਰ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ, ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਸੋਚੋ. ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਸਮਝ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਾ ਆਵੇ ਬਾਰੰਬਾਰ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ ਤੇ ਬਾਰੰਬਾਰ ਸੋਚੋ, ਫਿਰ ਧਾਰਨ ਕਰੋ. ਜਿੰਨੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੱਕ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਪੰਕਤੀ ਮਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ, you can't go to the next ਪੰਕਤੀ. ਕਿੰਨਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਲੱਗੂਗਾ ਉਸ ਪਾਠ ਨੂੰ? ਬਹੁਤ ਸਮਾਂ ਲੱਗੂਗਾ, ਹੈ ਨਾ. ਪਰ ਇਹ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸੰਤ ਗਿਆਨੀ ਗੁਰਬਚਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, we heard about the Nityanem they study every day, certain angs of Gurbani, and they just keep reading one line again and again, again and again. ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਦੇਖਤ ਦੋਖ ਨਸੇ, ਉਹ ਬਸ ਪੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਵਾਰ-ਵਾਰ ਪੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਾਣਾ. ਜਿੰਨੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੱਕ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੰਕਤੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਦਾ ਉਹ ਰਸ ਲਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਫਿਰ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾਣਾ, ਹੈ ਨਾ.
In this line, when we're talking, just as I mentioned before, Baba Shaam Singh Ji said that they wouldn't put anyone on any other seva or tell them to do anything else. Ek vari Bhai Thakur Singh Ji Granthi, they would recount a small story. Ek vari Aya Thakur Singh sought permission from Baba Ji to participate in the seva of levelling the ground at Chandabunga. So Chandabunga is one of the small Gurdwara in Darbar Sahib complex where the Miri Piri Nishan Sahibs are. And Baba Ji's response to this was, Dekho Bhai, listen, look, you've been given a very hefty seva of Sri Guru Granth Sahib, because Bhai Thakur Singh Ji's seva in the Dera was to do Prakash. And they said, do not think about leaving this great seva for some other seva. So each seva has its place. So that's what I gain out of some of these sakis of Baba Shaam Singh. We want to do everything. We want to run from here to here to here. Bhai Thakur Singh Ji's seva was set. He had a set routine. And Guru Granth Sahib Ji's seva is Mahan. So Baba Ji was telling them, there's more fun in doing something with mandi ekagrata, with complete focus and dedication, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ, rather than going straight ਇੱਧਰ ਉੱਧਰ everywhere. And ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ, Sardar Bashir Singh Ji would say, ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ Baba Shaam Singh Ji was giving me a teaching on the respect of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. ਕਿ Baba Ji said ਕਿ all the Gurus, from Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji to Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, are standing before Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji with their hands together. कि Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji are the Satguru who will save us in Kal Yug. We should do as much satkar as possible, even this will be little. It's a big understanding this, ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ we always say 10 ਗੁਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਰੂਪ, 10 ਗੁਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੋਤ, but even here they're saying ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ 10 ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਵੀ ਖੜੇ ਆ. And we know that Bhai Sahib has already talked about Guru Arjan Dev Ji not sitting on a takat in front of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, sleeping underneath a Kotha Sahib, a Akal Takat. None of these are not just actions of meaningless actions. It's because Guru Sahib themselves has taught that ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਆ, there's nothing higher than ਬਾਣੀ. ਕੋਈ ਦੇ ਕੁਛ ਹੋਰ ਨਹੀਂ, ਕੋਈ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਹੀਂ. In this world, there is nothing higher than ਬਾਣੀ.
ਇਹ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ, as we've already said many times, Baba Ji would walk through the streets of Amritsar, and as we've seen ourselves, you see newspapers or pieces of paper lying on the floor, or people have chucked them on the floor, and when they're walking in the bazaar, Baba Ji ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਕਾਗਜ਼ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਸੀ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਗੁਰਮੁਖੀ ਅੱਖਰ ਹੋਣ, it might not even be Gurbani, just Gurmukhi ਅੱਖਰ, because those are the ਅੱਖਰ that have come from the mukh of the Guru. Baba Ji would pick them up and put them in their bag. ਫਿਰ ਡੇਰੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ and they would check if anything has Gurbani on it, ਉਹਦਾ ਸੰਸਕਾਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. ਤੇ when they would see that this ਕਾਗਜ਼ has Gurbani written on it and it's just been chucked on the floor with no care at all, ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਦੁੱਖ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ. ਬਚਨ ਦੇ would say is ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਹਿਰਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਘੱਟ ਗਿਆ ਆ. ਦੇਖ ਲਓ, that's the ਸਤਿਕਾਰ Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj had, and look what we're doing now.
If we look at satkar, we can almost break it down into 3 types, you know. So what we've talked about here is ek man da satkar. So when you're doing part, bilkul tyaar naal, complete concentration, complete focus, dedicating your time and effort, or manda. Then the next one we can do it is with our bodies, tan naal. And how do we do that? So we can see from one particular small sakhi that how did Baba Shaam Singh Ji perceive the sarup, the physical sarup of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. They had sent a sarup of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji for rebinding. and the binding was worn, so they'd sent it to a bookbinder who was Muslim. So it can't be forgotten, even during Guru Arjan Dev Ji's time, when the Kartar Puri bead was sent for binding, it was sent to Musliman as well, because predominantly bookbinding comes from the Islamic tradition. It comes in the way that we understand it from Persia. So the people who were actually any good at it were Muslims. So from the time that saroop remained undergoing repair in that shop with the Musliman, Sant Ji would go every day and offer a Fulanda Har, so a flower garland, for Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So there was so much pyar for that saroop. It wasn't a case of let's just leave the saroop there and we'll bring the saroop back when it's ready. Or har roj they felt the pangs of separation. All separation the vichon, they used to bring the har to show that and to demonstrate it. In a similar view, understanding Babaji's understanding of the saroop and how they perceived it. Ek vari Bhai Thakur Singh Ji Granthi would recount that once they, Bhai Thakur Singh, was heading to Sri Darbar Sahib with Baba Shaam Singh Ji. And as they were passing Lachi Bear, he said to Babaji, this is Bhai Thakur Singh Ji said to Baba Shaam Singh Ji, that ye jehdi seva hai na, the seva of correcting or repairing a Guru Granth Sahib Ji saroop is like performing the seva of the body of the Satguru. That was their statement. So correcting, repairing the saroop is like performing seva of the body of the Satguru. Babaji quite harshly replied, nahi bhai, ye jehdi seva of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it's the seva of the Guru's hirda. That jehda Guru Granth Sahib hai na, it's the Guru's hirda, it's the Guru's heart. Service of the Guru's Asthaans is the service of Satguru's body. So in their mind, jehda saroop hai na, the paper, the ink, the Baani, the whole saroop is Guruji's heart. Jehde naal prem pੈ gaya. And they perceive the body of the Guru to be where that saroop is housed. And that feeds into, we'll talk about this in the next podcast, their love of performing Kar Seva, the Seva of the Guru Asthaans. So you can see that in their mind, the Asthaans were the body that housed the heart, which was Guru Granth Sahib Ji's saroop. And so Baba Shaam Singh Ji continued, Bhai Thakur Singh, you have received the service of repairing and writing Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji's saroops. So recognize your bhag, your fortune is great. So Bhai Thakur Singh wrote saroops of Guru Granth Sahib in full. There are still some, I believe, saroops of their writing at Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Asthaan. And he used to do repair work. So Babaji was saying clearly that with this seva that he's done, he had received something that he was most fortunate to have received.
So thank you for speaking on the satkar that Babaji would keep for Guru Granth Sahib Ji, some many examples as well. How about more specifically on the Rehat that Babaji would keep then?
Babaji was very steadfast in the Rehat, and their whole life, since they were blessed with Khande Bhatti the Amrit, they never allowed any of the Panjakakar to leave their body. And Babaji would do this bhajan that Pura Tyar Pratyar Gursikh is that Gursikh, where they do Nitnem of the Baani of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. They also do Nitnem of Sri Dasam Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. And Bhai Prem Singh Ji recounts a very small instance he has in 1923, that when they were staying with Baba Shaam Singh Ji in Atta Mandi Dera, and in the afternoon, Baba Shaam Singh Ji was sitting after doing Keshi Isnan in the veranda of the Dera. And as we see with many Mahapurush, you see with Baba Thakur Singh Ji, they always had a Gursikh sitting with them reading Gurbani. Sant Guru Arjan Singh Ji used to listen to Gurbani from Sant Kartar Singh Ji for many, many hours, or other Gursikhs. In the same way, Baba Shaam Singh Ji used to do this, because this is doing parapakar of others, making them read Gurbani. And Bhai Prem Singh Ji is reading Sukhmani Sahib. And the words of Baba Shaam Singh Ji was ke Kaka tenu Sukhmani Sahib kant hai, because he was doing it from Kant. And Das ne benti kiti ke aap ji di kirpa, that's your grace. Fir aapne farmaya ke Sri Akal Ustat vi kant karo. Theek hai, you got Sukhmani Sahib kant, and Akal Ustat vi kant karo. It just shows that they're praying for Dasam Baani as well, for the Baani of Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, because no one really does that bhajan much. Now, Sukhmani Sahib kant karna in itself can be hard, and then Akal Ustat vi kant karo, Akal Ustat da vi nitnem karo. ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਦਸਮ ਬਾਣੀ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਹੈ ਬਚਨ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਟੂ ਡੂ ਇਜ਼ ਦੈਟ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਗਵਾਲੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਸਨ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੰਘ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਹਨ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਪੁੱਤਰ ਵਾਰੇ ਹਨ ਸੋ ਦਿਸ ਸੇ ਜਸਟ ਲਾਈਕ ਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਜੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਗਵਾਲੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਸੋ ਗਵਾਲੇ ਕਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਭਾਵ ਦ ਮਿਲਕਮੇਡਸ ਹਾਊ ਦੇ ਵਰ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਟੂ ਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਕਲਗੀਧਰ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪਿਆਰਾ ਆ that's how much love Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj has for the Khalsa and then that Khalsa has to be in ਰਹਿਤ ਪਿਆਰੀ ਮੁਝਕੋ ਸਿੱਖ ਪਿਆਰਾ ਨਾ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਉਹ ਆਪ ਰਹਿਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਦ੍ਰਿੜ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਸ਼ਹਿਰਾ ਉਹ ਆਪ ਧੋਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਦੀ ਵੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਸ਼ਹਿਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਹੱਥ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਾਉਣ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਥਿੰਕ someone of that high status Sevadars be washing their clothes they used to wash their own clothes their own kashera and even up to their bird umar ਆਪਣਾ ਕਸ਼ਹਿਰਾ ਆਪ ਧੋਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਰਿਆਦਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਪਰਪੱਕ ਸੀਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਪਰਪੱਕ ਸੀ ਆਪ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਪੰਜਾਂ ਪਿਆਰੇ 'ਚ ਲੱਗ ਕੇ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਾਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ as we heard ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਪੰਜਾਂ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਿਆ ਸੀ another bachan they did is that ਸਿੰਘ who is ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਧਾਰੀ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਪਾਠ ਦਾ ਨੇਮੀ who has ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪਾਠ and has ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪਾਠ ਨਾਮ ਦਾ ਰਸੀਆ ਆ takes ਰਸ from ਨਾਮ ਸੰਤੋਖਵਾਨ ਆ he's content ਰਹਿਤਵਾਨ he's complete in his ਰਹਿਤ and ਸਿੱਧਕਵਾਨ he's always patient and always instilled in that ਸਿੱਧਕ the faith in the Guru ਕਹਿੰਦੇ there's no bigger Sant than that ਸਿੰਘ ਉਸ ਵੱਡੇ ਸੰਤਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਉੱਤਮ ਆ that's the ਸ਼ਰਧਾ that Baba Shaam Singh Ji had for the Khalsa and I think ਭਾਈ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ
ਹਾਂਜੀ before that though we can also talk about Babaji writes a Sakhi of the importance of Rehat in Bhagat Prem Prakash, which relates to this. So just as Bhai Jeevanpal was saying, Babaji's Bachan would say that Guru Gobind Singh Ji would be greatly pleased by any Sikh who enshrines love for their Nityanem, is without enmity or jealousy, content and lives within the prescribed Maryada. And with regards to this, they've included a Sakhi from Bhagat Prem Prakash. This Sakhi is actually told from the perspective of somebody called Sri Gopal Das, who was an Udasi Mahapurush, who had meetings with Sant Bhai Sahai Singh Ji. He had actually, Gopal Das had actually done darshan of Guru Gobind Singh Ji and had seen the Anandpur Darbar. So he was recounting the stories of Guru Gobind Singh Ji to Sri Bhai Sahai Singh Ji, and these stories then were written down by Baba Shaam Singh Ji in Bhagat Prem Prakash. So this is the speech now of Sri Gopal Ji, who is narrating a Sakhi. So there was a Jat who lived close to Sri Anandpur Sahib, and he had bajra in his field, which was now ready for harvest. And in his mind, he felt that this harvest is now ready, and it's ready thanks to Maharaj, when there's been no vighan, there's been no obstacle due to the grace of the Guru. I should really make some bajra di roti and offer it to Guruji to eat first. So this was the prem of that Sikh. Bahut Shardavan Siga. He felt that with his first harvest, he wanted to make roti and do pitta to Guruji. And then they had this further thought that when they eat all this roti, then the grains will be liberated or at least attain a human life and my efforts will be fruitful. Any we'd be thinking this Sikh thought that the grains that are in the roti all be mukta ho jange. The thought would never cross my mind. So even the grains that are entering the roti that are going into the mouth of the Guru all be mukta ho jange. So this was his thought, and then he was thinking that his efforts would become fruitful as well. So he ground the bajra and cooked it with ghee and placed it along with some saag, which he had grown, dahi and mittha. And he reached near the bank of the river close to Anandpur Sahib. There he saw actually at the riverbank, Panj Sikh Bhattisi, there were 5 Singhs there who were ascetics. So Singhs who were living out in the wilderness. And they were sitting there reciting Gurbani. And they were longing for Guruji to send them food. So these Sikhs were hungry. Bahar baith ke te bhukh lag gayi si. And the Jat said to them, Sri Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Sri Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. And they responded with the same. One of the Singhs said, Bhai, where are you going? And the Jat said, hey Guru ke pyare, I'm taking these prasad to Satguru Ji. And when Guruji tastes it, my life will then become fruitful. Hearing this, the Singh said, have faith that within 5-6, the Guru Parameshwar resides. So remember the Panch Sikh Bhattaya, one of the Sikhs is now saying, within 5 Gursikhs, the Guru resides. So he carries on and says, so please bring this food here, and the Satguru will taste it. The Sikhs are all hungry, so have compassion and feed them, recognizing them as the tongue of the Guru. And then, so you can see here that the Panch Sikh Hagia, they have this vishwas that the form of Panj Sikh, the Guru will also partake of these prashade. And then Sant Ji writes the following Shabad, ke Satgur Preet Gur Sikh Mukh Paye. And a further Shabad, Gur Sikha Andar Satgur Varte, Jo Sikha no Locho so Gur Khushi Ave. Those that go looking for the Gur Sikhs, that also pleases Guruji as well. So they say, hence have no doubts. Ye Shabad keh ke na, the Singh stopped talking. So Horn Jat de man thoda ja dumda gaya. He's gone into a bit of doubt. In his mind, he began to count the number of Singhs and he thought, okay, panja hai gaya. So he placed the food in front of the other Sikhs. And one of the Sikhs performed Ardaas and then did Kirpan Pet. And reciting Naam Satnam Sri Vaheguru began to eat. Having eaten, they performed Ardaas and then began reciting Naam Simran. And the farmer thought to himself, my mind will be pleased if I make food like this for Satguruji again sometime. But I'm near, so I should go for darshan anyway. So in the Sikh's mind, he obeyed the command of those Panj Singhs. He gave the food, he offered it, but he still felt in his mind a little bit, ke agli wari mein I would like to make the same food again for Satguruji. So it sort of suggested that in his mind, he felt that maybe Guruji hadn't had it. So he proceeded to Anandpur and there was a great congregation. And Sri Satguruji was sat upon a gold takhat. And there were 4 chaur sahib being done above them at that time. So remember, this is an eyewitness account from Sri Gopal Ji, who saw all of this. The kalgi on their head looked glorious and there was a bow in their hands. And the Sikh bowed to Guruji from afar and sat down at the back. Then Sri Guruji, the knower of everyone's inner feelings, spoke in order to reassure the farmer. So Satguruji, antarjami sige. So they knew what had happened and they spoke to bring reassurance now. They said to the farmer, to the paredar, bring me a toothpick as there's some saag stuck in my teeth. And the jade Ardaas, they brought one. And Guruji removed some saag leaves from their teeth. And seeing this, there was a Langri Bhai Gurdwara Singh. They come in Itihaas as well. And the Langri was shocked because they said, hey Prabhu Ji, hey Vaheguru Ji, there was no saag in today's langar and you don't eat from anywhere else. Tusi baat kuch sakya nahi tusi. So where did you obtain this food from, Master? Then they also went on to say, Hun langar vi tiyar hai, and we've got panchamrit, kada, prasadi, deg, kheer, dahi, ke hey Maharaj kirpa karke tusi aap shako. So the Langri is shocked. He's saying, Maharaj is saying they've got saag stuck in their teeth. We haven't given any saag. There's been none made in langar, and actually langar is now ready. And hearing this, Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji spoke, hey Bhai Gurdwara Singh Ji, ye jada Sikh jo piche baitha, that Singh at the back, he fed me with his plate and pitcher today, with fresh bajra, butter, saag, dahi, lassi, on the banks of the river, which has made me very content. So I have no desire now to eat any more food. And Guruji pointed him further. They said, look, it's that Singh sitting at the back. So now I have no further desires. Seeing and hearing this, the Sikh was pleased, and with some shame he stood up and said, Ke hey Prabhu Ji, hey Sache Paatshah, hey Garibaan de Yaar, hey Antarjami Ji, I brought food for you, but on the say-so of your Behangam Sikh, I served them the food. I will bring the food again for you on another day. So you can see the singer still hasn't realized what's happened here. And the Pura Satguru said, Ke hey Bhai Sahib, have faith that I ate your food. Rather than here, there was a greater need for food there. The food has reached me. That Sikh with faith who serves other Sikhs prasad out of love, who provides clothes to Behangam or ascetic Sikhs, who needs them, or who provides me with clothes, and it's me that partakes of those clothes, and it's me that tastes it. So what Guruji is saying is service of the Sikhs is service of the Guru. Whoever does that seva then, I am the saviour of such a Sikh. Where there is a terrifying road there, I shall support them. I will protect them in the mother's womb. One who wakes up at Amrit Vela and bathes and then performs Naam Simran and reads Gurbani, such an honest Gursikh who is pleased by performing seva pleases me. If some manamukh slanders them or causes them pain, then they cause me pain. Santan dukapayate dukhi, we hear in Chaupai Sahib, it's exactly the same. To them I am the very form of death. They will become residents of the worst hell. They will remain in the pains of rebirth. One who does slander of that person who offers food, water and clothes to the Sikh congregation destroys their own virtues. To worship those who are beloved to Vaheguru is to worship Vaheguru. Do not have any doubts. There are countless forms of grain in the world. What benefits are reaped by offering it to the Master of the world? There are countless benefits. It is equivalent to thousands of fasts, thousands of pilgrimages, thousands of worships, or sacrificial feasts, which is what people used to do in the previous ages. One who gives to God with love, God will be present here, and in the next world for him. Bhai, you have made me content, and so you are blessed. So hearing these words, the farmer was elated, and he fell at the feet of the Guru and began crying and chastising himself. Okay, the merciful Guru has accepted my bajra roti and my saag. Oh my mind, what kind of fool are you? You keep your mind, body, and wealth hidden from them, stuck in the punishment of attachment day and night. You are a thief from the Guru. He's talking to himself. He put his hands together, saying, "Oh God, if you will protect me by giving your lotus charan, then I might find salvation. I have no other solution, so I've come to your sanctuary." He then went on to receive Naam Darshan and Naam Updesh and continued to give prasad many times to Guruji. So this Sakhi is very, very deep, and I felt the need to share it fully because it really echoes that belief that Baba Shaam Singh Ji had and that Puratan Gursikhs had and Guru Gobind Singh Ji had. The ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੰਜ ਸਿੱਖ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੰਜ ਅਸਲੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਆ ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਸਰੂਪ ਆ. And so it took a while for this Gursikh to realize, to lose that regret in his mind that actually he'd actually shakad Guru Sahib and given Bajre di Roti. So such was the opinion, such was the praise for Rehat among Gursikhs in Baba Shaam Singh Ji's mind. Moving on, really, Baba Shaam Singh Ji's spiritual Pradesh, they encouraged thousands to take Amrit. And Babaji usually wouldn't administer Amrit in Panj Pyare in the Dharamsala. They would always direct people to Akal Takht, and Babaji, as Bhai Jeevan Pal Singh has said, would be in those Panj in their early days. Babaji would say that the Khalsa is the form of Sri Kalgitar Patsha, and for them there was no higher honor really.
ਇੱਕ ਬਚਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਫਤਿਹ ਬਾਰੇ. ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੰਘ ਸੀਗਾ, ਸੋ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਸੋ ਆਗੇ ਆਵਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੋ ਆਵੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਵੇ. ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦਾ ਹੁਕਮ ਆ ਕਿ whoever Gursikh comes in front of you, you should always say fateh to them. And Bhai Pal Singh Ji ਇੱਕ ਸੰਗਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੀਗੇ. He went to some place, some other town, and he met Gursikhs there, and they asked him that, "Do you know Baba Shaam Singh Ji?" And he says, "Yes, we know Baba Ji, we do their Sangat." And they said, "Theek hai, sade vallo fateh bulani when you go." Like we say, okay, sade vallo fateh bulani. So when he returns to Sri Amritsar Sahib, and he sees Baba Shaam Singh Ji sitting there, and he comes to them, and Baba Shaam Singh Ji, 8 pair, so all 24 hours of the day, their mind would be always engrossed in Vaheguru Guru Mantra. So Vaheguru Guru Mantra japte ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ. ਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਈ ਆ. I went to this village and ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਗਜਾਈ ਹੈ. Just said that much. ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਬਸ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜਪੀ ਗਏ. They didn't reply to him. ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਭਾਈ ਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ said it. ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੇ ਰਿਪਲਾਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਕੁਛ. In the end, ਭਾਈ ਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ thought ਕਿ this is the maryada, isn't it? When someone says fateh, then you got to reply back. And he said, Baba ji, Sant ji, aap ji ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਗਜਾਈ ਆ ਕਿ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਅੱਗੇ ਬੋਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ. So why aren't you replying to the fateh? And Sant ji said ਕਿ hey ਗੁਰੂ ਕੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ, ਕੀ ਬੋਲੀਏ ਤੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ, ਕਿ what am I to say to you, ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਚੰਗਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਮਿੱਤਰ ਆ, that you're a good friend, ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਛਿੱਲਰ ਦੇਵਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਗਿਰੀ ਆਪ ਖਾਵਦਾ ਹੈ. ਜਿਵੇਂ ਨਟਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਮੂੰਗਫਲੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ for example, monkey nuts, you see the chiller ਸਮਝਦੇ ਆ, like the skin of it, or the outer shell of it. You got to break that, then the nuts are inside. So imagine you take the nuts for yourself inside, and you just keep giving someone the shell. ਤੇ ਸੰਤ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਦਾ. ਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਈ. ਫਿਰ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਮਝਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਮ ਗਿਰੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਬੁਲਾਇਆ ਨਹੀਂ. ਤੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਇਹੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਿੰਘ ਫਤਿਹ ਗਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਫਤਿਹ. ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਛਿੱਲਰ ਆ ਨਾ. ਅਸਲ ਗਿਰੀ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਹੈ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ. ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੰਘ ਬੁਲਾਉਂਦਾ ਆ, ਦੂਸਰਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਗਜਾਉਂਦਾ ਆ, ਹੀ ਰਿਪਲਾਈਜ਼ ਬੈਕ, 4 ਵਾਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਜਾਪ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ. ਅਤੇ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਜਪਣਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦਾ ਫਲ ਕੀ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ, ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਫਤਿਹ ਕਹਿ ਤਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ. ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇਖੋ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਟੂ ਦਿਸ ਲੈਵਲ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਫਤਿਹ ਗਜਾਉਣੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਖਾਸ ਤਾਕੀਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾਉਣਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਰਮੰਤਰ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ. ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਾਖੀ ਸੀ. ਇੱਕ ਜਸਟ ਮੂਵਿੰਗ ਔਨ ਨਾਓ, ਸੋ ਵੀ ਟਾਕਡ ਅਬਾਊਟ the Amrit, and the regards for Rehat. One part of Rehat is Amrit Vela, and it's a bit of a funny sakhi about Sant Balwant Singh, who was another Sevadar of Baba Shaam Singh Ji, and this sakhi is from their last few years, so the last 4 years of their life. And hopefully in the next podcast, because there's a lot of information, and we're going to have to go into a third podcast on Baba Shaam Singh Ji. In that one, we'll talk about their last years more. But this is one of the stories from their last years. This is from 1922 to 1925. In those years, Baba Ji would always remain in Samadhi. So, bachan bahut ghat karde sige. So, a lot of these sakhiyan, we're hearing it earlier. A lot of them, they're still over 100. But especially in their last 4 or 5 years of their life, they stopped doing bachan. They would just stay in Samadhi at all time. And due to that, Sevadars would then always remain with Baba Shaam Singh Ji, because there was no telling when they would come out of their Samadhi. So we could say roles or duties of 2 hours, the Sevadar would always change. So even all night, someone would sit next to Baba Shaam Singh Ji, just if they come out of Samadhi and they need anything at that time. The Guru Ka Bagh Morcha, which was when the British stopped Gursikhs going into Guru Ka Bagh to get wood for the langar. It's a long story, we'll go through that in the next podcast, because Baba Shaam Singh Ji was involved in that morcha as well. So in terms of their morcha and Panthik Seva, we're going to go through that in the next one. So anyways, Guru Ka Bagh morcha was happening at the time, and Sant Balwant Singh, who was at the time 12 to 2 a.m, it was their role, you could say, or their duty to sit next to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. And their interest was in the politics of that time as well. And obviously when you have something that's that major going on, you want to have the updates of what's going on. And also there was no social media or anything like that. Newspaper hunde si, akhbar hunde sige. They unhone socha after sit for 2 hours next to Baba Shaam Singh Ji, they're just going to be in Samadhi in their own anand. I might as well read the papers, right? So they took their newspapers, ek Akali paper hunde sige, so sharped by the Akalis, and even the English newspapers, wo bhi leonde si, and they used to read them. And so it's 12 a.m. and after 12 a.m, Amrit Vela da sama ho gaya, ki hun Baani padhiye ja Simran kariye, and Sant Balwant Singh sitting there with his newspaper. And you think Baba Shaam Singh ta jata sutte pe ya jao apne samadhi vich hai gaya, unhanu ki pata lagna. Mahapurusha tusi ne te dekh lo ki just as he started reading it, Baba Shaam Singh Ji comes out of the samadhi. They look towards Sant Balwant Singh, and these are their words. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪੜੂਆ ਤੂੰ ਭੁੱਲਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ, ਅੱਗੀ ਹੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਹਿਰਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵੜੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਹੋਰ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਵਾਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਤੇਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹਿਰਦਾ ਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਸਿਆ ਪਿਆ, ਤੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਹੋਰ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਅੰਦਰ ਵਾਰ ਰਿਹਾ, right? That your mind is already engrossed in these worldly matters, and now you're reading more of these political ਗੱਲਾਂ, and you're putting that into your mind. ਇਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੰਕਲਪਾਂ ਵਿਕਲਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਿਆਗ ਕੇ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਮ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋੜੋ, ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਬਾਹਰ ਦੇ ਖਿਆਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੰਦਰ ਵਾੜ ਕੇ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਚੰਚਲ ਨਾ ਕਰੋ. So Sant Baba Shaam Singh Ji, and this is a time when they didn't do bachan, so they're doing these bachan to Sant Balwant Singh, and they're saying this time of Amrit Vela is the time when you need to tyag all your sankalp vikalp. This isn't a time to fill the mind with more information. This is when you need to stop all them thoughts, the outer thoughts, and you need to focus your mind into Naam Simran. And all these, the input of too much sankalp vikalp, all this information, that's just going to make your mind more chanchal. How are you going to concentrate on your Nityanem or Guru Mantar? Because your mind is going to be going to those galna. So anyways, when Sant Balwant Singh heard that, straight away he closes the newspaper and he threw it under Baba Shaam Singh Ji's manja, and he just sat there quietly. Dekho man da halat dekh lo. Baba Shaam Singh Ji dobara chal gaye samadhi vich. Look at the state of the mind. The mind always runs back. That's how chanchal our mind is. After half an hour, he couldn't hack it, and he picked the newspaper up again. So he picks up the newspaper, starts reading it again. He thought, Baba Ji da samadhi chal gaya. Soon as he picked it up and started reading it, Baba Shaam Singh Ji, who had their back turned to him, so they didn't know, oh samadhi. They turned their face back and they said, Tu sada bachan nahi manda. And Sant Balwant Singh says that all these years have passed now, but those words still ring in my ears. कि मैं बाबा जी दा बचन नहीं मनने. कहने दा भाव जिहड़ा अमृत वेला दा समा आ, that's a time कि आपां सारे दुनिया दे जिहड़े संकल्प विकल्प है, all the thoughts of the world or worries or anything else, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਛੱਡ ਦਿਓ. ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਹੋਰ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਪੜੋ, ਹੋਰ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਦੇਖੋ, ਸਿਰਫ ਤੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਤੇ ਨਾਮ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ।
So there's just a couple of short sakis now on Rehat and the importance of keeping Maryada after taking Amrit. So Ikvari, there was a man who came for darshan of Baba Shaam Singh Ji, and he came with an offering of 500 rupees, which is a lot of money in that time. But Babaji didn't look at him, nor did they speak to him or give any response to his statements. And that man left, obviously dejected, from the Dera. And afterwards, the other devotees to say ke Babaji, that devotee had bought 500 rupees with love, but you did not even look towards him. And Babaji replied ke his father was an Amritari Singh, but he has cut his hair. And for this reason, Ghulam did not speak with him. And Sant Ji would often say the following, ke when the son of a Sahajdari, so Sahajdari is a generic term to denote those who are on a, haven't taken Amrit yet, and are taking a slightly slower path. They tend not to be Gaistari these days. But when the son of a Sahajdari takes Amrit and becomes a Tyar Baratyar, Gosik, so steadfast and ever ready, his roots will be green, meaning that his family will prosper, that he will prosper. But that Singh who enters bad company and commits be'adabi of his case, his roots are dried out, meaning that he basically, his good fortune has dried out and he brings dishonor to his family. So the idea being here is that having been Gaistari, to then abandon it is the path here. If you go the other way around, that's progression. But if you abandon it, then Sant Ji didn't favor that. And
ਇਹ ਭਾਈ ਨੰਦ ਲਾਲ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਆ, so where Baba Ji actually got this bachan, this isn't a bachan they made up. ਇਹ ਭਾਈ ਨੰਦ ਲਾਲ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਤਨਖਾਹਨਾਮਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗਾ ਹੈ। So ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਆ ਕਿ ਬਚਨ ਹੈ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ, so this is how they heard it from Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, and they wrote it down, कि जे कोई सिख का बेटा होए और मोना हो जावे तिसकी जड़ सुक्की, और जो मोना सिख हो जावे तिसकी जड़ हरी। गुरु गोबिंद सिंह महाराज दे बचन थे भाई नंद लाल जी।
With regards to Amrit, then, we've already talked about Bhai Vir Singh Ji, but another famous personality who received Amrit at the hands of Sant Ji in the Panj Pyare was Sundar Singh Majithia. And the following has been recorded in Sant Gatha and recounted by Major Prem Singh Ji. So Bhai Vir Singh Ji so states that when Baba Shaam Singh Ji blessed me with the gift of Amrit, because Baba Shaam Singh Ji was in the Panj, the seva was complete in a very good manner. After this, Sant Ji administered Amrit to Sundar Singh Majithia, after which there was a great uproar. So obviously Sundar Singh Majithia was a personality that people knew. Bhai Vir Singh was still obviously up and coming. So though Sundar Singh Majithia was a great devotee of Baba Shaam Singh Ji, and he was the Punjab Executive Council member, was a founder of the Chief Khalsa Diwan, Sikh Educational Conference and Khalsa College, so a big personality. Babaji had encouraged thousands of Sangat to take Amrit, and Sundar Singh Ji has told Bishesha Singh Ji, so one of the other Singhs, that Baba Shaam Singh Ji administered Amrit to me at Akal Takat, and they were the Jathedar of the Panj. When the Pujaris, so these are the priests, the other sort of attendants, Granthis of Akal Takat. So when the Pujaris found out through Colonel Jawala Singh, who was the Sabra or the manager of Sri Gurdwara Sahib, they became very angry and stopped Sant Ji from performing Kirtan at Sri Harmandir Sahib. So it's not that Baba Shaam Singh Ji would be in every Amrit Sanchar, but they certainly would participate in that seva occasionally. And it just so happens this time round when Majithia took Amrit, Babaji was in the Panj. Now the Pujaris at that time clearly were slightly jealous because they wanted to be the ones to shakar the Amrit to such a personality. And so in spite, they then stopped Sant Ji from doing Kirtan at Harmandir Sahib. So their reason for the anger was that if the influential leaders begin taking Amrit from Baba Shaam Singh Ji, then who would ask them? Who would pay them? Who would honor them? Okay? But so Babaji's love for the routine of performing Kirtan at Harmandir Sahib was so beyond, so infinite, that they actually came into a state of suffering, not being allowed to do Kirtan. They became really Ardaas and upset. As Satguru Ji has said, Aakha jiva visra mar jao. So through reciting they live, and through if they forget, then one dies. So Sant Ji had retreated into a state of Adasi in their Dera and remained without food and water. At that time, such was the khel of Maharaj, that a relative of that manager, Sri Darbar Sahib, was arrested in connection to a murder case. So he came to Sundar Singh Majithia and asked him to help him. And Sundar Singh said to Colonel Jawala Singh, why have you stopped Sant Baba Shaam Singh Ji's Kirtan? First go and please the Sant, and then I'll go to you to Lahore and help you. So look at Maharaj's khel, na? They've stopped Sant Ji's Kirtan. On this Sabra of Darbar Sahib, his relatives been arrested and charged with murder, in connection with murder. They've come back to Majitya to complain him, and Majitya, being wise, has understood that this has happened because they've stopped Sant Ji's Kirtan. So he said, no, go to Sant Ji and go and please the Sant. So the Colonel went back to Sri Harmandir Sahib, and along with all the Pujaris, they went to the Dharamsala, and they all sought forgiveness from Baba Ji and made beintiyan ke please kirpa karke tusi hun dobara Kirtan shuru karo Harmandir Sahib de vich, na? And after this, Baba Ji, because they were pining for it, they resumed Kirtan, jonki as per their daily routine. But as a result of this, Baba Ji never participated in Panj Pyare Seva again to administer Amrit because of what happened. Baba Ji would say that Ghulam can't survive without doing Kirtan Chonki in Sri Harmandir Sahib. So for them, although the Seva of doing Panj Pyare Andi Seva was so mahan, their daily Khurak, their daily food was that Kirtan. And without that Kirtan, they couldn't survive. So if it was a choice for them, they forsook the other one and stayed with Kirtan because they couldn't survive without it. So if some devotee would ask, because obviously there'd be so many premis, no, who would want Babaji to be in their Panj. You know how like we are, when people take Amrit, they often want to try and make sure they go where the Panj Pyare, there's some, Brahmgyani because they feel it would happen better. And so it would be devotees who would come, Babaji kirpa karke tusi bhi Amrit shakao, but Babaji would never, they would never say no, but they would take them to a Akal Takht to take Amrit, but not participate as part of the Panj Pyare. So that was how Babaji came to stop doing that seva as a result of that Sakhi.
So we touched upon a lot of Babaji's Rehat and the importance of Amrit Vela as well. And obviously Babaji's Khurak being Kirtan. What about their teachings? We talked about, just mentioned Kirtan there. What about the Gurmukh teachings that Babaji would give as well?
So just going back to even what Babaji and Baba was saying about the Amrit Vela being a time to sambal your vichara, to stop thoughts and things. So in line with that, Bhai Thakur Singh Ji once did a benti to Baba Shaam Singh Ji saying, hey Babaji, my mind quickly wanders elsewhere. This is something that we all ask Mahapurush as well. The mind wanders. Kirpa karke daso, tell me a way in which I can remain focused inwardly. How can I get mandi ekagrata? How can I get focus of mind? And Babaji replied, you're not doing a para against your mind. So it's saying you're not guarding against your mind. One who watches or guards his mind will be able to control it. So due to countless lives, the mind's focus is towards looking outwardly because it's bound by its karam. The solution to drawing it inwards is such. At such a time that the mind wanders, immediately push those thoughts out of mind and attune it to the Naam or Shabad. But one should remain steadfast in this battle. The mind will wander hundreds and thousands of times, but then you'll need to bring it back and focus inwards hundreds and thousands of times also. If you do not lose or falter in this war, then you'll easily be able to bring the mind under control. But if you are lazy or you do not keep watch of your own mind, then this priceless life will be wasted. And the Babaji laughed and said, you must be thinking so much time has passed, but I've still not been able to control my mind or achieve liberation. But Sri Bhagat Kabir Ji has given the answer to this. The work of controlling the mind and remaining steadfast at the feet of Vaheguru is that of thousands of lifetimes. Reciting the Naam without fear is not of any use. So this is a very interesting button because Santaji is reminding us that this is a battle that's been spanning thousands of janams. We haven't been here once. And that you can't allow laziness to detract you because we all fall. Every day when we're sitting in Nitnem, the mind wanders. Some days we have a really good Nitnem, we feel like we've been present. Some days you start Japji Sahib and you don't even realize you've ended up at Anand Sahib and you had no dhyan in it at all. The easy thing to do is just to say, I give up, that's how I'm going to do it and I'm going to make no effort. But what Santaji is saying is every time you fall, every time you then get awareness that you've wandered, you bring the mind back and you keep bringing it and you keep bringing it and you keep doing it until such time that it stops. It's just like with anything. You can see from all the Sakhis here that Santaji has always been about keeping a para, keeping a watch over mind, body, action. And you can see here that the solution for this problem is no different. And they remind us that this bhajan bandagi is not the work of one lifetime. If you've got this sikh janam, you've got it through countless other lifetimes. And our job is to persevere. Perseverance is key.
ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਸਾਖੀ ਆ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ just finished ਕੀਰਤਨ of ਤੀਸਰਾ ਪੈਰ, so 3 ਪੈਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਕੀਰਤਨ, so the first chonki which is done before Asa Diwar. And once they had finished, they had come outside of the Gurdwara Sahib, and while they're walking around, they reached Atsat Tirat, so just next to Dukh Panjani Sahib. ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਦੁੱਖ ਪੰਜਨੀ ਬੇਰ ਦੇ ਨੇੜੇ, what they hear is a Sikh ਧੀਮੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, meaning very in a quiet voice, there's a Sikh who's crying, ਉਹ ਰੋ ਰਿਹਾ. ਤੇ as we know, Sant ji, Baba Shaam Singh Ji is harek waqt dayawan. They saw anyone in any sort of pain, they couldn't bear it. So they go up to that Sikh and they say, what dukh is troubling you? Why are you crying? And the Premi said, oh Sant Ji, I've got no bodily dukh. This body is fine. But kaam kro lo mohankar manu kasht dinde, they give me dukh. And rag dvash, so hate for some and love for others, or attachment to others, and trishna, that ever burning desire, that's burning my heart. Ki tusi kirpa karo. So imagine that in itself is a blessing, that someone's crying over that, is because they've realized that these things are affecting me. Otherwise, these vakar just take over us, and we let them take over. So the fact that someone's realized it, that's a step on the path towards destroying them. The answer of Sant Baba Shaam Singh Ji was, tusi dheeraj rakho, thwada veri koi nahi, sirf agyan karke dukhi ho rahe ho. Sant Ji said, you got no enemy. In reality, it's just agyanta, it's just ignorance. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੰਕਲਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਠੇ ਪੈਰ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਮ ਵੱਲ ਲਗਾਈ ਰੱਖੋ. So your mind sankalp, you need to make sure they're always engrossed in Vaheguru. So vela man shaitan da kar. This mind, when it's vela, the idle mind is the devil's workshop. ਫਿਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੰਕਲਪ ਵਿਕਲਪ they go free. ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਨੱਠਦੇ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਆ. ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਬੰਨ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਆ. So ਜਿਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਸਾਖੀ, there's an example that comes in Sar Kutavli about the ghost. ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ? ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸੋ ਜੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਬੋਲੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੋਲੋ ਥੋੜਾ.
I can't remember it all, so I'll probably forget it.
ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਇਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ਾਹੂਕਾਰ ਸੀਗਾ. The ਸ਼ਾਹੂਕਾਰ is a businessman, he's got a lot of jobs, he's got a lot of work to do, and he goes to the bazaar looking for someone to help, looking for a knocker or someone, looking for a servant, and it turns out someone's selling a jinn. A jinn is like a ghost, right? But that ghost has this power that any work, it will do it straight away. And he goes to the bazaar, someone's selling that jinn, but there's a disclaimer as well. The disclaimer is, if this ghost finishes all your tasks, it will kill you. That's the disclaimer. And the guy thought, I've got so many tasks, I'm never going to get to the end of them. So he buys the jinn, and just in a few days, about 80 or 90% of all his tasks are completed. Because ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੁਣ ਭੂਤ ਪ੍ਰੇਤ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਪੰਜ ਭੌਤਿਕ ਸਰੀਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, they've got ਸੂਖਸ਼ਮ ਸਰੀਰ. ਉਹ ਛੇਤੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਮਰਜੀ ਕੰਮ ਆ ਉਹ ਛੇਤੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ. So anyways, ਥੋੜਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਰਹਿ ਗਿਆ ਆ, ਥੋੜਾ ਕੰਮ ਰਹਿ ਗਿਆ. He's only got a little bit of work left, and he thinks ਕਿ ਮੇਰੀ ਮੌਤ ਆ ਹੁਣ. And obviously when you got that thought in your mind, you get really depressed that this jinn is going to kill me now. Jinn is it's like the Islamic word for ghost. ਤੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੇਟੀ ਸੀ, the daughter of that person, ਉਹ ਸਮਝਦਾਰ ਸੀ. So she was wise. She saw the pain on her father's mukh, and she asked her father, what's the reason you're so upset? And the father said, this is the case. I brought this ghost. He's done all my work. I thought it would take him many, many years to do all my work, and he's already nearly finished it. It's been a few days, and he's going to kill me probably. And then she basically gives him a upa. She goes, this is really simple. She goes, agar gadi dar gur ya pa chadautar tu. So what she said is that, hey Pitaji, ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿਹੜੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਲੱਕੜ ਭਾਵ ਬਾਂਸ ਗੱਡ ਦੇਵੋ. Get a very large ਲੱਕੜ, like a pillar or some sort of stick or something, and guard that. So put that into the ground and tell the ghost, ਉੱਤੇ ਚੜ ਜਾ ਤੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਆ ਜਾ, ਚੜ ਜਾ. Just keep doing step ups on it. Okay? So what is it? Keeping it occupied. Keep it occupied, because the whole deal is you got to give it a task. You can't say no to the task. If you keep it engrossed in that task, then it hasn't got time to kill you. Marna kithe hai fir? ਸੋ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਕਹਿਓ ਧਨੀ ਮਾਨਿਓ ਜਾਂ ਤੇ ਭੂਤ ਬਲ ਖੀਨੋ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਸੀਗਾ, ਸ਼ਾਹੂਕਾਰ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਮੰਨ ਲਈ ਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੋਸਟ ਸੀ ਨਾ, ਉਹਦਾ ਬਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਉਹਦਾ ਸਟਰੈਂਥ ਉਹ ਘਟ ਗਿਆ, ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ। ਸੋ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਰ ਕੁਤਾਬਲੀ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਟ tells us the three ਭਾਵ of this as well. So what is it saying? ਕੈ ਸਰੂਪ ਲਾਵੈ ਕੈ ਸਰੂਪ ਗੀਤ ਗਾਵੈ ਐਸੇ ਸੰਤ ਜਨੋ ਨਿਜ ਮਨ ਭੂਤ ਬਸ ਕੀਨੋ ਹੈ। ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਨ ਰੂਪੀ ਭੂਤ ਆ, so this is alankarya, this is just an outer story to give us an idea about our man rupi bhoot, because our man rupi bhoot is the same. When we have a task, when we're working, when we're doing our school work, when we've got a certain task, home task, ਫਿਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਮਨ ਵਿਕਾਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦਾ, because it's busy. ਜਦੋਂ ਵਿਹਲਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਫਿਰ ਮਨ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਾਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵਿਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਸੋ ਪੰਡਿਤ ਹਰਦਿਆਲ ਜੀ says ਕੈ ਸਰੂਪ ਲਾਵੇ ਕੈ ਸਰੂਪ ਗੀਤ ਗਾਵੇ। ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਿੱਜ ਸਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਾ ਲਓ, ਸਿਮਰਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਾ ਲਓ, ਫੋਕਸ ਔਨ ਯੋਰ ਆਤਮਾ ਵਾਇਆ ਸਿਮਰਨ। ਕੈ ਸਰੂਪ ਗੀਤ ਗਾਵੇ, ਉਹ ਸਿੰਗ ਦ ਗੀਤ, ਸਿੰਗ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੇਜ਼ਸ ਆਫ ਦੈਟ ਸਰੂਪ ਆਫ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ। ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕਰੋ, ਕਥਾ ਕਰੋ, keep your mind always engrossed in katha, kirtan, simran, Baani. If you do that, and this is how ਐਸੋ ਸੰਤ ਜਨੋ, the Sant, the Mahapurush, ਆਪਣਾ ਮਨ ਰੂਪੀ ਭੂਤ ਨੂੰ ਵਸ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ। That's how they've got it in control. Always keep your mind occupied. And Baba Shaam Singh says the same thing. Okay, whenever you get any sort of sankalp, join your mind into Gurbani straight away. ਜਾਪ ਕਰੋ, ਹਰ ਵਕਤ ਜਾਪ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੋ, ਹਰ ਵਕਤ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਰਹੋ। Keep ਕੀਰਤਨ on at all times. Keep ਕਥਾ on at all times. ਭਾਵੇਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪੂਰਾ ਅਟੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਬਾਣੀ ਲਾਈ ਰੱਖਿਓ in the background. ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਮਨ ਕਦੀ ਵਿਹਲਾ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇ, ਬਾਣੀ ਸੁਣ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਮਨ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਾਣੀ ਵੱਲ ਚੱਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਸੋ ਜਿਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਸ਼ੁੱਧ ਸੰਕਲਪ ਬਲਵਾਨ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਕਾਮ, ਕ੍ਰੋਧ, ਲੋਭ ਆਦਿਕ ਆਪੇ ਹੀ ਛੁੱਟ ਜਾਣਗੇ। ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਅਸਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਫ ਯੂ ਸੀ ਕਾਮ, ਕ੍ਰੋਧ, ਲੋਭ, ਹੰਕਾਰ on one side as the asuri sampada, which is the army of bad avagun, right, demerits. And on the other side you have the army of sat, santokh, daya, dharam, vichar, karna, muddata, maitri, upeksha, all these divine qualities, right? Now imagine you have an army, and on one side ਜਿਹੜੇ the good army, you're not feeding them anything, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਲਵਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ, and on the other side you keep feeding ਕਾਮ, ਕ੍ਰੋਧ, ਲੋਭ, ਹੰਕਾਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਟੀਰੀਅਲ ਦੇਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖਵਾਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਸ਼ਟ ਪੁਸ਼ਟ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ, who's gonna win then? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਫਸਟ ਥਿੰਗ ਯੂ ਡੂ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ੁੱਧ ਸੰਕਲਪ ਹਨ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬਲਵਾਨ ਬਣਾਓ। ਫੋਕਸ ਯੋਰ ਮਾਈਂਡ ਔਨ ਕਲਟੀਵੇਟਿੰਗ ਦੋਜ਼ ਵਰਚੂਜ਼। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਆ? ਦੈਟਸ ਗੋਇੰ ਟੂ ਹੈਪਨ ਵਾਇਆ putting your mind or your time more into the activities that Guru Sahib has told us to do, ਸੇਵਾ, ਸਿਮਰਨ, ਭਜਨ, ਬੰਦਗੀ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ੁੱਧ ਸਾਡੇ ਦੈਵੀ ਸੰਪਦਾ ਆ, that divine army you could say of good qualities, they get stronger and stronger. When they're stronger, it doesn't mean that ਕਾਮ, ਕ੍ਰੋਧ, ਲੋਭ, ਹੰਕਾਰ go away, but they get weaker. When they're weak ਹੈ, ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਸੂਰਮੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ of ਸਤ, ਸੰਤੋਖ, ਦਇਆ, ਧਰਮ, ਧੀਰਜ, ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਹੱਲਾ ਮਾਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਪੂਰਾ। ਸੋ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ when you make them ਬਲਵਾਨ, ਆਪੇ ਹੀ ਛੁੱਟ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਬੇਨਤੀ, ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਉਹ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਬੇਨਤੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ। ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਆ, they relate directly to this. ਕਾਮ, ਕ੍ਰੋਧ, ਲੋਭ, ਝੂਠ, ਨਿੰਦਾ, ਇਨ ਤੇ ਆਪ ਛਡਾਵੋ, ਇਨ ਪੀਤਰ ਤੇ ਇਨ ਕੋ ਡਾਰੋ, ਆਪਨ ਨਿਕਟ ਬੁਲਾਵੋ। ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ ਕਿ ਹੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ, ਦਿਸ ਕਾਮ, ਕ੍ਰੋਧ, ਲੋਭ, ਝੂਠ, ਨਿੰਦਾ which is inside me, ਇਨ ਤੇ ਆਪ ਛਡਾਵੋ। I can't get rid of them. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰੋ, ਇਨ ਤੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਛਡਾਓ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਹੀ ਰਸਤੇ ਪਾਓ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਰ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਬਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਾਪ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਦਾ ਜਾਪ ਕਰੋ। ਅਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸਾਖੀ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਸਾਖੀ। Again, this is again the Gurmukh Sikhya that Baba Shaam Singh Ji would give. And Sardar Basheshwar Singh, who we've heard a few times now, they would go again to Bhai Vir Singh Ji and meet them at Lawrence Road at their house. And they used to write many bhajans that Bhai Vir Singh Ji would give in their diary. Bhai Vir Singh Ji gives an eyewitness account of once a Gursikh comes to Baba Shaam Singh Ji when Bhai Vir Singh Ji was sitting there. And he comes for Atam Gyan di Prapti. Atam Gyan means to realize his Atma, to realize his true nature, meaning Brahm Gyan. So he's come and he asked Baba Shaam Singh Ji, sorry, he came to Bhai Vir Singh Ji first. And he said to Bhai Vir Singh Ji, I want Atam Gyan. And look at the humility of Bhai Vir Singh Ji. He said, go to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. He's a Puran Brahm Gyani. And when he sends that Sikh to Baba Shaam Singh Ji, Baba Shaam Singh Ji welcomes that Sikh. And when he says, "मैं आत्मज्ञान चाਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ," ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਗੁਰੂ ਕੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਓ, ਬਰਤਨ ਸਾਫ਼ ਕਰੋ, ਜਾ ਕੇ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰੋ. ਇੱਕ ਹਫਤਾ ਸੇਵਾ ਕੀਤੀ. So he held it out, let's say, for 1 week, which is still good. Right? He didn't just go off. He did seva for 1 week, and then he comes back to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. And then he does the same benti. ਕਿ ਹੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ, ਦਾਸ ਨੂੰ ਆਤਮ ਗਿਆਨ ਬਖਸ਼ੋ. I've done seva for a week now. ਹੁਣ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬ੍ਰਹਮ ਗਿਆਨ ਬਖਸ਼ੋ. ਸੰਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਮ ਜਪੋ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜਪ, ਸਿਮਰਨ ਕਰ. 2 ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਪਿੱਛੋਂ ਉਸਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਰਜ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਤਮ ਗਿਆਨ ਬਖਸ਼ੋ. She did 1 week of seva, and then he's done 2 weeks of Simran. He's come back for the 3rd time now to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. ਕਿ Baba Shaam Singh Ji, bless me with ਬ੍ਰਹਮ ਗਿਆਨ so I can realize my ਆਤਮਾ. ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਬਚਨ ਕੀਤੇ, ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਲਾਭਦਾਇਕ ਆ. ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ, ਗੁਰੂ ਕੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ, ਇੱਥੇ ਤਾਂ ਕੇਵਲ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਤੇ ਨਾਮ ਜਪਣੇ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ. ਆਤਮ ਗਿਆਨ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀ ਤਾਂ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ. ਇਹ ਸਹਿਜ ਦਾ ਮਾਰਗ ਹੈ. ਇਸ ਕੰਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਹਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ. ਕਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਭਾਵ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖੀ ਹੈ ਸਹਿਜ ਦਾ ਮਾਰਗ. ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੇ ਚਾਹਣ ਤਾਂ ਅੱਖ ਦੇ ਫੁਰਕਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬ੍ਰਹਮ ਗਿਆਨ ਬਖਸ਼ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, ਪਰ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਹਿਜ ਦਾ ਮਾਰਗ ਆ. This is the path of patience, and in this path there's no time for ਕਾਲੀ ਛੇਤੀ. ਹਾਂ, ਕਾਲੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ? ਭਗਤੀ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਲੀ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ. ਪਰ expecting results quickly, that's not the path of Gurmat. Gurmat is the path of Sahaj. That we're here to do seva Simran, and when Guru Sahib Ji blesses us, that's their choice. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਆ. So that Atma Gyan is a bakshish. It's not a mechanical process that if I do this much, I'm going to get it. It doesn't work like that. It depends on gaining the khushi of the Satguru. And in that process of gaining the khushi of the Satguru, then they give bakshish. So this Sakhi carries on in Bhagat Prem Prakash, in Babaji's Granth, where they talk about wasting our breath. And Baba Sahib Singh Ji Bedi, who was the descendant of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, Baba Sahib Singh Ji ਦੀ ਸਾਖੀ Baba Shaam Singh Ji ਲਿਖਦੇ ਹਨ. And what they say is ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਪੁਰਸ਼ ਕੋਲੇ ਫੂਕ ਕੇ ਪਖਾਵਤਾ ਸੀ ਸੀਤ ਕਾਲ ਮੇ. So ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਕਿ if you have like a furnace or you have some sort of fire or something, to make sure the fire is prachand, meaning that it keeps
stays alight.
Yeah. So to make sure that the fire stays alight, they would have some sort of instrument where they would blow air, like a bellow or something, into the fire. And with that air, the fire would keep going. And it was Seetkal. Seetkal means it was winter. And kole fuke pakhavta si. So he was doing that seva, you could say. And Baba Sahib Singh Ji Bedi did this bachan, ke he bhai, ye amrit kaanu kolya par tu dolta hai. ਭਾਵ ਇਹ ਜੋ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਦੇ ਸਵਾਸ ਹੈ, ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰਾਣੀ ਕੇ ਤਿਸ ਕੋ ਸਵਾਸ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 का जाप करे तो इसका बड़ा आनंद होता है. So Baba Sahib Singh Ji Bedi said to that Sikh that this amrit, meaning that these breath are like amrit as well, because they're priceless. That why are you just fooking them over coals, right? Ginti de swas hai. Each swas you should make sure is devoted to Vaheguru. पुना कोले बीजने कार्य प्रज्वलित करे, हे भाई इन पर व्यर्थ ना गवाए, जो एक भी श्वास कोटा की कीमत ऊपर है. कहते that you're just wasting this breath, because when you have to blow into that, ਕਿੰਨਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਵਾਸ you have to ਬੜੇ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਲੋ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਆ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਵਿਅਰਥ ਗਵਾਈ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ. One swas is the ਕੀਮਤ of one swas, one breath is over many millions of pounds or money or whatever. ਸੋ ਸੁਣ ਕਰ ਸਤ ਬਚਨ ਕਹਿਤ ਪਿਆ. ਕਹਿਣ ਦਾ ਭਾਵ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਅਮੋਲਕ ਸਵਾਸ ਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੇਵਾ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਚ ਲਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਬਖਸ਼ਦੇ ਸੀ.
So just in that light then, Bhai Singh Ji Gyani would also recount this updesh from Baba Shaam Singh Ji ke Babaji would say there's no other salvation other than the sanctuary of Vaheguru. And then Bhai Singh Ji asked, Babaji, how can one know that he has entered the sanctuary? And then Babaji replied, that soul who recites Vaheguru with each and every breath, know that to mean that he has entered the sanctuary. only a person who fears birth, death, lust, anger will seek sanctuary. So actually you have to have fear, just like that previous Sakhi where that individual was crying out. It's because they have that fear of those things. So only a person who has fear of those things will seek sanctuary, just as written in Gurbani, Harju Rakh Leho Pat Meri, Jam ko Tras Payo or Antar Sarnagahi Kirpa Nid Teri. Then I asked, Bhai Thakur Singh Ji says, Hey Babaji, how does one recite with each and every breath? It's written in Sukhmani Sahib Jap Tab Gyan Sab Dhyan, and then it is written, Nahi Tol Ram Naam Bichar Nanak Gurmukh Japya Ekbar. Then it is written, Jap Tap Ka Band Birullah Jit Langa Hai Vahillah. So what Bhai Thakur Singh Ji is talking about is that at some places Baani says one thing and can sometimes say other things. So in some places Jap Tap is praised in Gurbani, but then it is also written Nahi Tol Ram Naam Bichar. So what is Ram Naam Vichar? And Babaji replied, in this there are 4 parts. Number 1, reciting in a parrot fashion, so that is to recite over and over. Number 2 is Naam de Arth nu Vichar ke Japana, so to understand the meaning and contemplate what it is that you're reciting. So reciting whilst contemplating on the meanings of Naam. Number 3 is to recite with Homme, so some people recite and do a lot of part and egotism comes into it. And then number 4 is to recite having forsaken Homme. So these are the 4 stages. So then they say, what does Home look like? Home iha jata hai, home karma kamahi. So one who recites Naam but then takes pride in this, that is Home. Jehe prani home taji karta ram prachan. But that person who forsakes Home, that person can then recognize the karta. So Bhagat Kabir Ji has then said, Kabir na ham kiya na karahage na kar saka suri. So Kabir Ji is saying that I've not done anything, nor will I do anything, and nor can my body do anything. And then Kirt Kumavan Soba Soba Kine Tin Prabh Aap Pas Apar Ha Kara Nanak Bin Har Kaha Kamat. So there is a form of Simran which is performed by the Manmukhs. Manmukha Har Har Kar Thake Mal Na Saki Tohe. So what Babaji is talking about here is that there are stages. You recite, but if you let egotism or home come into it, Manmukha Har Har Kar Thake. So Manmukha vi Har Har Kar Deya. Manmukh vi Vaheguru Jap Deya, but they haven't been able to wash away that dirt. So what will the outcome be if one continues to do Simran, listen to Kirtan and Katha and still have Sankalp, Vikalp, other thoughts in the mind? Now listen to the Simran of the Gurmukh. So hun ta si Manmukhan da Simran sun liya, hun Gurmukhan da sun lo. Mai main tan payo har naam, man mero tavn te chuteo kar baitho visram. So my mother, my tan payo har naam, I have obtained the wealth of Naam. Man mero tavante chutiya, I've been able to escape from running from the mind, kar baitho bisram, and I've found that stillness inside in the sitting at home. Then I made a supplication to Babaji. My mind quickly, so it was the same supplication that they made about the mind wandering. So this was an interesting Sakhi in the sense that it talks about how you need to move from performing these bhakti actions, but still having them tainted, and then pushing them to remove that home and perform Simran as a Gurmukh. And you can do that through Seva and Simran.
Thank you for sharing that, Ji. When it comes to all the Sikhya that Babaji gave. And just to bring it back to what we spoke about at the start of the podcast, which was when we spoke about going to Babaji's Dera, going to India, because we just came back from India recently as well. And one of the interesting things that we see when we went to India, go to Sri Harmandir Sahib, we have the Asthaan Di Seva that happens every morning, which is where they empty out Sri Harmandir Sahib and then they wash all of Sri Harmandir Sahib with milk and with water. And many Guru Sikhs partake in that seva, and then they place everything back inside. And then they bring, one of the first things we see is that they bring prashad, right? Kara prashadi deg. And the first prashad that comes is not actually from like the Harmandir Sahib complex, right? It's from Babaji's Dera. So can we just speak a bit more about that? What's that link there?
Just in terms of the Asthaan, a very small little bit, that Babaji's actually written about the Asthaan Seva in their Granth, so Bhagat Prem Prakash. And they write exactly the way we do it now. They've written the same Trika, the Adhi Raat de Samay, jab Sri Darsani Darwaja Band Hunda hai, Sri Harmandir Sahib de Andar Sevak jo Premi han, ਉਹ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਆਦਿਕ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਸੋਨੇ ਚਾਂਦੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਗਾਗਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ. So in them days, the gagars which we saw they were doing seva with, when they fill it with the milk and the water, in Babaji's time they were of sona, of gold or chandi or silver. ਤੇ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਸੁੱਚੇ ਸਾਫਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਪਰਮ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਸਹਿਤ ਸਫਾਈ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ. So then as we see, first they do the ishnan with the ਕੱਚੀ ਲੱਸੀ inside, and then ਬਾਹਰ ਸਰੋਵਰ ਦੇ ਜਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ around the ਛੋਟੀ ਪਰਿਕਰਮਾ. And then ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੌਲੀਆਂ with the towels, they dry everything. Even that, they've got their own way how they do that. And if you don't know what you're doing, you get told off. So ਸ੍ਰੀ ਹਰਮੰਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਤੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨ ਸਮੇਂ ਪ੍ਰੇਮੀ ਬੜੇ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਨਾਲ ਮੁੱਖੋ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਉਚਾਰਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਨ. So the Gursikhs are always reciting Gurbani, and we heard after, once the seva was completed, then they sing shabads with a lot of prem in praise of Guru Ramdas Ji Maharaj and in praise of Sri Amritsar Sahib. So all the Gursikhs sit together and in group format they sing these shabads without any instruments. And then fir galiche te dariya aad vishaun di seva hundi hai. So this is the bit I want to pick out that Baba Shaam Singh Ji says. Uprant Sri Guru Ji da singhasan tiyar kita janda hai. So the throne of the Guru is prepared. ਜਿਸਨੂੰ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਵਿਸ਼ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਿਵ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਦੇਵੀ ਦੇਵਤੇ ਗੁਪਤ ਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਕੇ ਨਮਸਕਾਰਾਂ ਤੇ ਪੂਜਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ. ਉਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਹਰਿਮੰਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਵਜੋਂ ਧੂਪ ਚੰਦਨ ਆਦਿ ਭੇਟਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ. So we were all there at that time, and we didn't see this, but Baba Shaam Singh Ji is saying this is what happens. When Maharaj's Singhasan is being tiyar, all the Devi Devte, whether they're Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, and all the 33 crore Devte, they all come in Gupt Roop, in their subtle form, and they do namaskar to Maharaj's Singhasan, because this is the King of Kings. And once the seva is completed and Maharaj's Singhasan is tiyar, then Ardaas is done. And in the Ardaas, we can maybe add the clip as well, where the Ardasiya Singh is doing the Ardaas. I got a recording of it. ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ they mention ਕਿ ਜੋ ਦੇਗ ਹੈ ਡੇਰਾ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਦੇਗ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਹਜ਼ੂਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਹੁੰਚੀ ਹੈ.
ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਪਵਿੱਤਰ ਖਜ਼ਾਨਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਡੇਰਾ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਦਾਰ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੜਾਹਾ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦ ਦੀ ਦੇਗ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੈ ਜੀ. ਦਰ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ ਹੋਵੇ, ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ ਹੋਇਆ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦ ਸੰਗਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਰਤਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਆਗਿਆ ਬਖਸ਼ੋ.
ਤੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਜਗਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਹਰਖੋਵਾਲ ਵਾਲੇ, they've done this bachan a few times now when they mention Baba Shaam Singh Ji. They say ਵਿਅਕਤੀਗਤ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ. That means no individual's ardas is ever done in Darbar Sahib. You can be the greatest political leader, you can be someone with so much influence in Punjab, but they're not going to say your name in the ardas at Darbar Sahib. In fact, anyone's name is not allowed to be said. Only one Gursikh's name every single day in Darbar Sahib is said. Since Baba Ji left the Sri to this time, wo hai Baba Shaam Singh Ji da naam. And that is the greatness of the Sevak in the Darbar of Guru Ramdas Ji, that someone who served all their life in the charan of Guru Ramdas Ji, to this day their hazri aaj bhi lagdi hai.
Yeah. And it's interesting to note that in the previous times with all the Shiromani committee, the Qada Prashad at Darbar Sahib used to be made outside. People would bring it. And then when machines came and the committee came, when you go there now, you give a parchi and you get the deg. It's made on site. So people now don't bring deg from outside. But still that one deg comes from outside. Only that one. And it still remained. Otherwise they would have shut that off as well, you see. Because the prabandh came in-house. Because so before, Manlo, it was the first prashad, but even still there'd be other prashad that was coming from outside, from people's homes as well. When that system stopped, Sir Baba Shaam Singh Ji da prashad, wahi deg reh gaya. Everything else is in-house by machine. So evi mahatma hai that even now, even though there's not that many people that know them outside of Amritsar, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਹਾਨਤਾ ਹਜੇ ਵੀ ਰੋਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ.
I think that's even just a great way to finish off, just mentioning that in Sri Harmandir Sahib only Baba Shaam Singh Ji's name is mentioned, and that's amazing. And just to highlight that even more, this podcast we're making right now, that's going to be released at the end of April. Just like last year, it's done in conjunction with Babaji's Barsi, because next year, 2023, so in 2 years, it'll be 100, is it 100 years then?
3 years, so 2026 will be 100.
Okay, 100 years since Babaji left their physical body. So the aim now is to have a program every year?
Yeah. So Babaji's Barsi falls on the 23rd of April, which fortunately this year is a Sunday. And Basics team very kindly are letting us host that program. So this year, 23rd of April, from 5:30 p.m. onwards at Sri Guru Singh Sabha Park Avenue, Southall, will be, I think, celebrating this birthday for the first time in the UK, as per my understanding. And we hope in that program to have Part and Raag Kirtan, Katha and Babaji's Jivani. And the hope is to start celebrating this Barsi on an annual basis in the lead up to the 100th Barsi in 2026. So hopefully this will be the start of an annual program. And in conjunction with that, we hope to probably release even the third part of this podcast in the years to come, and Babaji's Jivani as well, which we've been working on concurrently.
Good buddy. And just any final messages, any final stories to finish off when it comes to Babaji?
There's a nice little Sakhi to end on. So Mahant Tirth Singh Ji. So this Sakhi, I haven't read it in any book, as far as I know. I don't know about you.
Many
I'm not. So Mahant Tirth Singh Ji only passed away a few years ago, and they were the head of the Sevapanthis Samprada. So in their Japji Sahib Katha, they've mentioned a very nice little Sakhi about Baba Shaam Singh Ji. And when it came to the Pankti of Kete Laila Mukkar Pahe, there's many in this world, they take from Vaheguru, they take and they take. Fir Mukkar Pahe, fir Mukkar Jande ke Vaheguru ne sanu ki ditta. What has Vaheguru given us? And Mahant Tirth Singh Ji, Baba Shaam Singh da ek Sakhi dende hote. So as we heard, every day Baba Shaam Singh Ji in the Shabil, where they used to give water to the Yatris or the Sangat, Baba Shaam Singh Ji would do seva there. And where they used to do seva of manjing the pande there, they also used to do seva of giving out the water as well. So when they used to give the water out in the little batte, when they used to give it out, Naal jado dinde si, naal kende si aak Vaheguru. They would say Vaheguru. Whoever was taking it, they would make them jap naam as well. And ek din a guy comes, bada dukhi, like you can tell, he's in life, he's very troubled, he's greeb, he's poor. He comes to Babaji and he wants to take the water, he's thirsty. And when he takes that bata in his hand, Babaji says, aak Vaheguru, bol Vaheguru. And oh, chup reha, he didn't answer. 2 or 3 times Baba Shaam Singh Ji kende, aak Vaheguru, aak Vaheguru. Unhe reply nahi kita. Te kende, Gurmukha aak Vaheguru. His response was, कि पानी दे ता दे, मैं वाहिगुरु नहीं कहना. Give me the water if you're going to give it. I'm not saying वाहिगुरु. ते महापुरुष कहते क्यों भाई, की होया? ते his answer was कि रब ने मैनू की दिता. What has वाहिगुरु given to me? Why should I recite वाहिगुरु's name? मैं भुखा मरदा, है ना, मेरा कोई घर बार नहीं, मेरे कपड़े नहीं हैगे, मेरा ये नहीं वो नहीं, पूरा list. He gave the whole list to Baba Shaam Singh Ji. Baba Shaam Singh Ji चुप रहे. कहते चंगा भाई तू पानी पी ला, हुण कल आई तेरे वास्ते मैं कुछ लियाऊगा. So they said, don't worry, don't say Vaheguru, drink the water, come tomorrow, I'll have something for you. As we heard before, Baba Shaam Singh Ji Sangat Maya Peta kardi si for seva. Baba Shaam Singh Ji ne keh lo 4 ਜਾਂ 5 ਹਜ਼ਾਰ ਨੋਟਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੰਡਲਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਕਰ ਲਏ. And the next day he brings it and that guy's come back. He sees all the money there. ਤੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਉਂਗਲ ਕੱਟ ਕੇ ਦੇ 1000 ਰੁਪਈਆ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਠੀਕ ਹੈ. That cut one of your fingers off and I'll give you 1000 ਰੁਪਈਏ. ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ? How can I do that? I need it. ਹੈ ਨਾ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਚਲੋ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ 2 ਕੱਟ ਕੇ 2000 ਦੇ ਦੂਗਾ. Cut 2 fingers off, I'll give you 2000 ਰੁਪਈਏ. He goes, I can't do that. How can I live without my fingers? How am I going to operate without my hands? ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਚਲੋ ਠੀਕ ਆ, ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੱਥ ਬਹੁਤ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਉਹ ਤੂੰ ਰੱਖ ਲਾ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ 2 ਅੱਖ ਆ, ਇੱਕ ਅੱਖ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਦੇ ਦੇ 3000 ਰੁਪਈਏ ਵਾਸਤੇ. ਠੀਕ ਆ. They said take out 1 eye and just give me that in exchange for 3000. And we're talking about in a time where even 100 rupiah is like loads and loads. This is 3000. This is loads. Sort him out for a long time. And then I can't give my eye. And then chalo koi na. 3000 nahi, 5000. The whole rakam, all of it. Just take out 1 eye and give it to me. And the Baba ji mein nahi kar sakta. Can't do that. ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਬਾਬਾ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੂੰ ਐਵੇਂ ਕਹੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਰੱਬ ਨੇ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਤੈਨੂੰ. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ hasn't given you anything. ਦੇਖ ਲਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਖ 1 eye ਤੂੰ ਉਹਦਾ ਮੁੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾ ਸਕਦਾ. You can't put the worth of 1 eye. And he's saying, Vaheguru is giving you nothing. And they said, even if I offered you lakhs, millions and hundreds of thousands, you wouldn't give your 1 eye. So, ਤੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਰੱਬ ਨੇ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ. ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕੀਮਤੀ ਤੋਂ ਕੀਮਤੀ ਜੋ irreplaceable ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ. ਇਹ ਸਰੀਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਰਮੇਸ਼ਰ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦੇ. ਸੋ ਕਿਉਂ ਬਿਸਰੇ ਜਨ ਸਭ ਕੁਛ ਦਿਆ. ਸੋ ਇਹ ਮਹਾਂਪੁਰਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਢੰਗ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਆ. ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲੇ ਢੰਗ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਜੁਗਤੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸਮਝਾਉਣ ਦੀ. ਆਪਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆ ਕੇ ਕੁਛ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਆ, ਵਿਲ ਰਿਪਲਾਈ ਹਾਊ ਵੀ ਰਿਪਲਾਈ, ਲਾਈਕ ਵਿਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਬਲੀ ਰਿਪਲਾਈ ਗਾਲਾਂ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਜਾਂ ਉੱਚੀ ਬੋਲ ਕੇ ਜਾਂ saying some negative words, but Mahapurushon di jugti dekho. Look at the technique and how they explain something. The person is left speechless and they understand everything, and the tat, the siddhant, the essence of Gurmat is given to them. So I thought that was just a nice little story to end on.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And just for the whole podcast, talking about the Sakya, the qualities of Baba Shaam Singh Ji, I think definitely all the Sangat that are listening can see how much research and effort has gone into this podcast from both of you to put this together. So I'm sure there's a lot of appreciation from all of us. So thank you so much.
ਕਈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਲੰਮਾ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ
No.
ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਏ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਆਏ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਕਹੂੰਗਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਸੁਣੋ. The reason we're doing this is that not everyone can understand Gurmukhi. That's the first thing. There's not a lot of resources on Baba Shaam Singh Ji. Even Punjabi Katha, there's no, I couldn't find anything online. So we want people to have access to the life of Baba Shaam Singh Ji. That's all it is.
Definitely. And for the people that speak to myself, obviously in the comments, they're happy to see those long hours, because then when they go on their walks, if you're on a long car journey, I remember one thing, he deliberately went from Birmingham to London to drop sings off so he could drive back from Birmingham to from London to Birmingham just to listen to the podcast. So he made a excuse just to do that, right? So I'm sure all the Sangat appreciate all the seva that you guys are doing. So thank you so much. And we finish off there. ठीक है जी, धन्यवाद जी, वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह.